Welcome back, guys. I'm really excited about this week's guest. If you were to ask me before, who do I align with closest when it comes to like dating and stuff like that, I would probably say my man Justin Waller. But if you were to ask me who I align with closest when it comes to finance, when it comes to economics, when it comes to broadcasting, it's probably this man right here. He is he's a financial expert, the VP of sales for Life Settlements. He is the host of Valuetainment Money and the co-host of Patrick Bet David's podcast. Please welcome Adam Sosnick to the show.
Thank you, Michael Sartain in the house.
How's it going, man?
So Jay Waller got a plug right there.
Well, Jay like when I met, because okay, so the thing is, you know, I'm thrown into the red pill community, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like sort of. Like I get sucked in because as soon as I associate with Rollo, then all of a sudden I go on all these other shows and I'm not that deep in it like they are. And then some of them I'm like, okay, I understand what you're saying, but like some things are antithetical. Like I believe men and women can be friends, and you do too. Yeah. Because and the thing is, you and I don't have to have this discussion because you used to work at a nightclub or you used to be in nightlife.
Clubs, yes.
Nobody who works in nightlife was like, yeah, men and women can't be friends. We all know you can't. Guys who are male nurses, guys who manage strip clubs, guys who are VIP hosts, they don't ever have a problem with this concept. And so there were places in Red Pill where I just didn't fit. Do you understand? Yeah, and so I listened to Justin. I was like, okay, he gets it. Justin gets it. Okay. So that's why I like Justin. He started talking about Gentleman Game. I was like, okay, finally there's a place where I feel like I can express myself without getting called all these fucking names. And that's why I liked Justin's content so much. With you, it's like one of the issues I see in Red Pill that's been an issue recently is how we are now all pro-Russia and anti-Ukraine because we don't like Biden. And I'm like, where the fuck did this happen? Like, how did this happen? Or
that's news to me, actually.
Oh, no. I'll play. It's pretty frequent. You'll see in the live stream. Do it sometime. Read the live stream when you talk about Ukraine. And then the other.
Well, there's this like strongman love for Putin thing going on.
And
without even addressing any other stuff that's going on out there. It's just Putin strong, he good, everyone else bad. You can't. You did this on your live yesterday where it's like two things can be true at once. I love your example with Kyrie. It's like you can be a flat earther but also have the sickest handles where I think that's, I mean, there's much more to be said about that.
Yeah, so I mean, Putin is a great tactician, and he was a former KGB agent, and he's, you know, there's a lot of good things that he did, and taking over the Crimea was a successful military campaign for him that caused him to have a higher approval rating, and taking over Ukraine did the complete opposite, and it's been a quagmire, no matter what anybody says. And I get into discussions with people about this in this community, and they're just like, no, Russia's going to win this whole thing. And then I always have this discussion, the GDP for the whole planet, what is it? You know, you're
for the whole planet.
You add all GDPs for all 200 countries.
Dude, this actually, I'm not a macroeconomist, but I think U.S. is what 25 trillion. Yeah. China's 20 trillion, if that.
So the planet's 96.
Okay.
U.S. is 23. China's 17.
Okay, gotcha.
Russia is
one. If that, they're not even a top 10. Maybe they're number 11.
If we're having this discussion, how many of them think it goes U.S., China, Russia? They don't realize
South Korea's GDP is greater than Russia.
Yes,
South Korea, the tip of the peninsula.
Russia has a GDP on par with Mexico, and a smaller one than Italy. But these people see him. It goes back to what you said. Yes. Putin, big, strong, going to win, and then it's like, oh, Biden administration gives 130 billion to Ukraine. Therefore, Ukraine bad. Russia good. And I'm like, guys, you got to think outside. I'm not for either side of this, but it's like one of these things, like when it comes to, I know we're going way off topic here, but a foreign policy perspective, I have the choice of either prosecuting the war myself or paying the Ukrainians to prosecute a war against Russia for $130 billion. Do you know how much cheaper that is than when we fought in Afghanistan? It was 130.
That was how many trillions of dollars?
It was 130 billion a quarter in Afghanistan. Yeah. It's 130 billion to go to Ukraine for them to defend themselves. Like it's one of these things where like people don't understand it from a foreign policy perspective. Anyway, I'm getting way off topic.
No, but I'll say one thing about this. Number one, in one of the most famous quotes about Russian economy, I didn't think that we were going this direction, but is that the Russian economy is just a gas station masquerading as a country. Yes. That's pretty much what it is. And then number two, without getting too political here, listen, I'm as like, at this point in my life, as like center as it gets.
Yes.
I'm not far right. I'm certainly not far left. But because I don't like Biden, or because I love Trump, and Trump befriended Putin and Biden didn't, so now you're not even American. You're going to align yourself with Putin. Like, show up to Russia. Be a journalist in Russia, like the guy Evan, Wall Street Journal guy. You go missing.
Yeah.
You're not going missing in America.
Yeah.
So it's a totally different situation that's going on over there.
The thing I appreciated was about you being politically moderate. Like there's places in this space to be politically moderate, even though I definitely think Trump would be a better president than Joe Biden. I don't think that Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton secretly eat babies. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I don't think they're secretly promoting.
They're not taking shots of adrenochrome.
Yeah, that's my point. It's like, and then when I say that, there's always these comments, and I didn't think it was that big of a deal until last night or last couple of weeks when I went on with these astrologers, and I just saw how horrible some of these people will be. I'm not blaming Gary, the numbers guy. It's not him. It's his fans that started coming after me and just like screaming the N-word on my live stream, and then trying to show porn on there. And I was just like, wow, this is how bad it's gone. And then this whole thing, like, I want to help men get better.
Yeah.
And women too. I want to help men get better. I'm not interested in just shaming the other side or believing that somebody is bad because they're Jewish or black or female. You understand what I'm saying?
100%.
And but I feel like that message is getting lost, and it's really scary.
Why do you think it's getting lost?
Because it feels good it's microcosm. I did an interview the other day. I have a minor in astronomy. I did an interview the other day where I explained that it's 24 trillion miles to the nearest star. And so unless you're going at like a significant percentage of the speed of light, there's no living creature that's going to be able to get to us, which is why we have not been visited by aliens. So if you can go faster than light, then maybe you can get here. That's what I said. The amount of hate I got for making that comment, which is based completely in reality, let me know that the boring answer is the one no one wants. The boring answer is Neil Armstrong had a PhD in engineering and was a fighter pilot in Korea. He was the right man to fly to the moon, landed on the moon, and then got us back. That's the boring answer, though. The more interesting answer is what? The Illuminati and the Rothschilds faked the moon landing, and therefore, like, if you deny that, you're naive. If you came to me and you were like, hey, Michael, I think the Dallas Cowboys suck, and I just want to let you know that I don't really believe in evolutionary psychology, I'd be like, oh, okay, cool, that's your opinion. But I wouldn't be angry at you. When I say anything that's, like, you should see the way the flat earthers come after me. Like, it's crazy. When you try to use logic and reason, they get more angry the more logic you use in your explanation. Does that make sense? Flat earth is like, I use flat earth as an example because it's so ridiculous. And their audience...
Tucker just said something about that.
It's so obvious that, like, I'm not worried. Like, nobody who's a flat earther, I'm going to lose as a client. So flat earthers, and same thing with numerology. Nobody who believes in numerology is going to be like, well, I was going to buy Men of Action, but I'm not now because Michael Sartain said that there's no fate, destiny, or karma. So it's like no risk to me. Do you understand what I'm saying? But when I talk to them and I'm like, hey, here's 400 studies that show that numerology and astrology have no predictive qualities whatsoever. We'll start with these from Cambridge. The more proof I can show, the angrier they get. And that to me is why when I said what I said before, I don't go back to the LIV tournament. You remember the LIV tournament?
Golf tournament?
Yeah, the golf tournament. So now
Saudi Arabia backed LIV.
So now because what was it? The PGA didn't want Trump to play on one of their courses. Now Fox News is pro-LIV. What the fuck are we doing, dude?
Yeah.
This is crazy. Like, these people are supposed to represent me. In no way, shape, or form, as a U.S. military member, am I pro-LIV. That is crazy to me. Like, what's going on here? We've gotten out of touch to where everything has become such a political hot button, and I just don't understand how, like, if I was a far left reach, like, I understand why people are mad at AOC. If you say moderate things, have you ever seen the video of Joe Rogan explaining global warming to Candace Owens? Have you ever seen this one?
I don't know if I've seen that
It's tremendous. Like, he's going step by step. I believe that Democrats massively exaggerate how much the effect of global warming, but I do think man-made global warming is a thing that will happen.
Yeah.
Both things can be true.
Right. Global warming can be a real thing,
yes.
But the extent of which man has affected it
Correct.
can also be debated.
Well,
how much money you throw at it could also be debated.
Correct.
But is the climate changing? I have climate experts that come onto PBD podcast to Valuetainment and totally disagreeing, but they agree that climate is changing.
Yes, but the thing is, if I say it's going to happen in 800 years, we're not going to get money for it in Congress today. Right. That's the problem.
That's a marketing agenda.
Right. So we can have that disagreement, but, like, he's explaining this to her, and it was like, well, because he's a moderate, therefore he's an idiot. And the messages that I saw when Neil deGrasse Tyson went on PBD's podcast, I was dude, what are you doing? Like, he's just making statements based on predictive. He's not like a slave to a woke narrative. He's a scientist. And I just feel like we've gotten to the point now where, like, if you have anything to say, on either side, by the way, on anything, if I were to say that a 9-year-old should not be able to get gender reassignment surgery, now I'm transphobic. How the fuck is that possible? How did we get to this fucking point?
Yeah,
you see what I'm saying?
I think, number one, I think we're very aligned in our viewpoints. I think what we've lost is the ability to have something more than a binary option. It's black or it's white. It's Republican, it's Democrat. It's pro-Putin, anti-Putin.
Yeah.
There's nuanced discussions with all of this, but it takes a lot of work. Like, how much you read 40 books a year? I'm trying to read 10 books a year.
Yeah.
Like, there's levels to this thing, But it's just so much easier to just be like, no, I don't think so. Well, what evidence do you have? Well, I just don't believe it. It's like, is there anything I could tell you to prove otherwise? Not really. It's like, then why are we even talking?
Why are we having this discussion?
Yeah, nothing I could tell you is going to prove otherwise.
Yeah.
So, but you like going down the rabbit hole with some of these people.
For sure. And I like to go down the logical fallacies. One of the things I appreciated about Andrew Tate was that he said, there is a matrix, but I'm going to figure the rules out and I'm still going to be successful. Even though there is Illuminati and Rothschilds, whether or not he believes in that or not, he's like, that's not going to stop me from becoming a millionaire. Like, none of those things are going to stop me. And I was like, that is a much healthier way of looking at it.
Of course.
And so that's why I appreciated that. Whereas we see other people and it's like, Dr. David Buss, he switched from a dual mating strategy to a mate switching strategy. It's really in the weeds, but he wrote it in his most recent book. And Rollo had a problem with it. And I was like, well, I understand Rollo has a problem with it, but that doesn't mean he's like a slave to a woke narrative. He just, the numbers showed him something different. And I feel like sometimes we go way down this path and we start believing in things just because it feels right. I'm consistently disproven on some of my beliefs. Anyway, so let's get into this.
I'll say one thing.
Yeah.
Just because I know we're kind of all over the place, but it's kind of in tune with what you're saying, Mike. It's there's sort of a pie chart, not even a pie chart. What is it called when two things come together?
The two circles, concentric circles.
Exactly, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Venn diagram.
Venn diagram. Thank you. Took the words out of my mouth. Thank you, George. And there's a Venn diagram. And on one side is things that matter. And on the other side is things you can control.
Yeah.
And at the very middle of where those two things intersect is where you should focus.
Yeah.
There's so many things out there that matter, but you have zero control. Zero.
Yeah.
And there's so many things that you can control, but they just don't matter. And where you can kind of focus on where those Venn diagrams intersect is where I think a lot of people should focus. So, for instance, there's nothing you can do to reverse the January 6th stolen election narrative. And I've interviewed Rudy Giuliani and I've sat down with him and it's like, Rudy, you've done nothing. Respect to you. You believe in this wholeheartedly. But the average person can't do anything about that.
Yeah.
Or you can't do anything about the fact that we, quote unquote, didn't land on the moon. What are you going to do about that? But people go down these rabbit holes. They think they're going to affect change. You're really not going to change anything.
Yeah, we say that in finance too. There's things that are good to know, and then there's things that actually can make you money, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's where I tend to focus.
Yeah.
Love that.
So let's talk about this. Your in Mitch, and we'll get back to your early childhood first,
Sure.
but like your initial getting into Valuetainment, you were in the insurance space and met PBD before you guys started working together. How did that whole thing?
I met Pat at 2012, so that's 11 years at this point. Actually, I'm in Vegas for a financial conference for a meeting, and at a meeting very similar to this. I was, early 30s. He was mid 30s at that point, and we just met working out in the gym. Just as if you and I were in the gym. Hey, what's up, man? You're using this? All right, cool. Are you here for the conference? Yeah, me too. What's going on? Oh yeah, boom, 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 boom. And that's been my story my whole life. Is just talking to people and getting to know people, not with trying to do anything. With no agenda, just, hey, what do you do? What are you up to? And he had just started his company, and he left his former company, Trans, that was a big deal, WFG, and he started his new company, PHP, and I was sort of the face of my company. They would put me on the road and do everything, and we just met and kept in touch and it took 10 years to actually become part of Valuetainment.
Right.
Well, eight years. So it's good things take time, but that's how we met initially. And I've seen, he was actually the person that encouraged me to start doing stuff on social media.
Yeah.
Because we were doing regular, traditional financial insurance type products.
I like to say it's really not cool when you say something funny and it's not on camera.
What's that?
No, anything.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
why I say to my guests, you ever have guests come on and they're having like the greatest story ever and your guys are like, shut the fuck up. We haven't turned the cameras on yet.
Yeah, of course.
Wait till the camera. That's the same thing. You mentioned PBD told you need to start filming it.
Yes.
You need to start filming everything with these discussions.
Just start filming everything.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, cool. What do I do? PBD's a very encouraging guy. He's like, I don't know what you're going to do, but be in front of a camera. Like, don't do a audio, whatever. He's like, you got a lot of pizzazz, you got a charisma, you're a good looking guy, whatever, yada, yada. I was like, all right, cool. And so he's the one that encouraged me to basically get in front of a camera and start doing some stuff. And I was fortunate enough, my best friend was a talent on CNN, CNBC, on camera, Vice, the whole deal. And he's like, here's my equipment, go for it. Because for me, you tell me, dude, there was nothing more awkward. Now, Now it's pretty normal. Then doing this. Hey, what's up, guys? This is in 2016. Hey, man, I'm a dude in front of a phone. Like, it felt so freaking awkward to me.
I think that's part of the reason why Ty Lopez was able to blow up so fast is because he was willing to do it all the time.
Yes.
He's willing to film a commercial that he put $16 million into. It got like 78 million views, and he made several $100 million off that 67 Steps program. But he was filming with an iPhone, like facing himself. And a lot of us were afraid to do it because it felt awkward. Yeah.
And I've learned over the years that your comfort zone will kill you.
Yeah.
And I had to and I did stand-up comedy. I'm like, I've performed. I've been in nightlife. I've been out there in front of stages. But something about the camera was very weird, because you're in your mid-40s, early 40s, and we didn't grow up with cameras like this. Like maybe I hold a beeper up. That was something that maybe I was used to, but it was very awkward.
Maybe 07, 08.
Yeah, and it just, but being in front of a actual camera, I was for some reason more comfortable with, and I basically was doing a lot of interviews. I was interviewing a lot of financial people. That's how I got started, and just all money related content. And then, they say that the riches are in the niches. I didn't just start off talking politics and dating and relationships and macroeconomics. It was money, how to save money. What can millennials do to get better with money? And I asked every single financial advisor, hedge fund guy, insurance guy, estate planner, rapper, homeless guy, whoever, about money. And that's how I created a name and created a brand, because you need to start with one specific thing, develop an audience, and then you can branch out from there. If you try to go too wide, you'll get lost in the shuffle.
You guys were in Dallas? I didn't realize you were in Dallas before you were in Florida. I'm from Dallas.
Yeah. Oh, no. Well, I moved to Dallas to team up with Pat.
Where was the studio? So there's a studio, and it was, did you have Valuetainment money in Dallas?
Yes.
And then he also had the PBD podcast.
Correct. We started that together. It'd be right in 3 years, May of 2020.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So, I mean, I'm born and raised in Miami my whole life. I lived in Miami. And in 2019, we were talking about doing something together. And I was like, so what's the vision of Valuetainment? And Pat's the guy that's like, I don't want to just be one guy. I don't want to just be Gary Vee. I don't want to just be Grant Cardone. I don't want to just be Patrick Bet-David. I want to be Valuetainment and bring other people under my umbrella, a media company. And I was like, all right, well, like, who do you have so far? He's like, nobody yet. I'm like, well, how do I throw my hat in the ring for this? And he's like, I like you, and Pat's one of those guys he hires slow, but fires fast. You ever heard that terminology?
Yeah, for sure.
And so it took 6 months. Even I've known him at that point since 2012. This is 2019. I've already known him 7 years. I know he thinks very highly of me. He encouraged me to start my own show, everything. And it was a 6-month discussion, endeavor, marathon of even getting into Valuetainment. And it sort of culminated in January of 2020. And he's like, all right, cool. Like, put pen to paper. Like, what are we doing? And the week that we met and we really started to finalize everything, I'll never forget the story, Michael. He shows up, he gets out of a freaking helicopter to come meet me at a restaurant in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And because he's doing a tour of South Florida of where, he wants to do, or our event called The Vault now. So he's doing a whole tour, gets out of the helicopter, meets me, do lunch, bing, bing, bing. All right, great. He gets back into the helicopter, flies out. I'm like, that was so sick. That was so cool. 2 days later, Kobe Bryant dies.
Yeah.
In a helicopter accident.
Yeah.
And I'm going around excited as hell, telling people, oh, I think I'm going to be working with this guy, PBD, Patrick Bet-David, Valuetainment. People are like, who's that? I'm like, you don't know? You ever saw the Kobe Bryant interview? Like, it's the biggest interview Kobe ever did. And now I'm telling the people the story of, the helicopter, Kobe. It was just so eerie.
Yeah.
And just weird. But if you want something, you don't just quit. So for months, he's just like, hold off. Like, I'm busy. COVID hit. Sorry. Why am I holding off? Because fucking COVID hit. The whole world slowed down. And I'm just like, I'm so close to doing something with Pat and Valuetainment that to your initial question, I was like, yo, Pat, I'm just coming to Dallas. Like, and right now it's laughable. But at that point in April, May of 20, getting on an airplane, flying, COVID. Dude, I wore gloves, mask. I don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah,
People are like, don't go. I'm like, dude, I'm going. But it felt so weird. But I got to Dallas, And within a day, I'm like, that's it. I'm like, I'm moving here. It's done. It's over.
I love Dallas.
That was
what part of town were you in?
We were in Addison, right near the private northwest. Airport.
Yeah, almost. Keep going north, you get to Frisco, where the Cowboys Stadium, where the Star is. Yeah, Addison's a good spot.
So you grew up in?
I grew up in the hood. Well, I grew up in Lakewood. I went to high school in Southeast Dallas, in Lakewood, Woodrow Wilson. So very different experience. I didn't even know what Addison.
Cowboys fan.
I didn't even know what Addison was. Yeah, I was born at Baylor Hospital in East Dallas. But yeah, man, I grew up and I lived my whole life there. Still the best burger joints I've ever been to in my life are in Dallas. It's not even close. So you were living there, and then what happened? So a couple things I think a lot of people don't know. Patrick Bet-David was a U.S. Army officer in the 101st Airborne.
Yes.
He's first generation Iranian.
Yeah, born in Iran, made in America is like his famous quote.
Did his family come over in '79 during the overthrow of the government?
No, he came over. I want to say he left Iran in '90. I want to say lived in a refugee camp in Germany.
Yes.
For a few years, came to Glendale, LA area. Famously was a 1.8 high school GPA student. Like just didn't do well. Joined the Army, 101st Division. And that's how he got his start.
I don't know if he was a citizen at the point, but if you join the Army on your first deployment, they swear you in and you're a citizen.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't know if that's what
I think as they should.
Yeah, for sure.
If you serve your country as a foreign national.
Yeah, so whenever we would land in Abu Dhabi or Doha, we would land and there would always be all the guys, because sometimes we'd bring like 30 guys with us. I was a navigator on KC-135. Like 30 guys, they'd get off, and then several of them would be, citizens of other nations, but they enlisted in the U.S. Army. And then they'd swear in, there'd be a U.S. senator or someone like that, or sometimes it's the president of the United States, who'll go in their huge auditorium, and then they're in Iraq. They're in a staging base before they get into Iraq, and they swear and they become citizens. That's something that happens overseas. Yeah, it's pretty common.
You were in the Air Force, right?
Yeah, I flew. Yeah.
Give me that background.
So I watched 9/11 happen. I was working at a gentleman's club. I was a DJ and a manager there. And then it took me a year and 4 months.
This was in Dallas? Or
no, this was in Austin. I was a Longhorn. I had just graduated from
So you're a Texas guy?
Yeah. I just graduated from UT Austin.
Yeah.
And I watched the towers crash. There was a replay, obviously. It's funny because in my mind, what's it called? The Liberace effect? What's that called where you think? No, it's the Mandela effect. It's this thing where you think you saw something happen that nobody actually saw happen. And so I didn't see 9/11 happen live, but in my mind, I remember seeing it live, but of course it wasn't live. There's no way. It was 11 p.m. So that means it was already 1 p.m. there, and the towers came down at 9 a.m.
9 a.m., right?
Yeah. So I remember that thing happening, and I remember the first one coming down and not taking it seriously. Just like, they got all those people out of there. Everything's fine. The second one happened, and I knew who Osama bin Laden was because I remember he had previously tried to bomb the World Trade Center before that. Mm-hmm. So I knew kind of who he was.
That's when Biggie made the song.
Correct. That's why Biggie made the song. Right. Blow up like the World Trade. And the other thing is I knew who he was because I had studied a little bit the Russian war in Afghanistan, where we had actually, the United States had helped the Mujahideen fight off the Russians. A lot of people don't know that part. A lot of people don't know that Osama bin Laden was fighting on behalf of people in Afghanistan to fight off the Russians with
in
USA.
The late 70s, I want to say, right?
Yeah. 83.
It was okay. So early 80s, but yeah. What's the terminology they use for Afghanistan? It's like if you don't learn from history, you're destined to repeat it.
Yeah.
Like Afghanistan is like a graveyard for armies.
So it starts. It starts with Alexander the Great. He could not hold it, and then as you go throughout time, because the people there are so incredibly stubborn and austere, and the land there is so incredibly difficult to navigate and cultivate. It's one of the hardest positions on the map to hold, but because of its positioning next to Pakistan and India, a lot of people want to try to hold Pakistan, but they've never been able to. Alexander the Great went through there, but he wasn't able to hold it. He was able to hold parts of India, but not Pakistan. And so you would see that whole thing, and you would see history repeat over and over again. Napoleon invades Russia during the winter, then Adolf Hitler invades Russia during the winter. The same effect in both cases. You see the same thing happen over and over again. So yeah, it's one of those interesting situations with that. I'm sorry, we got off track here.
This is what motivated you to join the Air Force.
Yeah. So I joined the military after watching 9/11, and it took me a while. They lost I think they did it on purpose, to be honest with you. They lost my medical record. So many people were trying to get in at this point. They wanted me to start the whole thing over, and I did. And I scored really high on the nav pilot section. I told them I definitely do not want to be a pilot. I don't want to do 11 years in the Air Force. So I want to be a navigator. My initial intent was to be an intelligence officer. And it's funny because the last 2 years I was an intelligence officer. Once I was DNIFT, duties not including flying, because I had an autoimmune disorder, I worked in the intel shop. So I joined, and I had a selection of all the different aircraft, and I wanted the one that had the bathroom in it with the cargo hold where I could throw a football, and and I could sleep in the back, and that's the one I picked. I picked the KC-135. I like airplanes.
And you were flying that thing.
I was the navigator. I flew a Cessna and a Piper Warrior, but I never flew the KC-135. Maybe in the sim day. But I'd be like the mission commander where I would tell the guys where to go, and I would tell the receiver. So the reason why I wanted to be a tanker,
you were sitting shotgun basically, navigator.
Behind the co-pilot facing 90 degrees to the right, and I'm at the nav station. I have to do the air refueling mathematics for the receiver and for us. Does that make sense? So I have to do the weight for my aircraft and the receiving aircraft, which doesn't seem like a big deal when you're giving off 10,000 pounds to an F-18, but it is a huge deal when you're giving off 60,000 pounds to a B-2. Then all of a sudden your aircraft weighs differently, and you have to release fuel from your aircraft into that aircraft, but you have to do it evenly because you have fuel bladders in the wings, and then above the crew cargo compartment, and then below it. And so you have to make the whole thing work. And there's all the other thing where we could hold two different types of jet fuel at the same time, because an SR-71 took different fuel than a KC-135 did. But it was just math. I just loved it because it was quick math. I got into finance because of all the stuff I did with the Air Force, all the navigator stuff.
And how many years were you in it?
7 years and 7 days.
that is math right there. 7 years and 7 days. How many hours though?
I could probably figure that out. Yeah, man, that was good. I had about 700 hours total. About 500 were combat hours. Tanker navs get way more combat hours than like F-18 pilots, because those sorties are 2-3 hours. My sorties were 11 hours sometimes.
So interesting how you went from Air Force navigator, pilot, and now you're Vegas nightlife, relationships, red pill, Rolo, like
Isn't it funny?
That. It's it just shows that you constantly always have to recreate yourself, and you constantly always have to evolve.
Yeah.
So that's part of who you are. That's an element, a major component. But it's like the whole Al Bundy effect. If you're just still talking about I scored 4 touchdowns in high school. We all know those guys.
Yeah.
Back at Polk High, and that's something that I've learned from Pat is that I was only focusing on money for years.
Yeah.
And he's like, dude, you from fucking South Beach. You've been around celebrities, NBA players, Kardashians. You've been on all this. You own a night, a bar. Like you've been around all. It's like, why don't you incorporate relationships and all this into the money stuff? And what did I say? I was like, nah, I'm good, Pat. Like for 2 years, I'm like, nah, that's not my brand. I just want. And finally, he's like, Adam, you have to recreate yourself.
Do you know why?
That's what happened.
You know why I didn't want to do this was because RSD getting canceled. All those pickup companies.
Real social dynamic.
Yeah, all those companies that were teaching dating. So dating is something, if you have dating in your copy, you cannot sell that on Facebook. Yeah, it's crazy. But you weren't selling a product, but like that was one of the reasons why. It's like people were coming down so hard on that subject matter that I didn't really want to go in that direction at all.
Because of the pushback and the blowback, or getting canceled, or
because the situation that had happened. I won't say that. I'm not even going to dignify the dude and say his name, but the dude in Brazil, because of some of the things that he had done and been accused of, and then also the dude, and then also what happened with Julian Blanc and that whole situation. And I was hanging out with Owen all the time when that thing happened. And it wasn't that I was like upset about what they were doing, but I just saw the pushback. Adam Lyons was an executive at a Real Social Dynamics, and when he saw that Alex Jones was taken off the air, he contacted Owen Cook and said, "Hey, listen, you guys are going to have to change your content because they're going to cancel you." And Owen took all of the content. If you go on RSD's websites, there's no dating content anymore.
What is it now?
They're slowly creeping back. Trauma release, believe in yourself, Tony Robbins kind of
male
stuff.
self-improvement.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Well, you saw that the FBI came out with words that are illegal now or whatever.
Pill,
and red pill's one of them. It's like
crazy. Yeah, those words, when they see those words, they label those people as extremists. That's what the FBI said. But the thing, going back to what you were saying before, one of the things, so I work for Jason Strauss. I host one of his pageants here at Wet Republic, right? I have a relationship with Jason. And one of the things that's unique about Jason Strauss, and I'm sure you know about him, is that he is the leader of the company and the life of the party at the same time. Like you go wherever Jason's table is. Jason's table was table 51 at Marquee. Everyone wanted to be at Jason's table, and he was running the company at the same time. PBD is the same thing. To me, he is the leader of the company and the lead performer at the same time. And the reason why I bring that up is because he was in the 101st Airborne. When you are in the military, it is a constant study of leadership. Good leadership and bad leadership. That's why I make every one of my clients read all of Jocko Willick's books and all of David Goggins' books. David Goggins, at the end, he admits, is like, I push these guys too hard. Some of these SEALs didn't like me anymore. We were trying to maintain a level of physical fitness that was causing guys to get joint damage. Like, it was not helpful to what was going on. Whereas Jocko Willink is like, you need to take responsibility for everything that happens, even when it's not your fault. And I see that with PBD, which is like, and maybe you don't even recognize it, but like, I think his leadership qualities come from the fact that he was 101st.
Oh, no doubt. He's constantly talking about that. What I think, one of the things I always say, and I appreciate how you're using the Jason Strauss example, is the Phil Jackson, Michael Jordan analogy. He's the GM. He's the owner. Well, he's more of a Jerry Reinsdorf, if anything.
Yeah.
But also he's MJ. And I've seen, and when it comes to business strategy, business planning, he's literally MJ. Like, I sit there and I'm like, holy shit. People pay this guy 30, 50, 100 grand an hour to speak, whatever. Yeah. And I mean, just regular people. Not on stage, it's way more.
One of my sales trainers, one of the guys who trains my sales team, paid him $150,000
just to go speak,
just to go talk. No, just to go meet him. And I was like, he went to your office, and he was like, yeah. And then there's that girl who does the show, and the guy that does the show. And I was like, did you mean to say Jedediah Bila and Adam Sosnick? He didn't even know. He just went there to go see.
No, I know.
He just went there to go see. Pat.
So I'm so because I feel very fortunate. Like I'm. You know how, like, you see the reason the whole company went to go see Air, the Michael Jordan movie.
Incredible movie.
Incredible movie. And the whole company 2 years ago had to go see The Last Dance, right? So there's a lot of Michael Jordan, Chicago Bulls metaphor, going on there. But, he is MJ of business, and now he wants to become MJ of media. So here I am. Right. And I've made some money in my day. The first year that I worked with Valuetainment, he offered me a deal. I was like, I want $1. Like, I'm good.
Yeah.
Because I see how much people pay this man to be for an hour of his time. And I'm like, I get to sit next to this guy day in and day out, and I'm not going to charge him. And it literally got to the point where it's like, in our second year, he's like, Adam, I have to give you money. Like, you're not an indentured servant. Like you're not an intern.
He wants to write
You're a 40-year-old man. Like,
yeah, for
sure. I got to give you money. So now, like, the money's good, but it's the who you're around. Like, there's no amount of money that Jason Strauss could pay you to host an event.
I've learned so much from him.
Other than just being around the type of guy like that,
just watch
right?
it. Like, I've learned so much because there's 3 Harvard case studies on Noah Tepperberg and Jason Strauss. And I've learned so much from watching the way he motivates his people. And some people he's hard on and some people he's not. But, like, there's all these things he has to work around because he's in a place. There's another thing that you have to deal with in nightlife is, as a woke culture progresses, inside of a nightclub is about the least woke that you can get. Women act like women, men act like men use money and financial status in order to have a certain place, literally to lease real estate, a table.
Yeah.
To lease
which
real
is
estate.
Just real estate.
Which is just real estate.
Yes,
They're
correct.
leasing real estate for a certain amount of night, for a certain amount of time, and women have currency based on their physical attractiveness. The gender roles are so clearly defined inside of a nightlife space.
Wow.
And Jason and Noah have to go. Remember, we're at Harvard. We're like at Woke Central, and it's really funny because there were a couple of like landmines that they threw at him as questions, and it was just like watching these are not the droids you're looking for. It's like, why do women pay different prices to get into clubs than men? And I wanted to shout out, is like, because they're hot and we want more women, and men spend more money when there's hot women there. But they didn't say that, even though that's obviously the truth.
Right.
And so there's all those things.
It sucks that you can't even say that these days.
You can't. Not at Harvard. Not Harvard.
Why are there no guys drink free nights at clubs anymore?
There are. You go to Abbey, go to Pump in West Hollywood, you will drink for free.
All the gay guys.
Yeah,
exactly.
Sure. Yeah.
So, but if you want to go hang out with hot chicks, guys are kryptonite to clubs.
When I lived in LA, one of the things I told my friends is like, hey, sorry guys, I can't have guy friends. I can't park anywhere. I can't get into clubs with you.
Yeah.
I can't get comps. I can't get reservations at restaurants. I'm not allowed to have guy friends. I'm only allowed to have 20, 30 female friends go with me.
Here's where you and I can spend days just being completely aligned on these exact conversations because you've done it in Vegas. I've done it in South Beach for 2 decades now. And I had to learn the hard way because you're a guy's guy. I'm a guy's guy. Football, sports, military, partying, chicks, like that's very much who we are. We're very akin with that. But so when you're a guy's guy, you like hanging out with your buddies.
Yeah.
And then you go out in South Beach and you're 21 years old or 20 years old and you and your buddies want to go out to a club. You're like, you don't know any different. You're in college, you're broke as shit. And you and 4 buddies roll up to the front door of Liquid which was Chris Pacello's club, like the #1 club.
Or Mr. Jones.
Mr. Jones, Roman Jones Club, any of the clubs in South Beach, whether it's Grutman's Club and Live and Story, whatever it is. And you show up and you're so deeply offended that the door guy's like, why are you here? Like, what do you mean? Like, we're going to come in the club. He's like, no, like, are you buying a table? It's like, no, we're not. What do you mean buying a table? I broke. He's like, you're not coming in. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, we're locals. We're from Miami. Like, he's like, I don't give a fuck if you sleep on the street next door. I don't care how local you are. 5 broke college dudes are not coming in the club.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where I'm like, dude, I'll fight you right now. He's like, buddy, we are way bigger, tougher bouncers than you. But I had to learn that. Like, but 5 hot chicks, they walk right on.
Yeah.
You know this. I mean, this is zero breaking news right here. But I remember every guy has to have that epiphany. Be like, oh shit, like, okay, guys don't just get in for free. That's not how it works.
No.
You're going to have to buy a table, like all that.
The whole black pill community does not have that epiphany. Because their epiphany,
how is that possible?
Their epiphany is, if you don't have looks, money, status, then those women would never hang out with you in the first place. And I'm like, well, those things are easily obtainable. You can't make yourself hot. You can't make yourself taller or blue-eyed. But there's so many things. The proof, again, let's stick to the science. David Buss and Sidney Meston write a book. They're both professors at UT Austin. They write a book called Why Women Have Sex. In the book, they survey, I want to say 17,000 women. And a
small sample size, right?
Sample
There are
size.
17,000 women, right?
And in doing so, they come up with and it's anonymous reporting, which actually, by the way, is more accurate. It's anonymous reporting.
Of course.
And
because you're more likely to tell the truth if you're anonymous.
The girls straight up were like, I'm a whore. I fucked all these dudes. Like, they were very honest about it. In the book, they found 237 reasons why women claim that they had sex with men, which really means it's infinite reasons. For men, it's like 4. They were joking. If we wrote a book called Why Women
Big titties, fat ass, she's pretty, you know, and I was drunk. That was it. There it is.
Yeah, Dr. Buss said if we wrote a book called Why Men Have Sex, it would be a pamphlet.
Right.
We wrote a book called Why Women Have Sex. It's a 600-page book. Anyway, great book. I highly recommend people read it.
So what were the common reasons of the 237?
There's no common reasons. Here's the funny thing. It's because there weren't common reasons is the reason you can be short and balding and still date hot women, because there's other reasons. And the thing is, for men, it's what's called negative kurtosis, for women, it's called negative kurtosis, meaning there's more things under the standard deviation of reasons to be attracted. And for men, it's narrow. It's positive kurtosis. So it's just like Margot Robbie in Wolf of Wall Street. Everyone thought she was hot. Like nobody was like, well, Margot Robbie is like she's not my type. Everyone thought Margot Robbie was hot in that movie.
Yes.
No one, straight women thought she was hot in that movie, because we can objectively look and see signs of facial symmetry and signs of youth. Very clearly she was attractive. But if you were to say, is Post Malone hot? A lot of girls would be like, well, he acts very feminine and he has tattoos on his face. So no, I don't think Post Malone's hot at all. But then you'd ask, okay, what about Chris Hemsworth? And a lot of girls like, oh my God, he's so hot. And then you talk to some other girls like, yeah, I don't like white guys. Or I don't like, he's too big. Too big? Like, there's these weird things that happen where you and I would see a guy who's like a male stripper, like 6'3", good looking Australian guy with an accent. And you go, oh my God, this guy slays. But then you're going to see women that are like, yeah, I'm not into dudes who let that into their looks. Whereas we as men don't have that whole thing. So because there are so many different reasons, there's such a divergence of reasons why women are attracted, that means black pill isn't real. That means the whole concept behind it isn't real. What happens is the middle of the standard deviation is looks, money, status. So yes, do most women prefer taller guys to shorter ones? Yes. Better looking guys to ugly guys? Yes. Richer guys to poor guys? Yes. Most. In this, not even most, but this middle part of the standard, plus and minus 1 sigma. Outside of that, though, I have consistently seen guys get girls. Again, the extreme examples would be like Jeff Bezos, but like other examples where guys become famous actors, guitarists, performers, they become incredible public speakers. I'll just tell you right now, Graham Stephan is not a tall guy, right? He lives here. Graham Stephan is dating a very, very attractive woman, right? It's not uncommon. I have a buddy of mine, he's a real estate agent here. He's a bit chunky, a bit overweight, and the dude is dating a 10. And why is it? And you'd say, oh, is it because of money? He's like, no, I don't even take care of her. The reason why is because this man shows ambition and competency, which makes him attractive to women. That whole thing is so antithetical to black pill.
I know nothing about black pill other than that. No, I mean, I know about it other than the fact that they're just like, woe is me. Women, I hate women because I don't get any pussy. And, I should feel entitled to whatever I want, but it's unfair. I guess it's the essence of victim mentality.
Yes.
But the beautiful thing as a man, Tate talks about this when we did our interview, is like, you're born as a clean slate.
Yes.
And you can make whatever you want out of your life happen. That's the beauty of being a man. Who cares if you're short, if you're fat, if you're bald, whatever. It's like you can make money. You can go to the gym. You can learn. You can read. You can consume content. You can network. You can socialize. There's so many other things you can do to improve your status in life. And that should be encouraging for most men. This is essentially what you talk about in MOA. I watched an hour of your call yesterday.
Yeah.
Right. And I was like, all right. And me, I'm thinking, all right, cool. Like the one kid, he's kind of quiet. He should probably talk more. All right, cool. One kid, you're like, dude, you're at a 23. Like go to a 1. You know who the guy I'm talking about? It's like way too nerdy. But like you can improve your stature and your status in life as a man. And you know, I'm sure you're very familiar with this, the sexual market value charts that Rollo talks about, right?
Yes.
Not the chart where the age, but like the pie chart.
Yeah.
Where, you know, women, what they look for in a man, essentially reaffirming what you were saying, is that it's money, it's resources, and it's sort of an equal distribution of looks, status, personality, game, all that. Whereas what men look for in a woman, it's 80% beauty, 80%. And then there's 10% that is age, and age is basically part of beauty.
Like body count. So like that's one thing. So the 37 culture study that David Buss did, the first time he did it in 89, where they went through all these 37 cultures and they have nothing to do with each other. They like some of them had no Western radio, television, film, magazines, nothing. No connection to so you'd have one people that lived in the Amazon and another group of people lived in Papua New Guinea.
Completely
had nothing to do with each other.
Void of any sort of
communication whatsoever.
Got it.
Proving this wasn't cultural. They said all of them said men were more interested in casual sex than women. Obviously, for a man, we're not confused by this. All of them said that men in every one of these cultures, men were more interested in a woman's body count than women being interested in a man's body count. In all of these, there were a few cultures, like for instance, like Norway, they didn't care at all about a woman's virginity. In China, they did care, but men still did care more than women cared. And in several of those cultures, when a man was a virgin in his mid-20s, that was an awkward, weird thing for him. That was actually a low status symbol for a man.
That was the Steve Carell version of some Indian African tribe or whatever.
That's exactly right. So the thing is, but what is that unassailable proof of? That these things are genetic. They are not cultural. The most singular, most offensive thing about that book behind me, Evolutionary Psychology, is the concept that there are these things that are genetic and not cultural. Because what does that do? The people on the right don't like the idea of natural selection, and the people on the left don't like the idea of gender roles, which is why this whole thing gets pushed into this narrow place. And you don't see, other than Gad Saad, who's pretty far right wing, most of these guys kind of stay in the middle as far as politics are concerned. Satoshi Kanazawa, who's an evolutionary psychologist, he produced one study showing that African-American women have a harder time on dating apps than white women do. And he was just showing the numbers and was totally canceled. Lost his tenure, was kicked out for saying something that was actually true. It was crazy.
Where was his tenure?
I forgot where he was before, but now he's in London. And I asked him to come on the podcast, and he's like, dude, I love your podcast, but it's like, I can't come on. I was like, I'm going to get canceled.
And he was canceled because why?
Because he posted a study basically saying that because of basically, the study basically showed that African-American men actually have it easiest on dating apps and African-American women have it the hardest.
Gotcha.
And by showing these numbers, it got him into a lot of trouble.
Yeah, that's the exact opposite of what a DEI score is looking for these days, right?
Yeah. So you, let's go back a little bit further. You grew up in Miami and ended up a Seminole.
Yes.
Yeah, so how did that work? So what part of Miami did you grow up in?
In North Miami Beach area.
Got it.
Shout out to the NMB people out there. Who we be NMB, yeah. I was
How did your family end up in North Miami Beach?
So my dad is from Detroit. My mom is from Minneapolis. They moved down to Miami in the 70s. So I had family coming down, I think, in the, Jews, coming down from the Midwest and New York down to Miami. So I was always like the weird random cousin that lived in Miami in the 80s.
Yeah.
Think about it. Like in the 80s, Miami wasn't cool. In retrospect, we can look at it and be like, oh, Scarface, that was dope. It was like, no, it wasn't cool to live in Miami in the 80s at that point.
Yeah.
I was the weird, like awkward cousin. Like, why is he living in Miami? And then something happened, something changed in the mid 90s where maybe it was just because I was of age of now we're getting a driver's license and people are able to travel. All of a sudden, I wasn't the random weird cousin. It was like, that's the cousin you hit up when you want to go have a good time in Miami.
Yeah.
Mid 90s. So, people and friends were hitting me up. I grew up in Miami. I was always an athlete. I got My father had cerebral palsy. He was disabled. He was a disabled businessman, super sharp, mentally, physically. He was limited. My mom is like the sweetest, nicest, most caring woman, nurse. So that effect right there. And luckily, I was always very good at sports. I was just a very average middle income family, and I got a scholarship to like the most elite Miami private school, Miami Country Day. There's country days all over the country.
Yeah.
So I was an athlete, and I was all county in football, all county basketball.
Well, I imagine you were a guard in basketball. Would you play
basketball? I
football?
was a point guard. I was a receiver in football.
Okay.
And I got offers to different schools, Ivy League schools, but Ivy League schools don't give scholarships.
Yeah, they don't.
So I didn't have money. So I was thinking about going to Cornell. You used Gad Satt. That was his school. We reminisced about that when he was on the show. And I ended up going to this small school in North Carolina that gave a scholarship. And I was like, I fucking hate this school. And I transferred to Florida State, walked on, and Bobby Bowden was the coach at the time, the coaching staff. They're like, yeah, you're good enough to be on the practice squad. And I was like, all right, well, let me know where this ends up. He's like, where this ends up is you get the shit kicked out of you for 4 years. And maybe when you're a senior, you see, some game time. And I'm like, all right, so that's left. On the right, hot chicks, beer, fun, sun, Florida State University. I'm like, yeah, I'm going option B here.
Yeah.
And I never looked back. So, we had our intramurals fun. Our team would always win the intramural championships, and we'd have fun and do all that. But, it's college sports is not exactly all it's cracked up to be, unless you're going to unless you're getting a scholarship, or unless you're going pro with it. Then you end up like Al Bundy, like we talked about earlier.
It's exactly right, man.
So Florida State.
Well, they said there's a lot of 4.3s on the street. A lot of 4.3s out on the street, man.
Yeah, well, 4.3s don't make it to the league for a second.
Maybe, at least for a second, yeah. And then from that standpoint, you also talked about at that point you had never made more than $20,000 in a year.
No.
And you tried nightlife. You were a comedian.
Yeah.
And then you got into insurance. Can you go through that whole after college? What'd you go through?
So, I'm a big advocate of. Some people will say completely different, right? But I'm a big advocate of trying a bunch of different stuff, especially when you're young, right? So, I almost look at it as like you start wide and narrow it down. People are always deciding like, what should I do? What career? What should I do? It's like, well, why don't you start with what you definitely don't want to do? Yeah. And start eliminating like, I almost went to law school and I almost like freaked out on the LSATs. I'm like, this ain't for me. I'm out. Boom. All right. Med school. No, I don't like blood. That's not my deal. All right, cool. Sales. All right, cool. All right. I was selling airtime. I was working for Clear Channel, which is now iHeartMedia. I did that. All right, you can do this. It's fun, but can't really make a ton of money selling radio time at the time. All right, cool. Real estate. I don't really give a shit about. This lovely 3-3 is overlook. I just can't do it. It's like I tried out all these careers, and I was whittling it down. I knew I'd do something with sales, but the background was I was in nightlife. I was doing stand-up comedy. I worked for a sports agency. I was doing real estate. I was a teacher. Getting up and talking but I was making no money in all this. And finally, everyone has that aha moment when you're like, all right, I got to make some money. And it was a buddy of mine who was like the goofiest, wackiest, like not the most, not the smartest guy. Let's just say it like that. And he's like, yo, Saz, I made 70 grand. I was like, oh, you made 70 grand this year? He's like, no, I made it on this one deal in real estate. I was like, you made $70,000 on one deal, and this was in 2006. Yeah. So, I mean, still, you make 70 grand on one deal. Even today, it's a big deal. But back then, blew my fucking mind. I almost felt like use Wall Street, Wolf of Wall Street.
Wolf of Wall Street.
You show me a check for $70,000.
I come work for you.
I come work for you.
I come work for you. I quit my job right now. I come work for you.
And that's what I felt like.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy shit, if this guy's making 70 grand, I got to figure this out. And through sports connections, the sports agent that I was working for, he's like, yeah, the sports agency didn't work out, but my other buddy, he's starting another, University of Miami guys, he's starting another business. This is the life settlement business that I've been in for the last 17 years. He's like, well, you should talk to him and see what it's all about. And, I don't know if 85% of jobs are filled via networking. Yeah. I don't know if you knew that, but that sounds accurate. But so I knew the guy that knew the guy that was starting the company. He's like these hiring sales guys, And the way that these company was hiring sales guys, he's hired like 10 guys at a time.
Yeah.
And he paid them nothing. And you're a cold caller. Good luck out there, buddy. And I just said, hey, listen, I'm totally, like, I've never made money before. Just, I don't care how much money I'm going to make this year. How much money can I make if I stick this out? He's like, this year, don't plan on making shit, buddy. But if you stick this out, you can make it year 2.
This had to do with your book? Your book would grow? Your
Correct.
Book of sales? Okay,
yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Correct. He's like, if you can do this, you can make $100,000 and make it 6 figures if you stick it out. And then the sky's the limit from there. So I was like, all right, thank you for setting proper expectations. The worst thing you can do is like, hey, if you do this job, you'll be a millionaire next week. It's like, okay, like, am I going to jail if that happens? So my first year, cold calling, smiling and dialing, Wolf of Wall Street type shit, not illegal. I made $5,000 in a year, $5,000. And luckily I had friends that let me crash with them. And I was that dude for a year. And sure enough, second year came around, boom, made $100,000 and was off to the races. Except,
how often are you on the phone? How many? Doing $500 a day? Like what are you at?
It was just nonstop. I don't even know how many calls I was making each day because, you could make 20 calls in a day. That's because people actually answered and were picking up the phone. But a lot of what I was doing was people would call me, and the industry that I'm in, it's like, if you're familiar with reverse mortgages,
yes.
It's kind of like you can cash out your house and get a payment today. That's what it is. Or if you're familiar with like the J.G. Wentworth commercials, you ever see those, like, call J.G. Wentworth, all that stuff. It's that, but for life insurance. You can get a buyout of your life insurance today for a cash payment.
What happens to you when you now obtain the policy? Do you then get the payout when that person passes away?
Correct.
So what it feels like, I come from the stock option space, right? Feels like you're buying a put option on yourself. Meaning, if I go bankrupt or die, then I get the payout, which is what would happen if you bought a put option, right? And in put options, they expire, and same thing with these contracts. In fact, the whole option, the way the actuary tables work, which is the Black-Scholes model, which was created in 1992, or they won the Nobel Prize in 92. They created it back in the 70s. It's the formula for pricing warrants and options. It is 1-to-1 correlation with insurance. It's exactly the same way. Like, as your deductible decreases, your premium increases. As your deductible increases, your premium decreases. The further I am out of the money, the less I have to pay for the option. Right?
Gotcha.
That's how stock options work. So that's what it feels like. And then now, once I have the put option and I don't know if it's going to hit or not, I can now sell it to someone else, which is something you can do on TD Ameritrade or Tastyworks or whatever right now. That's what it feels like. Essentially what you're doing.
I've never heard that analogy, but it's actually pretty accurate.
But when you, like Edward Norton in Fight Club, given a long enough time period, everyone's life expectancy hits 0.
Correct.
So essentially that's why your business model works.
And that is the basis for our business, is that we base everything on life expectancy.
Yeah.
And that's the reason that, we basically broker between hedge funds and estate planners or their clients.
Yeah.
And we kind of play that middleman. We play that role. We don't really often buy and hold. That's not our strategy.
Yeah.
But all our clients, on one hand, are hedge funds, pension funds, that kind of stuff, institutional investors that are looking to acquire uncorrelated assets, not related to the stock market, real estate, options, none of that, just because it's life expectancy.
Yeah.
And on this side, it's high net worth individuals, clients, estate planners that are just looking to liquidate their estate, or even just an average guy with a $1 million policy.
I need the money now because I'm alive.
Exactly.
I won't need the money later when I'm dead.
One of the best things I try to describe is like, would you rather have $10 million when you're dead, or $5 million when you're alive?
Exactly.
And there's no right or wrong answer.
Well, the thing I can also imagine is a divorce rate might have something to do with this. When people are divorced and they...
Oh, yes.
And so now there's this money that they weren't going to leave to the wife that they previously had when they bought the policy. And so because of that, now getting the money up front is advantageous.
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's a million different reasons, but the dirty little secret insurance, without getting in the weeds here, I don't know how...
Go as far as you want.
Okay, I don't know what, if your audience really appreciates getting in depth on this kind of stuff like that, but the dirty little secret with life insurance is that 90% of life insurance policies never pay out. Okay, 90%. Well, we're in freaking Vegas, so you'll get this analogy. The house always wins.
Yeah.
So these insurance carriers, their names are on the biggest buildings in the world. Why? Because they're very rarely paying out because they build in what is known as lapse rates.
Yeah.
So, and that's for all policies: universal life, whole life, survivorship, index UL, VUL, everything. But when it comes to term policies, and there's term and there's perm, which is permanent. Term is like renting your house.
Yeah.
And permanent is like buying your house. It's the simplest way to put it. And it's as much as 98% of term. So my whole sales pitch to all these guys is, if you want your policy, need your policy, can afford your policy, want to leave money to your family, you should do that. Keep paying the premiums. That's what the whole insurance for.
Yeah.
But something tells me there's a 90% chance that you're going to be dropping your policy, because I'm just using the numbers.
Yeah.
Because you either can't afford it, don't need it, you're getting divorced, your wife has passed away, you're a key man policy, you're selling your business, Boli, Coley, whatever all this stuff is. So if you're just going to lapse your policy or surrender it, there's a better option. And it's kind of like, you don't just move out of your house. You don't just leave your house with the keys. You sell your house. You don't just leave your car on the side of the road.
Yeah.
You sell your car. It's essentially what your life insurance policy is. It's an ass.
That makes sense. Yeah. When you were explaining it, I'd never heard of that concept before, but yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Now when I started, back to your initial question, as far as how many calls I was making, it was such a new concept. And this was, early 2000s, mid 2000s, 2006 when I started, but it really became a thing in the early 2000s. Either people would be like, this sounds like a scam, don't call me again, click. It'd be like, what the fuck is this? And I'd have to spend an hour on the phone explaining, and they'll be like, thanks, yeah, it's not for me. And I'm like, I just spent an hour on the phone like this. Or people were like, all right, I can see why there's a benefit here, but I'm not comfortable. Call me back in 3 to 6 months. And the biggest, I always try to take these in the weed stories and give value to an audience. Yeah. Some of the guys that I'm doing the biggest deals with today, and I've been in the business 17 years, and I started calling on people in 2006, were the guys that told me, don't call me anymore. I'm not interested. It's not what I do. This is not for me. And I would always say, totally understand, John. Well, I appreciate your perspective. Do you mind if I follow up with you in 6 months? Adam, you know what? I don't see a reason for you to follow up. I don't see a reason why I'd be doing this, but you're a likable guy. I see you at the conferences. Sure, buddy. You never know. And 17 years later, I'm doing multi-million-dollar deals with some of these guys.
Yeah.
Cutting 6-figure commission checks each month. All because I was like, hey, man, I'll be in touch. And that's what happened.
It's really interesting because you can make a correlation to that in dating.
Sales and dating goes hand in hand.
Because it literally is like, you're 23, she's 23. She just graduated from college. She has no interest in you at all. And then all of a sudden you've done something awesome with your life. And she's like, hey, I missed you. And I'm like, you didn't have my number. Like, you missed me? It's been 10 years. I see the same thing. It's like down the line because you hold the course. Other people look back and they're like, I always knew you were going to make it. I'm like, you did not always know I was going to make it.
The only difference in that, Michael, and you'll appreciate that, is that, so that 23-year-old girl that didn't really pay you attention when you were 23, and next thing you know, you're 33, and she's 33, and she's like, oh, like, you look so good. You're so grown up. I hear there's all this success.
Yeah.
We should hang out sometime. I'm like, I'm actually going to go out hanging out with the 23-year-old.
Yes.
Okay. Because, no disrespect to you. Love you. You're great. But you didn't want me when I had nothing going on. Why would I give you the time of day now? And now I can show this 23-year-old girl the world. That everything you're doing with your girl these days. So there's an expiration date on some of these girls. That's why I'm a huge advocate. My best friends are going to probably get upset because they've all married a lot of the girls that they went to college with and have been with forever. But I think unless you don't fall in love with your high school, college sweetheart, all that, the best thing to do is kind of like what we're doing. Be in your late 30s, early 40s, become the best version of yourself. And then there's just the wide open sea of women out there that, you can show them the world rather than like, you've been on dates where a girl's like, yeah, I've already been to Aspen. Like, I've eaten at this restaurant. Right? It's like
you can just like literally see the creepy dude she was on a date with in Aspen. In your mind, you can literally see the fat, greasy guys she was on the boat with in Monaco. You can see them in your mind. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, you bought your own trip to Ibiza. You can literally see the fucking.
It's your own private jet that you were on, of course.
You can just like in your mind, you can see him. And then when you actually do see him, he looks just like what you thought. Like, you know what I'm saying? And so I agree with you. I remember it's and this is like a new industry now, right? Fresh and Fit, whatever podcast, your show, Access Vegas, or Pearly Things, where there's a panel of women.
Yeah.
And the women, inevitably, there is one woman in the group who, for some reason, is unsatisfied with her life. You and I know why, but she doesn't. And she says, I'm well-traveled. And I'm like, that's not what we want. We don't like that you're really, you went to South Padre Island every year while you were in Texas. Like, I know what people do in South Padre Island. I know why you ended up in Cabo. I understand what you were doing in Tulum. You did not buy those bottles. And if you did, then it's even worse because no one's going to believe that you didn't hook up with anyone for those situations. You see what I'm saying? And like, a lot of the girls don't grasp that. They legitimately are like, the dichotomy is this. I am so in favor of women if they want to pursue a career, 2 master's degrees, whatever, becoming a professor. If that's what that makes them happy, that's fine. The science is showing us that is not what's making them happy. But if they believe that that's what makes them happy, that's fine. What I have a problem with is then those same women come back and they're like, where's my man? Why didn't God send me the man that I was supposed to get? And then you explain to them, the fact that you're well-traveled and the fact that you have multiple master's degrees and make a lot of money doesn't make our penis harder for you. Like, I have to say it like that, because I want to be physiological with them, specific. I'm like, is it cool? Do I have a bunch of female friends that like have multiple degrees and are super funny and host their own podcasts? I love hanging out with them. I don't want to date them, and it's hard for them to grasp that. And then they think that that's unfair. And the contrapositive is also unfair. The guy who's super nerdy, who is terrible with women, who thinks that he's going to think his way into dating a girl, and then the thing that Elon Musk posts where it is more likely for a guy who has a retarded IQ under the age, that's their words, an IQ under 80 to get laid than a guy who's over an IQ over 130. An IQ over 130 actually hurts you with women. An IQ under 80 helps you with women. And see how unfair that is now. Oh, wait, I thought I was super smart and I was just going to get the girl. And why is she sleeping with Brock the bartender? It's because Brock doesn't give a fuck. He just goes to the gym. He gets tattoos. He gives you a drink. He's up all night. He's fun. He's down to party. He dances. He just does fun stuff, and he's good in bed. You imagine that he's good in bed because all this vibe that you get. And so you look at that and you're like, oh, you understand both sides are coping. Both sides are coping when it comes to this whole thing. But yeah, the number of women now that are coming out on these shows, and the other thing that just really blows my mind, not so much in yours, because you don't really do a gotcha show, is the number of people who go on like Fresh and Fit or whatever, or even our show, and like they've got 1 million subs, 4 million subs, and the girls go on there and they take the same L week after week. Bro, if you or I went on a show, if you went on Joe Rogan, would you not research a little bit?
You have to.
Bro, if I go on PBD's podcast, do you understand? I'm doing 20 hours minimum of baseline study over the course of 3 weeks. And these girls are going on there and they're basically taking on Myron, who's
a skillfully trained debater. Like, writes books, reads books on this, and they think he's gonna come up with something that he's never thought of before.
You're invading Russia in the winter. That's what you're doing. You're going onto Myron's show thinking that you're gonna call him out. And I just watch these girls take L at week after week, the same L, and I'm like, I would never do that. If I was gonna go on like Jedediah Bila, I'm going on her show on the 17th. When I go on there, I'm gonna watch a ton of her stuff, and I'm going to have. We're not there to debate, but I'm gonna have counters. Because I'm going to at least do my research. I can't imagine being so pretty that I felt that it was unaccountable to go on a show with 1 million subs, 1 million or 4 million subs, and do no research before I went on there. That is bonkers to me. I get it for like me and Rolo, Access Vegas, like a couple 100,000 subs, but like 1 million subs and you're going to do that. It's just crazy to me that girls are doing this.
I think it's part of it is, and you and I think are unique in that, like, we're friends with women. I get along with women. I don't hate women. I'm not a misogynist. That's so not my vibe. But at the same time, you can kind of speak truth to power, right? And what's the power? It's the power of the P that they have. And that they're so used to just showing up, being hot, and the world give it to them on a platter. And they're used to that. It's like, so for me to show up, it's like, all right, I need to, whatever podcast, all right, okay, I hear my talking points. Here's what I know when I talk. I know what Michael stands for. I'm going to do my research, everything you're talking about. Whereas a girl just, I'm just going to show up.
She shows up and she believes that because she feels like her position is correct, therefore it is correct.
But think about it in real life. Forget about podcasts. All right, let's say you're taking a girl on a date, right? It's the girl's job to do what? Show up and be pretty. That's her job, right? And if she acts sweet and nice, that's a bonus, that's a benefit. The guy has to plan it out. He has to, all right, strategize. Here's where I'm going first. I got to pay the check. I got to realize what restaurant. All right, cool. We can't get in there. All right, so I'm going to go to this restaurant. I'm going to pick her up. After dinner, we're going to go meet up with my friends because I know he's running the door at this place. Cool, we'll do that. We'll get a drink there. What's my budget for the night? All right, cool. I'm down to spend $500, whatever it is. All right, from there, we're going to go to this place. I got to get her back to my place. What's my life? Like, there's so much strategy. for a guy just to go on one date, whereas a girl's just like, yeah, I wore a dress and put on makeup.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what you're saying with the podcast is Myron, yourself, myself had to put in 20 years of work to even have a fucking podcast.
Yeah.
Keep in mind. And a girl that just comes on your podcast, why is she on your podcast? Because she has a PhD and something? No, because she's got big old titties and she wants to talk about something. It's totally different. And this goes back to the club analogy that we're talking about earlier. For a guy to buy a table at the club, he had to work, put in everything, or the girl just gets it for free.
Yeah, the difficulty of getting into that Ignite party on that yacht or to that dance floor table is so much. The journey is so different for a man than it is for a woman. It's so completely different. Yeah, I mean, it's. I don't have the luxury as a man of believing in astrology, numerology. I don't have the luxury of believing in like energy. I heard some girls on your show the other day. I was like, yeah, when it comes to guys, I just believe in energy. And I was like, we could do a scientific experiment where you go with your gut, and I will promise you, I'll bet you $100 million you are no better than chance. That you anytime that, of course, they've done studies that show when people get married based on their astrological signs, the likelihood of divorce is exactly the same as if they don't, because there is no truth in astrology. Absolutely. Well, there is no evidence for it.
Well, I know this is something you care deeply about. It's I don't even get into the astrology thing. I call it horoscopes. You see what I'm saying? Like but when a girl goes, "What's your sign?" I'll always give the wrong sign.
Yeah.
They're like Sagittarius, and I'm an Aquarius. They're like Sagittarius, like I'm on to you already, buddy. I'm like, yeah, you know how we roll. It's Sages. And then I'll wait, if I hang out with a girl and for a few hours that night, whatever, I'm like, just so you know, I'm not a Sagittarius. She's like, I had it all wrong. I'm like, the whole thing's nonsense. Yeah. That you're basing this entire interaction on a time and place and date of when I was maybe born.
Well, they're not even thinking about it to that effect. It's like their whole reality is based on feelings. Not all women, not all the time, but so frequently that happens. And one of the things is when I hear women talk about a patriarchy, one of the things that I always bring up is like, do you understand? It's like an order of magnitude more women that believe in astrology than men. If I were to go into the corporate environment and try to say, listen, we need to go ahead and pump up advertisement because the age of Aquarius is starting, I would be laughed out of the room. And then you ask why women aren't taken as seriously in some of these endeavors. Mm-hmm. I know that if I had a sales trainer who and she was female and she brought up anything to do with astrology or numerology, I would fire her. I would have to. There's no way I could deal, because I know that's not true. And we're men. We have to win or we die. We don't have that option of doing this nonsense. I'm not going to stay afloat because I'm pretty. And so when you see that type of situation, you just realize like, and I say this because I have some friends of mine who are hardcore feminists, and I'm like, but you believe in astrology. Do you understand how difficult it is if I want to take you seriously? And like, let's say, for instance, there's a group of purple people. We'll just throw out a race of purple people. And the purple people are like, we don't have enough people in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So you're like, okay, we'll set you guys up. We'll set up programs and give you grants so you can do science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And day one, they're like, Scientology and the earth is flat. You're like, wait a second. You wanted to do STEM, but you don't believe in physics and objective reality. Why would we hire you? Until you do the same thing with women. They're like, we want to be taken more seriously in engineering and medicine and in a corporate environment. And they're like, but you believe in the 5 love languages. You believe in the manifestation that happens from The Secret. You believe in men are from Mars, women from Venus. You believe in, hokum like numerology and astrology. How do we hire you? And I'm not trying to say this to complain. I'm like, legitimately, how can we work together when you don't have a grasp of objective reality? What am I supposed to do here? You see what I'm saying? I'm not racist. I'm not bigoted against you. I just don't know how to do this if you don't believe in reality.
Michael, there's a lot of purple people out there that are coming after you.
Purple people coming after me.
You're about to get canceled by the purple propaganda people out there, bro.
Yeah.
But back to one thing that you said, because I think that we can stay on this subject for a while, but I know we'll move on. But I had a girl on my show recently about, what the difference between men and women. She's like, well, I have 3 passports. I was like, so not only have you traveled a ton, you've traveled 3 times more than the average person. And you think a guy is going to be like, tell me about all the countries and all the dudes you banged in all these different cities. Please tell me more. It's such a bigger turn on when a girl's like, oh, I've never been to Vegas. I would love to go. Oh, I've never been to Tulum. I've never been to Europe. Oh my God. Like, wow. Would you like guys like, I'm sure there's a scientific component with this. Like guys like exploring, like being the first person that a girl to explore something.
Explore new land. Well, I want to be Christopher Columbus. Yeah.
With a woman.
Yeah.
100%. Where it's like, what's the exact opposite of that? It's like the girl who's been all over the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, and you're like, listen, now you want to come on my boat? It's like, I'm good.
There's a host in Miami that I hang out with whenever I'm there. She's female. She's in her 40s. She's a former fitness pro, bodybuilder. And we go out, and it's like Daryl Johnston in front of fucking Emmett Smith. She just like, I walk effortlessly in any club when I just follow her in. And in doing so, she like kisses every host on the cheek, but like in this seductive way. And I'm like, girl, no, like you can just tell like that's how she's there. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying she slept with all of them, but they all think they had a shot. Yeah. And that's not attractive. Even though I love hanging out with her, that's not attractive. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
That's the problem that happens. And I have something like CJ Sparks. She came on here. She's like, yeah, I'm 38 years old and I want a guy who makes $5 million a year. And I'm like, not only is that delusional, I just don't know that if I heard a woman say that, and I made $5 million a year, that I'd even want to be with her. You know what I'm saying? That's the issue. That's what ends up happening. So
you and I are both alike in that I think our main mission is to help men. Am I wrong with that?
My main mission is to help men and women. As far as women, so here, I'll explain it like this. I don't think the calling them 304s helps them, the women.
I agree.
I think like placing the statistics in front of them and then letting them know, and then as they get older, maybe coming to some realization, has made a change in some. Rebecca Barrett, great example. Okay,
yeah.
Rebecca Barrett seeing it all over and over again. Rebecca Barrett comes to a different realization and changes her life because of it, and now she's got a kid and another one on the way. I think. Yeah.
They're working on it.
Happily married. Okay.
Yes.
So you can, but it's harder with women. Also, women are not going to buy your self-help program. They're not. Self-help is 99%, unless we're talking about real estate. There's a few caveats. 99% of self-help is men. So I was trying to help men. It's a little easier to help men because they'll listen when you put them in a room and you're like, hey, my girl cheated on me. My girl cheated on me. There's like 10 dudes. And like, you hear how our stories sound exactly like your story. The dude can kind of wake up out of it. I just don't find the same thing to happen with women in general. I find that my female friends are like, Michael, you give me the best advice. And I'm like, cool. Why'd you go back to the dude then? Like that you're complaining about. And so that's my whole thing is men and women, but it's men just tend to take the advice way better.
Fully agree. Yeah. And the question that I was going to kind of pose to you is I agree. I think helping women as a byproduct will be served better because women want men who have their shit together and have their money together and have their looks together and have their fitness together and have their game together. Of course, so that helps men. And as a byproduct, those men will get more women and more women like that. It's great. But I've also found myself, because I think you and I are unique in this regard versus some of the other podcasts that you've mentioned, right? Where it's essentially, to use Rollo's term, intersexual dynamics, having men and women on a panel, having a conversation and genuinely hearing different perspectives. But here's what I was going to say is, like you're going to go on the Whatever podcast pretty soon. I think the guys do a great job. Shout out to those guys. Those guys are in Santa Barbara. They're dealing with college-age women. So in their early 20s, sometimes even teenagers, right? Sometimes a little bit older. Fresh and Fit, an array of different women, but mostly I would assume in their 20s.
I will say this about Fresh and Fit. It's not their issue at all. They have to source 9 to 11 girls 3 nights a week. They're doing better than I would. I do 10 girls every 2 weeks. They do 10 girls 3 times a week.
It's so complicated.
The fact that they even get the girls they get. So what does that select for? It selects for girls who want OnlyFans subscribers and Instagram followers. And so it balances more in that area. Does that make sense?
100%.
I try to have girls I tried every episode. I try to at least have one girl with a master's and one girl who's married on every episode. Because I'm always going to have getting OnlyFans. If you wanted to get 10 OnlyFans girls to come on your show every week, it would be a joke. It's so easy because they want attention.
Of course.
But getting the married girl or getting like the guy who owns the studio, John Orlando, his girlfriend came on the show. She no OnlyFans. You know what I'm saying? She's a cocktail server over at Wet Republic, really pretty, but that's not what she was here for. She's here for a good discussion, and she's in a committed relationship with a guy. So I want to give a different demographic. The only difference with my demographic is the girls are all models. Like they all are
they're all hot.
They're all really attractive.
Well, I mean, that's like a nightclub, Yeah. Well, here's my question for you. I guess more my statement, but I kind of wanted to get your opinion on this. So I gave you the Whatever example, Fresh and Fit example. But those guys are younger. Yeah. Like Myron's in his early 30s, maybe Fresh is, we're in our early 40s.
Yeah.
The Whatever podcast is in their probably assume the mid 20s, whatever they are. The angle that our perspective is I know women in their late 30s, early 40s who were the hottest girls in high school, the hottest girls in college, they're not currently 24 doing OnlyFans. They're 42 and they're successful in real estate.
Yeah.
And I have genuine conversations with these girls.
Agreed.
And I'll never forget, on my 40th birthday, a guy comes up, my boy Miguel. He's like, yo, what up, Adam? Happy birthday. It's a couple of years ago, right? 2 years ago. Yo, you're 40, dog. You're killing it. You got money. You got chicks, this party, this club, this bar. It's like, you're the man. Like, he's that dude, right? Hyping me up. He goes, oh, shit, over there. Is that Laura from high school? I'm like, yeah. He's like, what's up with her? And I'm like, oh, well, you know, she's just, he's like, she married, she kids? I'm like, no, nothing. And he goes, man, that sucks for Laura. And I was just like, but here he is hyping me up.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you're the man, you got this. And it was like, and I was like, and this is before I've learned about red pill and blue pill. This is more just being in life. And I was like, oh shit, there's definitely a difference between a man at 40 and a woman at 40, especially if they have their shit together. So my question for you is, you know, did you see how Chelsea Handler reacted to a video of mine, which went like crazy viral? She's 48, waking up every day, popping pills, drinking vodka.
Yeah.
This question stemmed from me being like, all right, I know you want to help men, but as a byproduct, help women. I just think, you know, we talked about this the other night, that there's the Chelsea Handlers of the world, or the Jennifer Aniston's out of the world that never get married, or did get married briefly, but never had kids, and they're kind of advocating for that.
The supply and demand curve never met with Anderson.
Just because she was so hot.
Yes. What's hot and exclusive. Like the guy of her dreams can't get into the Oscars party she's at. That's the reason why.
But my point is, these are anomalies. These are the 1% of the 1%. Correct. My concern, and this is the 99% of women that are not Chelsea Handler or Jennifer Aniston that are buying this feminist garbage of like, get your money, girl.
Let's say Cardi B.
Okay, well, she's had kids, and you know she's
Megan Thee Stallion.
Okay,
but what they're saying and what they're doing.
Yeah,
I fuck them and I get the money. By the way, it should be the other way around. But again, yeah.
And a lot of these women are gonna have epiphany phase, but because, just to be very clear here, because we're dealing sometimes with older women in their 30s and even in their 40s, not college age girls, not young OnlyFans girls. We've seen the unhappy ending for a lot of these women.
Yes.
Or the trajectory for this unhappy ending.
Yeah.
And as guys that actually genuinely get along with women and want to see the best for women, I think this Chelsea Handler business model for women is just going to have very negative outcomes.
Yeah, there's a couple problems. I've read, I read everything. I've read 2 of Chelsea's books.
You've read Chelsea's books?
Yeah, I think she's maybe a narcissist. And I'm not trying to say that to be arrogant. I just think for her type of personality, like that's the only way it was going to work for her. She genuinely thinks she's right because she feels like she's right.
Okay.
Guys, I read everything. I read the whole 50 Shades of Grey nonsense. There's nothing I won't read.
By the way, do you read audio or do you actually read books?
For that one was audio. She read the audiobook, and I was bored, and I was deployed in the Middle East, and I saw her do some funny stand-up, and I was like, I'll read this.
But for the majority of your books, do you do audio or do you actually read them?
Right now it's probably 2/3 audio.
Gotcha.
Like Bilzerian's book is only.
And you do it on 2x speed, or what do you do?
3.5 sometimes.
3.5?
Yeah,
dude, you're just minded.
You can train yourself to do that. Yeah, wow. It depends on how slow the guy's talking. Like John Lee, you can do 3.5. George Guidall probably not. It depends on who the reader is.
You cannot do Ben Shapiro on anything more than 1.0.
Of course not. Well, you could do 1.7. Yeah.
But you read the book, so go ahead.
So Chelsea Handler, I think. So she's such an anomaly. I'm not really sure. I'm not prescribing that this woman is a narcissist. I'm just saying she tends to have these tendencies. One of the issues is it's very similar. We'll use Lana Rhoades and Mia Khalifa. Actually, let's use this example. Talking your book. You know this from finance, right? Elon Musk says, you know what's great? Tesla's great. You guys should buy Tesla. He says it on Twitter. Tesla stocks goes up. Now, some people would call that stock manipulation, but it doesn't matter. What that's called is talking your book. He likes Tesla. There might be actual reasons to like Tesla, but that's not why he's saying it. He's saying it because he owns it.
Of course.
Makes sense?
Marketing.
But it's talking your book. It's a bias. It's cognitive bias. Mia Khalifa, if you were to say to her when she was in her early 20s, should men date younger women? She might have had a different answer than she does now, which is no, men should not date younger women. And when they do, it's because they have a mental disorder.
Is that what she says?
Mia Khalifa said that they're severely lacking in something in their life. Right. And I'm like, yes, they're severely lacking younger women. That's why they're dating them. But for
millennium, thousands and thousands of years, men have always liked young, beautiful women.
Again, my point
Why is that a problem now?
My point is, Lana Rhoades and Mia Khalifa were young and did not have an issue with this. Now that they are older, now that they're saying that you should not date younger women, you should date older women because they are older women. They are talking their book. You understand what I'm saying?
Got it.
It's just like Jerry Jones. You know what the greatest? It's the Dallas Cowboys. It's the greatest team in the whole world. Because you own the Dallas Cowboys.
Of course.
So what these people, you'll see this often with women. They'll own their book. Again, Joy Behar, Whoopi Goldberg. When are men going to step up and start becoming fathers to these women, these single mothers? When are you going to step? Again, these women tend to be older, and they're talking their book. They're older women that are no longer part of the sexual marketplace that they were when they were 23. When you talk to the women when they're 23, and you're like, should rich, successful men date you? What do you think these women say? Of course they should date me. Of course. So it's like one of these things where you have this epiphany, but I'm not going to have it with you. Very little offends me on the planet. The only thing one of the things that offended me was the Sheryl Sandberg quote, which is like, date all of them. Date all the bad boys, the crazy guys, the fun guys, or whatever. But in the end, find a man who's sexy when he takes out the trash. In the end, you won't think he's attractive, but finally, like, whatever. Basically, the whole thing was, hey, beta cucks, wait for me to fuck all these dudes. And then at the end, it's your turn, and then I'll marry you while you take out the trash.
That's Sheryl Sandberg's quote?
Sheryl Sandberg made the quote.
CEO of Facebook?
Yeah.
Wow.
Unbelievable quote. It's in Rollo's book. So look up the quote. And it's basically like, date all of them. But
which book? Which one?
Leaning In.
Okay.
And at the end, I was like, that's so, like, I can't imagine being a man and just like having a girlfriend tell me all the wild things she did with other dudes and threesomes and all this kind of stuff, but she wouldn't do that with me. Or like, I would never be in a relationship like that. And I just think of the thousands of men like that would settle for what Sheryl Sandberg was talking about. That is offensive. Mm-hmm. Fuck that. I'm not going to fucking wait while you run through all these dudes. I'm not going to wait. Sorry. Yeah. That's not my prerogative as a man.
Do you think that advice is way more applicable for a man though? Like her advice of date this guy, if you take that advice for a guy,
because our psychology,
date this girl, date that girl, a tall girl, short girl, fat girl, this girl, that girl, all that. I think a guy completely should.
It's a great segue to my next point. So for a man, what we said before, men are more interested in a woman's body count than vice versa. When you did the thing with the model volleyball, and you asked the girl, what if he had 500 body count? And the girl said, some of the girls said, I just wouldn't want to know.
Right.
The reality
or pass is pass.
Pass is pass. And the reality is most women, if they found out their dude had a 500 body count and she was in love, would not leave him. Very, very few women. If she was dating a guy who took care of her, made her happy, did not have any STDs, and she found out later he had a 500 body count, she would not leave him. Most men, you heard my thing about there's 3 genders: high status men, low status men, and women. High status men, if they found out their girlfriend had a 500 body count, they would leave. Yeah. Low status men would not. They would stay. And
there's 3 genders: high status men, low status men, and just women.
And women. Because here's the thing: high status women and low status women have the same neurology. Like they have the same. I want women to explore. Like you don't see the young. Okay, the best example: the girl who's a 10 who says, I want a guy who's 6 feet tall and makes 6 figures. But you also meet the girl who's a 2 who also says, I want the guy. That's why I'm saying there's not 2 genders of women. It's high status men, high status women. I'm sorry, high status men, low status men, and women. Because women tend to fall in a more similar psychological profile, whereas high status men have nothing to do with low status men. High status men have an abundance mentality. They have 100 times more options than low status men. They have like you were talking about PBD when he had a business plan. PBD makes money and knows he can make more money. Yeah. Low status men don't think that way.
Correct.
They sit there. High status men don't need to show off their wealth all the time. Low status men show off wealth by taking on debt that they don't even things they can't even afford, right? So there's just these 2 mentalities that exist. Whereas I don't find the dichotomy of mentalities with women. I tend to find kind of the same mentality.
Do you think that
it's just energy? I just liked him because it was energy and it was fun and we flowed but this nonsense that isn't true.
For men, do you think that there's, like, I guess, what percentage of men would you deem high status, who are average, and then who are low status? Like the whole stat of 1/3 of men haven't had sex.
Let's use a normal distribution. Yeah. The normal distribution would be, I'd say 16% of men are high status.
16%.
Because that's outside of one standard deviation. So 68.27% is in the middle standard deviation, and you have 16% on each side. So the bottom view, these guys have no chance. This bottom 16.
That's what? How many? That's 16%. Okay, gotcha.
Bottom 16%, which is outside of one standard deviation. Then you have the middle 2 standard deviations, which is 68.27. So 68 plus 16 equals 84, I think, yes. So the top 16%, and you're going to find this in real estate agents, something like 86% of real estate people who have real estate agents have never sold a house.
Yeah, some crazy number.
This normal distribution from central limit theorem in statistics, you're going to find that it applies to everything. In this case, I do believe it's about 16% of men that have outrageous options, and these other men are like, listen, if you got married, we're going to get to Steven Crowder. If you're in the Steven Crowder thing where you got married very young, you're not in relationship poverty. You're not in sex poverty. You have one wife and kids and you're happy. That's fine. But I think that puts you in like sort of the third quartile. And then there's a group of men who are like kind of good with women, been with a couple of women, but sort of settle. And then there's this top 16% of men that are like, these are my boundaries. If you don't meet my boundaries, absolutely positively, I'm not going to date you. You're for recreational use only. And then there's this bottom 16% of men that are YouTube commenters, Twitter commenters, commenters on TikTok. Those people that have the anonymous face, like
they're the worst people on
face
earth.
Of a monkey. Like ready? You want the quote that's going to get me banned? Here it is. Child molesters, YouTube commenters.
They're below it.
They're below them. They're below them. The anonymous YouTube commenters and dudes on Twitter are the worst human beings.
What's the correlation there? Are they just losers? They got nothing going on. They're just haters. What is it?
But the thing is, I've met guys who were losers and had nothing going on, and then when you tried to help them, they thanked you. These guys are even worse. You try to help them and they cuss you out. And the fact that you exist is an anathema to them. They hate your existence. Again, the black pill doomers, like that's why they're worse. That's why they're because
what's their prospects of life? Like what do they do for work? Where do they live? Like how young are they? Are they 18 and just like losers?
Yeah, are
they 30 and just have never gotten any pussy? Like who are these people?
So I would say at some point in life, there was a, what's it called? A victim mentality instilled on them, maybe by their parents. Maybe it was like a communication style and also a style to like not give themselves permission. And they do this over and over again. And then it gets to the point where like they let their physical health go. And by the way, it may be an additional genetic factor. Maybe
this is why they don't turn the cameras on every time.
Correct. They never turn the
I
cameras
watched
on.
the show for an hour yesterday. I'm like, you're like, just turn the camera on, guy. Turn the camera on. They don't.
There's so many unattractive dudes who turn the camera on my show. It's not being unattractive. It's that you don't want to be seen and exposed for what you are. Often still living with parents, often massive amounts of debt, often conspiracy theories that, again, one of the things that I really didn't like about numerology is there's one study that shows that people who believe in astrology and numerology tend to feel that they don't have control in their life. There's a direct correlation between a lack of control and a lack of money. If you make enough money, if I have $500,000 that I make in a year, I may have some trouble with the DMV, and I may have gotten a ticket over here, and I may have to do stuff with my mortgage. But I got $500,000 a year. I'm just gonna bulldoze it with money. Mm-hmm. I have control over my life if I make enough money. The people who feel like they don't have control over their life, they're in debt and they make next to nothing.
Options. It comes down to options.
So the what I found was detrimental is these numerologists and astrologers were sitting there taking advantage of poor people. That's what's really sad about it. The lottery does not take advantage of the middle class. The lottery does not take advantage of the wealthy. The lottery almost exclusively takes advantage of poor people who do not have a fundamental understanding of statistics. That's the problem.
But if they do win, there's what ridiculous amount ended up getting broken.
End up getting broke. Yeah, well, same thing happened with NBA players for a long time because that was kind of like winning the genetic lottery is playing in the NBA. Yeah. Only 5,000 people have ever played in the NBA. So
these guys, because I was so fascinated because I watched. Yeah. Jenny, I was at a happy hour, but I'm like holding the phone. This was yesterday. Do you think they have friends?
Yeah, they have friends, but did you see the one post about the incel who got a girlfriend and all his friends called him a traitor? Have you seen this? No. You look it up, like Google it. So basically he was a traitor because he decided to not be an incel because he actually learned that there was some level of truth. So I want you to consider this, right? Imagine that you're a hardcore anti-vaxxer. And there's a guy who goes off and gets a vaccine. By the way, DeSantis, the governor of Florida, is triple vaccinated, and Trump is vaccinated. So I'm really curious to see how that goes as far as the voting goes with that. But let's just say there's somebody who gets vaccinated, and they get vaccinated, and then you don't get vaccinated because you read all the stuff about RFK coming back, and you read Reddit posts, and you're always on 4chan websites. You do that for a while, and the guy who got vaccinated ends up getting a new bench press max, dating a perfect 10 girl, and starting an 8 or 9 figure business, and then you are living in your mom's basement. Your narrative was the vaccine was going to make him dumber or kill him, and your narrative was you're holistic and care about your health, even though you're fat, eating ho-hos, and like drinking Four Loko. The problem is now there's this dissonance. You made the wrong decision. He's doing better than you, and he did the thing you said to not do. So now it's time to attack him incessantly. You understand what I'm saying?
Of course.
So that's
when in reality it had nothing to do with the vax. It was all just a cope, basically.
It was just totally a cope. Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the same type of situation. If somebody hates you and you become more successful, they become more hateful. Those people who, the doomsday cults, July 21st, 2012. I think that was one of them. And then there was one Y2K, right? Those doomsday cults, when the time came and went, there was always media members there. They wanted to interview them because they wanted to see the level of cognitive dissonance that would happen after the aliens didn't show up and then they didn't disappear. In every case, the people in the doomsday cult, all they did was say, no, I'm more convinced that the world's going to end. It is. It's just there was something weird with the signs. Gary, the numbers guy, comes on here. He goes, Trump is going to win the 2020 election. When he doesn't win the election, he goes, well, because the election was stolen. I was like, well, numerology should have accounted for the election being stolen. They're more, even when they're wrong.
Same with QAnon.
Yeah, QAnon, exactly. They're more, even when they're wrong, even when Q is wrong, they're more convinced that Q is real. And what happened is there's this Zionist cult that has come out and destroyed Q or taken Q. And it's just like, my God, bro. But here's the thing. As long as Q's out there, and as long as the Illuminati's out there, as long as the Rothschilds are out there, as long as these things happen, as long as Adam Sosnick is lying and he's a fraud, and Michael Sartain is down low, he's a pimp on steroids, whatever cope they have to make up. In the end, that absolves them of personal responsibility.
I was just going to go there.
For their own action.
100%.
And it's, Owen Cook had the best way of saying it. He goes, victimhood is a warm blanket that you get to put around you. You get to lay in this warm blanket of victimhood. It's so comfortable to recognize that you're on your couch not doing anything with your life because the Illuminati, because George Soros eats babies. That's the reason why you have not made anything in your life. And so when you ask about those people, those are the people.
Yeah.
Generally, if you want to say what is the most pervasive thing, it's passive-aggressive behavior and it's a victim mentality. Passive-aggressive in that you're talking shit about me on a Twitter account where I can't even see your face and you're hiding it. Even though my Twitter, you guys want to check it out? It's Michael Sartain, my name with my fucking face on it. Yeah, and so I
can't believe you give people your address, like your home address.
Yeah, fuck those guys. They can come by, dude. Let me tell you something. I'm just like Myron. I don't miss. You're more than welcome to come by. That's the thing, like with this situation is that, man, you don't know how badly I would want one of these YouTube assholes to come by my place. I would meet him in the lobby and slap the shit out of him and film it. And I would post it on there. And I'd be like, dealing with YouTube troll.
But they never will.
Of course they won't. That's the point.
Let me ask you, because going down this this negative rabbit hole, these black pill doomers, these haters.
Black pill is one of them, but in general, they're just scummy humans. just
scummy humans. I would just put them in like just loser category, whatever
We can
trolls,
we can throw the anti-Zionists in there, the white nationalists. They're all
victims.
Correct.
At the end of the day, I think we believe in personal responsibility. Accounting for yourself, personal finance. No one's coming to save you.
Yes.
That mentality.
No, Q was coming to save you. Trump was coming to save
correct.
you. John F. Kennedy Jr. was going to come save you. Do you remember? That's who was going to come fucking save you.
Yeah.
And he didn't show up, but you still believe. That's the problem.
It's so hard to look in the mirror and be like, no, I need to save myself.
Yes.
Let me ask you, we all have the lowest point in our life where you had to make a change.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so for me, and I want to hear yours, for me, it was after I got out of nightlife.
Yeah.
Got into finance. I was sitting making cold calls every day. I'd only made $5,000 that year. I had gained 40 pounds, right? And I played football. I mean, you're 6'1", you're a pretty big guy. Like I'm 6 foot. Like we're pretty, you're bigger than me, but like we got some size. We're not small dudes, but 240 and not like a strong 240. Like I gained weight, like a wide receiver, like an Allen Iverson who was 180 when he played, 160 maybe.
He got big.
And he got, like not the good kind of weight. But, I was 40 pounds overweight. I'm 200 pounds. I was starting to thin on my hair. I was like, all right, I got to get some Rogaine. I was broke as shit. The point, and I asked this to Justin Waller. I go, it's so easy it's kind of like the Chris Humphries thing right there. It's like, it's so easy, you, Jay Waller, to say, hey, here's what you got to do when you're 6'4", good looking, millionaire, all that. He's like, but there's another version of me that's fat, out of shape, broke.
Yeah.
And there's another version of me like that. And that was probably the lowest point where I had to like, let me make some money. Let me get in shape. Let me figure out my look, my hair. Like, I got to clean this up. And every guy can do that. This is what we talked about earlier. Like, did you ever have that moment where you're like, all right, Michael, like,
yeah,
I got to clean this up? What was that for you?
There were two. The first one was 2004. It wasn't a big one, but I was going to Airspace and Basic. No, I was going to a trip to the Pentagon. I was a second lieutenant. And I remember, like, there were two mirrors in the bathroom. And I could see, I've never told anyone this story. I see the front mirror and I could see the back mirror. And my back was so fat. I just couldn't. Because one of the things that happens when you're going to basic training in Air Force, there's no bench press. There's push-ups, but there's a lot of eating quickly, drinking fuck tons of water, and then just running. You're going to have big, strong calves because all you do is fucking run. But there's no like shoulder press, like all the things that I would do. I'd naturally have a skinny upper body. And I just looked at myself like, fuck, man, I used to love taking my shirt off in public. I will never take my shirt off again the way I look like this. That was one of them, okay? The second thing that happened was May 19th, 2006, my dad was run over by a drunk driver named Astrid Carlson. She was 64, same age as my dad. She had got out of prison 11 hours prior for a drunk driving for DUI. The defense attorney, the public defender who defended her, came and apologized to me at the trial, being like, I had no idea how bad this woman was. I would never have defended her if this had happened. I'm in my uniform, and I'm doing the whole thing. And I'm dealing with that. And it was like, the thing that it was obviously horrible because my dad had died, but it was so fast that it was a little easier to deal with. And because we got so much closure in the trial, so many people saw it was in the news. Most people, when they have a parent die, don't have the news cover it. You understand what I'm saying?
This was like covered.
Yeah, it was a big, yeah. And so, you know, we do the trial and then the funeral happens. Come back and we have the funeral, whatever. And there were hundreds of people at my dad's funeral. There were FBI agents. My dad used to he just do all kinds of crazy stuff. He'd be in book clubs. He didn't work with the FBI, but like he was friends. He was in book clubs and sales clubs. He had made so much money because he was a financial planner. He had these like free groups that would meet up and he would help people with their investing. And so
that's what your dad did. He was financial planner.
Financial planner. So it's just fucking loaded full of people. So I do that, and then what happens is 6 weeks after that, I get a call from Colonel Robinson, and he's like, hey, I just want to let you know your first deployment's in 5 weeks. It wasn't, do you want to go on your first deployment in 5 weeks because your dad died? It was like, we're just letting you know you are a U.S. Air Force officer, and you're going to Iraq. And I was like, I wanted to go. So I go, and while I'm there, this is 06, so we finally have Facebook, very raw Facebook, just photos. There's no video. And I'm watching my girlfriend, who I left, who was with me the night that my dad died. And she's with her new Marine Corps boyfriend in Cabo San Lucas, and I get to watch photos of it while I'm stuck in the Middle East. And I don't blame her, to be honest with you, because you're dating a guy for 4 weeks, and his dad dies, and he gets deployed to Iraq. What are you going to do? Of course, you're going to break up with him.
Yeah.
And this is going to sound fucked up, but the Mavs were up 0-2, were up 2-0 to the Heat.
Dude, D Wade took over, Game 3.
And
one of the happiest days of my life. It's so funny.
And Donaghy rigged the entire fucking thing.
Tim Donaghy?
Yeah, 50 fucking free throws in a row for D Wade. Anyway, but that happened.
It's so funny how that was like the lowest moment. That was like the best moment for me in 06.
Well, we can talk about 2011 then. And then what ends up happening is, it wasn't like, obviously, the Mavericks losing isn't that big of a deal.
Yeah, but that was the lowest moment.
But it felt like everything was piling on. And then I developed the early symptoms of an autoimmune disorder I have now called psoriatic arthritis. What's his name? Phil Mickelson. He does advertisements for the medication I take.
I've seen this, yeah.
So that was the first, scalp starts turning red. I start having like severe joint pains or whatever. And I'm like in my early 30s, like, how the fuck is this happening to me? I have to take this medication. But it wasn't that bad for another 5 years. And then I had to get out of the military because it just got so bad I couldn't even walk. So
what?
Yeah. It was my big toes would not deflect anymore because there was so much arthritis in the toe. So it wouldn't work anymore. So anyway, during that point, I get back and I start meeting with some guys in some self-help groups. This is pseudo pickup, but not really pickup. And one of the guys says, have you ever read the book, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle? Right? I recommend that book. Is the first book I recommend to people, but you have to have suffered enough. If you have not suffered enough, or if your life is kind of good, you're not the first pick in the draft because you're losing and you're not the NBA champion, but you're like right there in the middle. This book is going to mean nothing to you. If you have dealt with an incredible trauma, this book will change your life. It's called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and the second book is called A New Earth. And that realization that like legitimately no one cares about me. And it's totally liberating that no one cares. Mm-hmm. And the only thing that matters is this moment. That was the change for me. I was so much more attractive to women after I read that book. I was so much more, I was a better officer after I read that book. I was a way better aviator after I read that book. Just the recognition of like all this interpretation of the past and this prediction of the future, getting it out of your mind and putting all your mental focus on the present moment. I actually, I started playing video games tournaments. I started killing people. Like I was so much better of a performer after I read that book. So that would be the inflection for me. It would have been 06.
Yeah.
Changed everything.
But there's a number one crazy story. I mean, I can't believe you've never told that. So I got something out of Sartain. I hope the audience appreciates that. But everyone has those moments.
Yeah.
Where you need to look in the mirror and realize, hey, nobody's coming to save you. You need to save yourself. Mm-hmm. Right? What's the Rick Pitino quote? Like, Larry Bird's not walking through that door. Like Bill Russell ain't coming back. Like nobody's coming to save the Celtics. You need to save yourself. Paul Pierce ended up winning a championship multiple years later, but nobody's coming to save these black pill doomers. And I love that story about whether it's the incels, whatever camp you want to put these people in, the victim mentality, warm cloak blanket. It's at some point like one of you guys is going to get a girlfriend, or one of you is going to have success. And what do you say to that guy now? Because
because of the law of probabilities, he just happened to watch the right YouTube videos and happened to work at a job where he happened to meet a cute girl, and then that girl and he started to click, and then they got into a relationship, and then he started to see, wait, this black pill victim mentality isn't really working for me. And it just becomes very difficult because, I think yesterday was pretty kind of the culmination of the whole thing when these guys jump on my Zoom call and they take it over and they start taking over the screen share and they start screaming out words, the N-word, anti-Zionist stuff over and over again. Because
that's not common, what you're saying.
No, it's never happened before.
Ever?
No.
So I just saw the most random thing ever.
It's never happened.
I was like, because I give you so much, I'm like, how is Michael dealing with this crap right now?
So just so you know, this is a little public service announcement. Zoom changed their settings up their recent update, so now other people can screen share whether or not they're a host. It is by far, without a doubt, the stupidest thing I've ever seen any software company do in my entire life. So basically, you're live. So what should happen is, as soon as I go live on YouTube,
oh, that's why those people were just randomly becoming.
Yeah. So as soon as I go live on YouTube, what should happen is just like I can't. You know, when you put your car in park, it unlocks the doors. Right? Or when you put your car in drive, it locks the doors. What should happen is when I go live on YouTube, no one should have been able to screen share except me. That's how it should have worked, but it didn't. They made it so anyone could screen share. And in order to turn that feature off, if you're ever on Zoom, you have to dig. You have to look up a YouTube video which shows you in the advanced settings how to turn it off. One of legitimately the most negligent thing I've ever seen a software company do. Anyway, they get on there, they take over, they start spewing the N-word, they start saying all these. The thing is, it doesn't matter. YouTube's not going to say, well, Michael didn't say the N-word, so we're going to keep this video up. I was going to lose my channel. So I had to delete.
You think so?
No, 100%. Yeah. They said the N-word so many times, and they kept showing nudity, and like there was one dude started pulling his pants down. Yeah.
Because I was watching the video, I turned it off, went back to the happy hour, and then I saw that the video was taken down.
Yeah.
And I think I texted you. I'm like, what the hell just happened here?
I had to take it down. And I have to take, also, you're violating Zoom's terms of service, and you're violating YouTube's terms of service, and you're violating Facebook's terms of service. That's not the problem. It's handled now. Nobody can do that ever to me again.
Yeah.
The point is, that's where this society is headed. Whether or not we like to believe it, 4% of millennials believe the earth is flat. And that number's going up. Because they like the fact that they're making mommy and daddy mad by saying things that are not true. Does that make sense? There's a generation of kids that are coming up that think that something is true because it feels like it's true. You understand? Well, the question, if you were to ask the average person now, like a girl on TikTok, like the GDP of the nation you live on, you know what I'm saying, the circumference of the planet that you live on, you know, basic question, the four fundamental laws of physics. In the 1950s, kids knew this. They don't know this anymore. And so I think you want to talk about what's the attack on America? The attack on America is some of the stuff they're doing on TikTok. You mentioned this before. TikTok really, really doesn't want heterosexual looking curvy women on their platform, but they really, really do like underage girls. Isn't that funny?
And trans.
Isn't it funny? It's almost like the Chinese would realize what that would do to our population by doing that. It's just interesting to me, like when you see, like the attack on America is the 5 love languages, something that these women are all buying that has no basis in reality. The attack on America is things like The Secret. Hey, listen, manifest this thing in your mind and don't work for it, and then poof, it'll just appear. You want to know how to defeat a country that has a superior military advantage over you? That's how you defeat it. You sit there and you just
defeat it within.
You defeat it within.
So what do you think should happen with TikTok? Should it just be permanently banned if they sell to a U.S. company?
Yeah, it's just sell to a U.S. company. Yeah, I think it's fine. I mean,
what happens with like and I'm so not a tech software guy, but even if they sell it to a U.S. company, the back end server is still
great point. So that's one of the
from ByteDance in China.
One of the very few things the Security and Exchange Commission does, which they don't do much well, is they have to vet CEOs and executives at publicly traded companies. So if they came into the U.S. and they were publicly traded, the CEO would have to be vetted, and if he has any ties to do something like that, then he'd be investigated. I don't know if that's a stopgap for everything. And to be fair, Instagram's making us stupider too. So I don't really know if it's that big of a deal. It's like, you want to know why we know TikTok's stealing your information? Because Facebook was already doing it. That's how we know. Because Facebook's doing more of it.
Right. Well, one of the things I say on PPD podcast is like, I'm an American. If a social media company, tech company is going to steal my data, they better be an American company. Okay? I don't want these Chinamen stealing my data. I want Meta stealing my company. I want YouTube and Google stealing my company.
That's right.
No TikTok, ByteDance stealing American company. Only American companies.
That's hilarious. One of the
But it's true.
Yeah. Yeah, it is funny. I mean,
we're totally comfortable with everything.
You feel better, but yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. This is something that you brought up that I thought was interesting. So we went back to the thing where you talk about you believe Ukraine or Russia is the right one because of your political affiliation, or PGA versus Live. The other one is the upcoming crash that I keep hearing about every year. The upcoming, like I'm old enough, I'm in my 40s. I keep hearing about the upcoming crash. It's like you'll have a guy on there who'll say the crash is upcoming for 10 years in a row, and then the crash finally comes. But like we're 2 presidents later. Like the things you said were going to cause this crash never happened. I'm not a fan of Joe Biden, but I didn't think the market was going to crash when he got elected. I just didn't think it was that big of a deal because people don't recognize what the president can and cannot do. And I thought that was a little bit nuts. And then fixed equities, fixed income being in contango. People are like, oh well, this is a sign of a recession. And then years go by and there's no recession. And I see people like, well, do you see Bitcoin crash? That's because the market's unstable. No, that's because Bitcoin's unstable. And I see this over and over again. And these people that I see this are always on the same side of the political aisle. And I'm like, bro, you're talking your book. Have you seen this before? The upcoming crash. It is this doomsday thing. Of course.
What do you mean? So what's the question?
Yeah. Like, what do you believe about that? Like for me, it's like, let's just say, because obviously I'm gonna interview Robert Kiyosaki, and I have a ton of respect for him, but he's a big crash.
I was just gonna say that.
A crash doomer, and he's gonna say it every year for 10 years. Then eventually he's gonna be right. And my whole thing is no efficient market hypothesis, which was awarded a Nobel Prize, shows that no one knows when a recession is coming.
Correct.
And so if you happen to get it right because you guessed crash for 10 years in a row, that doesn't mean you were right. And what's going to happen is all of a sudden, after the 10th time, thinking that the crash is coming, once it does come, now check out my new book. Got a new coaching course. What to do with this new crash coming. I like when I saw Alex Hormozy sitting there talking about Bitcoin is at this price, get ready for this upcoming crash. And I'm like, Alex Hormozy? Like, what the fuck is going on here, dude? Like Bitcoin is not an economic indicator. And if you were to ask people what are 6 economic indicators, they couldn't give you 2.
Couldn't give you 1.
But they're telling me a recession's coming. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, I've had the opportunity to interview Kiyosaki a few times.
Yeah.
He's real tight with Rollo, I think, at this point. I'm sure that can obviously be arranged. And he's one of the guys that's like, a crash is coming. You need to buy gold. You need to buy silver. You need to buy Bitcoin. And I interviewed him in 2020. This is right before Bitcoin crashed. So I was like, and the next time I interviewed him, I'm like, so you told me to get into Bitcoin, but and obviously he's a legend, and I'm not saying it about him, but I think at the end of the day, there's no money in, hey, the economy's doing great, just continue to save, don't, spend normally, invest your money, get a Roth IRA, get a 401k, do dollar cost averaging, maybe you take 5% of your portfolio, you invest in crypto, whatever. There's no money in that. That's Warren Buffett approach of, value investing, buying index funds. There's basic. There's no excitement in that. What's exciting? All right, in the next 12 months, there's going to be a doomsday scenario. Are you prepared? Are you ready? That gets eyeballs. And that's where we're at these days. And it might not happen this year, but it could happen next year. And are you prepared? All the doomsday preppers. The same thing for anyone who thinks that a crash is coming. And I've read a lot of finance books. Like one of the best stories, I think, was a random walk down Wall Street.
Yes.
And essentially they were saying nobody knows what's going to happen in the stock market today, tomorrow, next week, next year. And they likened it to a drunk leaving the bar and stumbling, and you don't know. He could fall. He could end up in a bush. You don't know where he's going to go.
Yeah.
But you do know at some point he's going to make it home.
Or you do know at some point he's going to be further away. But the actual analogy is a drunk falling asleep next to a light pole, and he gets up, and you say over X amount of period of time, how far away is he from the light pole? What's the statistical probability? And it increases as time goes on. So the original, we're going to get really nerdy on you. There's a botanist named Brown, and he came up with this idea where he would look at pollen particles inside of a mason jar, and he saw the random way they moved. Albert Einstein later called this Brownian motion. Brownian motion is random motion, a random walk hypothesis. Brownian motion is displayed by that example, just like quantum mechanics is displayed by Schrodinger's cat. Brownian motion is displayed by the drunk walking away from the tile. The point is, as time increases, the variance increases. This is the reason why longer dated options are more expensive, because the likelihood of the crash happening when you buy a put increases as the time increases. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's why
number one, it doesn't make sense because you're way smarter than me. I got to give you credit here, Michael. Like, because we hung out the other night, we've hung out a handful of times. I don't know if I know a cooler, nerdier dude. Do you know what I'm saying here? Because you don't know just nerd level, like, hey, a stock market crash is coming, and yes, on a random walk, like, you're like, no, there's a call put option. What happened is, as the bot inflection, it might have, like, you're such, and I mean this in a compliment, like, such a nerd. But then the flip side to it is, like, we go out in Vegas, everyone knows Michael, VIP, hottest chicks, going in there. It's like, I don't know many people like you, bro. I don't know if they exist. You're a true Renaissance man. Like, I'm kind of nerdy, but I'm not like as nerdy as you.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of cool and popular, but I don't think I'm on your level either. It's like you're the heads and tails on you. The polarity is like ridiculous.
Yeah.
So,
sometimes people bring that up. It is pretty interesting. Like, I'm the only person I've read every Tom Clancy novel. I've read every Lee Child novel, and I've read every Vince Flynn novel. Do you know what they are? It's Jack Reacher, Jack Ryan.
Tom Clancy. Yeah,
Tom Clancy is, and I've read every single one of them. There's like 30, 40, 50 books in the series. And I don't know anyone who's read any of them. Like, I don't. And one of the things, when I read Bilzerian's book, I read it, and maybe he gave it to me, and I think I had finished it in 2.5 days after I got it. And I asked him afterwards, I'm like, am I the first person to finish your book? He goes, I think you are. I think you're the first person.
Bilzerian.
Yeah. And I was like, because he gave me an early copy. He had his assistant drop it off at my apartment because we live near each other. He lives really close to here. And so I finished the book, and we do the interview, and I have, like, the interview is like super detailed. And also I was at like 4 or 5 of the stories in the book. And my attempt was to have the interview of record for Dan Bilzerian, just like I have the one for David Buss, just like I have the one for Tai Lopez. I imagine this is probably going to be the one for you too. The one that when they write the Wikipedia article on you, this is the one that was the most detailed. This is the one where they went the furthest. Does that make sense? A lot of times with girls who are social media influencers, they've never done any interview. Nobody knows about the sexual trauma they went through, the fact that they had an abortion, the fact that their father was a murderer. We had Brandy Andrews on here, and her baby's daddy got shot 7 times in the face, and she told the story, and I'd never heard the story before. No one knows these stories, and you try to get to these things. And no disrespect to like Logan Paul, because he's awesome as far as his podcast is concerned. I really think he's a talented podcaster. He has Bilzerian on a week after I have mine on, and he didn't even read the book. And it was just obvious, like he didn't even read the book. He's just throwing shit out there, and it was just like, my interview was just better because I did so much more work. Does that make sense? So my whole thing is, because I'm not super famous and I'm not super, I don't have insanely high status. The only thing I can do is outwork people, right? Well, podcast,
and which you have to respect.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, and shout out to Logan, whoever it is, it's so easy to show up and be who you are.
I'm not saying he doesn't work. I'm just saying, like, for me,
no,
like, for this, I watch.
You have to put in the work.
Yeah, I watched your last 5 episodes, or your last 5 interviews at double speed, and then probably, I don't know, maybe 50 or 60 of your shorts, and I took notes on all of it. Like, that's what I do for every guest.
You're also probably the only person that has read Dan Bilzerian's book, Dr. David Buss's book, the 50 Shades of Grey books,
that book was a
and
bitch.
The Tom Clancy books. Like, you're a Renaissance man, and so.
Dude, listen, I've read Mein Kampf, and I've also read the Communist Manifesto. I read things that I disagree with too, and I think a lot of people should do that.
I think more people should do that.
Yes. Another topic that's kind of a hot button one that gets caught up in the manosphere in your audience is the demise of the West. Everyone is like, the BRIC is the new thing. So now I'm supposed to believe that Brazil, Russia,
India,
and China are going to come together.
BRIC, South Africa is in there as well. I was talking that with on PBD podcast the other day.
So one of the problems with the euro, and one of the reasons why Brexit happened, I know everyone thinks Brexit was just because Brits are racist. That's not why Brexit happened. Brexit happened because what happens is when you have a central currency that is spread across multiple different countries with multiple different cultures, when one country goes bankrupt and overspends, i.e. Greece, then Germany and the UK have to pay the difference.
Right.
It's funny, no one brings that up with the Brexit thing. This is what's going to happen with BRIC as well. You're going to see the functioning economies of China. They're going to have to prop up whatever currency, whatever BRICS currency this is. That functioning economy is going to have to prop up Venezuela, especially Venezuela. Venezuela, South Africa, probably Russia. Russia is not going to be doing well financially after prosecuting this war, a land war in Asia, in Eastern Europe. They're going to end up going bankrupt because of this war. And you see all these things that are happening. And I predict the BRIC thing won't work, just like these other things don't work, because you can't control, when you have a bunch of dictators that are coming together to create their own currency, it's just the lowest common denominator. Whichever one is willing to spend the most on their own country is going to devalue the entire currency.
Yeah.
Do you, every 10 years I hear the demise of the West. Every 10 years I hear this is going to fall. Every 10 years I hear that this is going to be the end. Do you hear this a lot too?
I do. And it's, I could be wrong, but I don't think I will. I'm just going to quote Warren Buffett. It's like anyone who bets against America ends up losing.
Yeah.
And the more and more that, I whether it's economically, whether it's socially and social dynamics and dating, like to use that component of just go out and be, what's the term when people just go and they start dating women?
Chad?
No, not that. It's the...
Polyamorous?
No, when they just leave the country and they go try to get wives from...
Passport bro.
Passport bros.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm staying in America. I'm not going anywhere. I'm investing in the S&P 500. I'm investing in the sexiest, prettiest 500 girls in the United States, to use the S&P 500 as a metaphor right there. Like, I'm staying in America. Sure. Will I go visit Medellin and have a great time? But I'm not importing a Medellin chick that doesn't speak any English and trying to infiltrate her into America. There's enough to go around here in America to win. Yeah. It's just, it almost seems like a cop-out or a cope. And it's, I'm going down with the ship that is America.
Yeah, but so the thing you're talking about, passport bros, is one thing.
Yeah.
Another thing, though, is because we allow trans or homosexual people to serve in our government, or because we allow women all these freedoms, therefore the West is going to demise because the women here aren't worth marrying. And they just run down this path, and it's people in the United States that are saying this.
Yeah.
And that's another sort of red pill mantra that I've heard, is that if a trans person became president, I'm still going to be a millionaire. I don't give a fuck. I really don't give a fuck.
I made money under Obama. I made money under Trump. I make money under Biden.
I'm not a victim because that happened. Do I think that there's a narrative being pushed? Of course there's a narrative being pushed. I agree with you. The Dylan Mulvaney thing, of course, that was way overstepping the bounds. Not because he was trans, but because he was trying to be a fucking 6-year-old girl. I'm not opposed to Dylan Mulvaney because he's trans. I'm opposed to him because he's basically promoting pedophilia. That's what I have a problem with. So
this goes back to my earlier point of how I always try to, there's similar themes in my life. It's things that matter and things you can control.
Yes.
And what you can control is your attitude, getting out of bed, putting in the work, showing up to fucking, step by step each day, you can control what you specifically do. You can't control what BRIC is doing. You can't control that certain PR publicity firms are hiring trans activists. That's out of your control. I mean, you can have an opinion on it, but you can't let that affect your life.
Yeah.
And I get that some of that is just well, it's basic, bro, but sometimes common sense isn't common.
Yeah.
And I don't get lost up in all the hoopla. And as far as politics go, some of the most liberating thing I have in my life is just, I've been a registered independent for years.
Yeah.
Okay. I went to Florida State, capital of Florida, Tallahassee. I was an intern in the government in the Capitol in 2001.
Yeah.
During the election, right after the election, the heels of that, I couldn't tell you the difference between a Republican and a Democrat at that point. And I get that, Obama was a cool guy, but a lot of his policies didn't really make sense. And Trump was a cool guy before, then he turned into a total prick. And you might agree with his policies, but not his personality. And the most liberating thing is genuinely being an independent and genuinely being able to call balls and strikes. Yeah. And not always having to double down and defend your team and just live in an echo chamber and be exactly. If you're a Cowboys fan, for instance,
it sucks, bro. Yeah. It sucks being a Cowboys
fan. And it's I love the Cowboys, but I could also say, listen, I think, Ezekiel Elliott is a little overrated and Dak Prescott, turns the ball over a little too much and our offensive line is trash. I get that our defense is good and they got Micah Parsons, but we should probably fire our defensive coordinator. It's like, you can love the Cowboys, but also point out the flaws.
Yeah.
And I think like whether you're a Democrat, you can be like, listen, I like what it stands for, but I can also recognize that Joe Biden is a fucking walking corpse.
Yes.
And some of the LGBT woke, all this stuff is kind of nonsensical and it's not making sense. Or whether you're a Republican MAGA guy, you can say like, listen, I'm with Trump through and through, but like, the tweets are kind of ridiculous and, he needs to stop, being childish. Like you can do both.
Yeah.
And there's a very liberating feeling about just being an independent and just being at calling balls and strikes.
It is. And it also being able to have conversations with people on the other side.
And that's...
And not having, like, there's two feminists that I have coming on here. They're both huge, like, social media influencers. And we're going to have conversations like this. But, like, so for instance, the Dylan Mulvaney thing, because that's the biggest lightning rod right now.
Yeah. Is it still pretty popular right now?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I mean, because all the stories that came out that the whole marketing staff was fired. And then
the one lady who was
and then Bud Light denying that that's what happened. But the thing is, I don't have a problem, like I said before. Dylan Mulvaney, if Bud Light wants to do that, they're a privately owned company. They can do whatever the fuck they want. I don't drink Bud Light. Doesn't matter to me. The issue was the fucking 6-year-old thing, where he literally says, I'm a 6-year-old girl. And how now me being concerned with that makes me anything phobic.
Yeah.
That to me is offensive. Why I can be concerned with that narrative. Don't hate Dylan Mulvaney. Whatever. Do whatever you do. I'm sure that dude's going to make millions of dollars. Girl's going to make millions of dollars. I'm sure. But don't tell me that what I'm saying is not a problem. It is a problem. Just like Coconut Kitty 143, she used to put that filter on her face to make her look like a 12-year-old with fake tits. That was a problem. She committed suicide about 2 months ago. That's one of the things. When Tristan got out of jail, he was one of the first things he found out about was Coconut Kitty killing herself because they were friends.
Oh, wow.
But like the problem is, I have an issue with him doing that. That doesn't make me phobic, anything phobic.
Well, the definition of phobic is
fear.
The fear or hating of something.
So the god Mars, he went into war and he had 2 of his children with him, and the children were named Phobos and Deimos. The two moons of Mars currently are called Phobos and Deimos, fear and dread. Phobos means fear. I don't fear those people like that for any reason.
And you don't hate them.
I fought for the First Amendment in the Constitution, and in the preamble of the Declaration of Independence, it states that we are endowed by our Creator with the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. The pursuit of happiness. So if someone wants to change their gender, I would be willing to fight to protect the First Amendment so that they could do that. I don't have any problem with them. The issue that happens then is that now you're telling me that the school system where my child is going to go to is going to encourage them to change their gender before they go through puberty. That's not the same thing. That's assault and battery. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's the issue. No problem. If you're over the age of 18, do you see, I can have both opinions though, and it's not be hateful, but we can't have a constructive conversation like this. And it's really disappointing to me. We did the whole thing here where we asked, like, what percentage of the population do you think is African-American? And all the girls were like, 40%. It's like, it's 12%.
Yeah, it's like 13%.
What percentage of the population do you think is Hispanic? 60%, 17%. What percent of the population do you think is Muslim? 20%. It's like 3%, 1%, something like that.
Yeah.
What percent of the population do you think is trans? Oh, it's like 10%. And I was like, it's
less than
0.02% of the population. So I just want you guys to consider, like, when you're listening to this, like, a couple things that are happening. You are now being called transphobic because you have a reasonable opinion. Don't get me wrong. Some people just hate trans people. I'm not saying, obviously, that's also true too. Most of the people who are complaining don't hate anyone. They're just normal people.
Right. And a lot of people are upset that the trans are competing in women's sports, and that's calling out the ridiculousness of that.
Well, it's not just the ridiculous. If I have a daughter, let's make this practical and tacit.
Yeah.
If I have a daughter in the state of Texas and she wants to be a wrestler, she has to go up against Mac Berg, who won the state championship and was born with XY chromosome, and was hurting
you know her name, his name,
dislocating
their name,
Mac Berg. Yeah, because it's a huge story. Dislocating knees, dislocating shoulders. A boy doing women's wrestling. That is a tacit reason. That's a tacit problem. No Jumper had a bunch of trans people on, and they all agreed. It's like, we don't want this either. Like, here's the thing that do you remember Ice Cube and Snoop Dogg saying, "I don't mind when white people say the N-word when they're rapping to my songs"? You remember this?
Yeah, I mean, this was years ago.
Yeah,
right?
you remember they said it's like, I don't mind if they pay for my music. I don't care. I don't think it's racist at all. And then there were white people saying like, no, you're supposed to be offended. They're telling Ice Cube and like, you are too dumb to know that you're supposed to be offended. The LGBT community does not represent lesbians, gays, trans, and bisexual. They don't. I personally think homosexual men eventually are going to be like, dude, I'm done with this. I'm out. Sorry. We're lawyers, doctors. We're fucking firemen. We're fucking CEOs of companies. What you're doing is fucking crazy. You're burning down houses. Yeah. I'm out. Fuck this shit. We're independents or Republicans. I'm done. I think that's what's going to happen. I mean,
do you know you've seen what Dave Chappelle has said on this whole topic?
Which one was it?
Oh my God.
I've seen all of it, but I just don't know which one you're talking about.
This thing in the closer when he's like, this LGBT thing, it's like they're driving down, they're all kind of grouped together.
Yeah.
But they all have different agendas.
Yeah, it's so dumb.
It's not like, he's like, and he gave this story about like, so, it's like you're driving in a car and, obviously the G is driving the car because he's the guy, he's a gay guy. He's going to tell you, he's going to get you where to go. And like, obviously, and then you got the L. She's sitting shotgun. Everybody loves the L's.
That's the point. Everyone loves the L's.
Everyone loves the L's.
I love watching L's. You like watching L. Everyone likes watching L's. So they have nothing to. T and L have nothing to do with each other.
Nothing to do with each other. So and Chappelle goes, everyone loves the L's.
Yeah.
Except for the G's.
Yeah.
The G's will say things like, well, I wouldn't wear something like that. Yeah. Like they hate on the L's. It's like, all right. Then you got in the back seat, you got the B's, right? And then the B is. He's like, the bees creep me out. He's like, I'll fuck her, I'll fuck him, I'll fuck anybody. Yeah. I'm down for whatever. It's like, but then you get the T's. Yeah. And the T's are just kind of gazing out the window and they're kind of slowing down the whole car ride for everyone else.
That is my point.
And it's like, and the L's and the G's and the B's, they respect the T's, but they're kind of angry at the T's that they're making all the progress that the L's, the B, the T, everyone that they've done really kind of go to a screeching halt. And basically, his joke is like, the T's like, hey, can we pull over? I got to go to the bathroom. And like the G driver's like, there's not a fucking bathroom for about 5 states, bitch. Yeah. Like, and it's just like, it's just like such a great take because, you can comedy pierces through everything.
Well, not only that, but like AOC is not trans, but she's supposed to represent trans, and I just like that's the problem. Speaking again, I know it's limited as being a cisgendered heterosexual male. There's certain things I can't.
I just learned what that meant, by the way.
Yeah.
Someone's like, excuse me, you're a cis male. I'm like, what are you trying to say right now?
Yeah, because the thing is, I want to speak to fucking people on the other side so they can understand what I'm saying. I'm fully aware of the fact that I grew up as Protestant Republican household, played college football and played high school football, and then joined the military. Yes, did that shape my opinions on things? Of course it did.
Yeah.
Love guns. They're great. Chicken fried steak, greatest goddamn food in the world. I love it. Of course I'm influenced by that. But the other thing that I do understand is that like there's certain things I 100% think it's much harder for a gay man to come out to his family than a gay woman. Just my opinion. I think gay women just don't really have that hard of a time coming out.
Oh, by far.
It's not even close. Like, because they're accepted. Like it's like
these days.
But why are we putting them in the same category? Whenever I try to look up statistics on this, it's always non-binary. I don't need non-binary. I need lesbian. Can you just show me lesbians? No, it's just non-binary stats. What the fuck, dude? They have nothing to do with each other.
It's getting to the point where, because I used to be a stand-up comedian. And before I got into this, I always look for the, like the bits that tell the truth, but in the funniest possible way.
For sure, yeah.
There was a trending thing on Instagram recently about. It was like a bit, right? And I'll just make it a quick one. And it was a couple, and their son was coming out to them as being straight.
Yeah.
He's like, so I have something to tell you. Me and Sally, we're making it official. They're like, what? Like you're officially friends? Like, what do you mean? He's like, no, I'm dating Sally. He's like, you're not gay? He's like, I'm straight. And the whole thing, and the father goes, no son of mine that lives in my household is going to be a straight man. And like the mother's like, honey, relax. She's like, maybe it's just a phase. And he's like, no, I'm straight. The father's like, I swear to God by the hand of, like, it's like, it's such a like a mockery of like, he's like, I'm straight. He's like, how dare you in my household, which is a very realistic interpretation of what would happen when the gay guy comes out. But these days, that's basically the reality of of being straight is that it's like frowned upon. It's not that cool anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is. So the thing is, this is the other reason why I think it's different. I don't think that you or I, pretty sure, I'm willing to bet $1 million on this. You or I could have been pressured into being gay when we were in high school. I'm pretty sure.
Hell no.
And no possibility whatsoever.
You think that is a chance?
No, I think there's zero.
Oh, you think there's zero?
Zero possibility. But kids now are pressured into identifying as another gender. And this is what I'm talking about. Eddie Izzard and Caitlyn Jenner are both heterosexual, born XY, transitioned like to show outwardly that they're female, still attracted to women. Caitlyn Jenner is still attracted to women. Eddie Izzard is, that's what I've heard from what I understand. Caitlyn Jenner is still, and Eddie Izzard still attracted to women, even though they're trans men who haven't got their parts cut off. I don't know if Caitlyn Jenner's got her parts cut off. I don't know. But the point is,
I think she went all the way.
Did she? Okay.
I don't know, but
the point is, I refuse to believe people are bullied into turning gay. I just don't think that's a thing. My heterosexuality is so key and integral to who I am as a human. Okay. And I think one of the things is, like, for women, their heterosexuality is not tied so much to their femininity, but for a man, our heterosexuality is tied to our masculinity. There could be masculine gay people also, but for the most part, as a straight man, your heterosexuality is tied to your masculinity.
But I think there's a reason why, Bill Maher did a whole segment on this about, in the 50s, less than 1% of the country was LGBT. Mm-hmm. In the 80s, it was 2%. Millennials, it goes by generation. Millennials, it's like 5%. Gen Z, it's like 15%, 10%. It's a ridiculous number. It's like, by 2050, we're all going to be gay. Yeah. Is kind of where he went in extrapolating this. And, used when we were growing up, what's changed? Social media.
No, here's the thing. Yeah. What happens with trans people changes based on cultural norms. You are not born trans. Trans is a decision that you make. You are not, being African American is not a decision you make.
Yeah.
And this is, ready? The fundamentalist Christians are going to come after me. Being homosexual is not a decision you make. You're born homosexual or you're not born homosexual. There's tons.
You firmly believe that.
There's tons of
studies. So
Lady
Gaga was right. You're born this way.
Yeah, of course you're born. Yeah, there's tons of studies.
I agree with that.
Okay.
You can't really sell someone to, hey, you should be gay, bro.
Correct.
You should be gay.
Yes.
You should be gay.
Now, so two things I want to point out. Number one, there's a book called Dataclysm where they go over gay porn searches state by state. And guess what? It's the same in every state.
Is it really?
Just as many gay people in Vermont as there is in Alabama, and there were just as many gay people in the 1950s as a percentage as there are today.
No way.
Gay people, not trans people.
Really?
Gay people, yes. So now the next question you have to ask yourself, because Dr. Buss back here, what on earth would homosexuality have to do with the ancestral environment? And their answer is, you and me go hunt, our wives and daughters are back there foraging, and we want a man to protect them. But we want a man who has no interest in having sex with them. And not only that man is going to pair up with another man, which kills two birds. You see what I'm saying? PBD, he did the other day, he had a chart where he showed, and by the way, you can measure the variance of X chromosome, the variance of Y chromosome, and so you can tell the number of men that have had, the variance of men that have had sex throughout history and the variance of women. I don't know if you saw it. It is 40% of men and 80% of women throughout history have replicated.
I've seen this.
So what does that mean? That means we had surplus men. A problem in ancestral periods is surplus men. Homosexuality is kind of a way to solve surplus men. Just a theory. I don't know if that's the case. What I do know is
less
that
competition.
What I do know is that nobody is like convincing people to become gay. Whatever Alex Jones says about frogs fucking changing gender, which, by the way, frogs were changing gender before Alex Jones were born. Frogs were changing gender before there were humans. Amphibians were changing gender 2 or 3 billion years ago. It is not because of the pesticides in this case caused it to happen. But what the belief is, you drink the pesticides, therefore it lowers your testosterone levels, and now you turn gay. As somehow lower testosterone equals gay. Like, this is fucking crazy. Like, what are you talking about? That is not what it means. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like such a misnomer. Let's get it straight. If you have a problem, like, again, notice what I said. I have a problem with the way AOC and the woke left are pushing this narrative down here. But if we're going to combat the narrative, let's at least have our facts straight. Trans people and gay people have next to nothing to do with each other. Lesbians and trans have very little to do with each other.
Why is it all just this alphabet soup, and they're taking out 25% of the alphabet, and they're all just grouped in? Because next thing you know, there's a plus in there, there's a Q, there's a 2, I believe, in front now. It's like they all have different agendas. And I get that every single person wants to be treated with respect, have dignity, not be hated on, feel equal under the law. I get that. But it doesn't add up to me. Like you're saying, like the G's, the L's, they're totally different from.
But you chose
T's.
to be trans. You did not choose to be gay. They don't belong in the same
agree.
category. That's the point I'm trying to make. It's the point. It's ridiculous for me. And like I said before, I think like regular gay men are just going to be like, yo, I'm done with this. Man, fuck y'all. I'm done. You don't represent me anymore.
I'm going to take my dick and go home.
I'm just going to go. I'm going to go live. Because you want to know what most people want? They want to be left alone. They don't want their whole life exposed. They don't want that. And you know what? When like we have the idea, like Bilzerian, I just saw the other day, his assistant's gay dude. I see all the time. We have Buttigieg. Like gay people are all over the place. Gay men are all over the place.
No problem.
No problem at all. And then the issue happens where like now you're getting pulled into all these, let's go ahead and throw bricks through windows and set shit on fire. I'm like, wait, you don't represent, if I was a gay dude right now, I'd be like, you don't represent me anymore. I'm out. I'm moderates.
That's my question is like,
moderates. I'm going to whatever. Because initially, if you go back to the 1950s, they are on the forefront. Nobody's thinking about trans back then.
Yeah.
They're on the cutting edge. Now they're more accepted by society. You know what I'm saying? We're probably gonna have a gay vice president, some shit like that, whatever. And so they're more accepted by society, which is good, right? You can play defensive end for the fucking Tampa Bay Buccaneers and be openly gay. Carl Nassib. Okay? Don't tell me like it's just like it was in the 1950s. It isn't. But that's my whole point is that like the reason why I'm frustrated is because Gary the Numbers guy had some statements. He believes all homosexuals were created through molestation. And I was just going to try to show him some statistics that show
all homosexuals are created through molestation.
The majority of homosexuals are not molested to start off with. But anyway, so I was going to bring up some statistics. So I was like, okay, let me look up homosexuals and statistics. You know, Alex, I couldn't find any. I couldn't find the only thing that happened to me is they kept saying fucking trans, gay, whatever, all this stuff. They put it together, and I was like, I just want one stat. They could give it to me.
How did we end up here on this?
I don't know how we went. Okay, so that anyway, that was the point. We're going off of the whole thing, but I watched some of your interviews and I thought the same thing. So Adam, the thing with the Andrew Tate interview, you mentioned before that PBD had told you that he wanted you to come on the show. Was he going to come to the States and then just change his mind? Is that what happened?
As far as how Tate?
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact detail. Here's what I do remember.
Yeah.
I remember, I told you the story about Pat was like, you need to reinvent yourself and you need to stop doing only money. And I was like, all right, we were in Dallas during COVID. I'm like, I don't know anybody in Dallas. Nobody's coming into the studio. It's fucking COVID. I'm not going to be interviewing random chicks that I don't know. So like, even if he told me to do that, I didn't have that opportunity. Then we moved into Boca and it's like, what's an hour out of Vegas? Like what's an hour out of the Strip? What's
like
a city?
Gene, maybe like, where's not Victorville, what's it called? Barstow.
Okay, so Barstow. So imagine you were doing your show in Barstow.
Yeah.
How many of these hot chicks that you get?
Impossible. Unless they're on their way to LA.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So, all right, but if you do your show here in this is
Vegas. I think we're in the city of Enterprise.
Okay. So you're 15 minutes outside of Vegas. A lot easier to get chicks there.
Yeah.
So what's my point? Is I was like, Pat, when we move from Dallas to Boca and you want me to get all these girls and have these types of conversations, it's very hard to do. But when we move closer to Miami, very easy to do. I got you. So what happened is I started bringing women on my show and it was just the money. Like what type of car do you want a guy to drive? Like how much do you want your guy to make? And basic questions that I'm interested in, but all under the premise of money. And then I'm reading a book about hypergamy. And next thing you know, Rolo shows up.
Yeah.
And I always got to give Rolo credit for kind of red pilling me. But he showed up on PBD podcast and it went great. And then he came on my podcast the next day. And literally my questions were like, so what does red pill mean? What does sexual market value mean? But for someone that has been in Miami, South Beach nightlife and has made money and have been around the block and been the whole NBA, Kardashian, everything that I was in my past, I'm like, got it. Like, I don't like just like with you, like it just adds up, makes sense. So I said, all right.
I managed a strip club. So the first time I read The Rational Male, there was nothing in there that was confusing to me.
So, exactly.
Yeah.
So some things like how you said, like the one book, The Power of Now, what was it?
Yeah.
How like some people, they'll just get it and it's like so applicable. And some people like, it's just not applicable, whatever. So when I'm reading this book on hypergamy or when Rolo gives me The Rational Male and I'm reading about it, I'm like, got it, done, great, cool, got it. This goes very much hand in hand. Hypergamy, especially with because hypergamy is what socioeconomic hierarchies, basically, is what it is. Caste systems.
So it comes from caste systems in India.
Exactly. So, and I remember learning about that back in the day. But the point is this: I'm like, all right, cool. I like this topic. I like this subject. I like guys like Rollo. Rollo introduced me to Fresh and Fit. I like these guys. I know a lot of chicks. Let me start having these types of conversations with sort of the money being the backdrop of all this. And now, money's the backdrop of everything, but money doesn't live in a vacuum. Nobody just makes money and just sits and like sleeps in their money blanket. They buy cars, they meet women, they go out nightlife, all that and then some. So to answer your initial question, I see this guy, Andrew Tate, kind of blown up online. This is in March of 2022. And I say because we go through booking meetings and we have a legitimate thing we got going on at Valuetainment.
I think he first messaged me in September of 2021.
Okay.
That's when we first met. Yeah.
That's when you
he
discovered him or heard.
We just texted 2 days ago.
So the point is, this is 4 months after that, 6 months after that, whatever. Where I'm like, hey, this guy Tate is kind of everywhere. And Pat goes to me, yeah, I think he'd be great on your show. You should have him on your show. But this is more speaks to Tate's astronomical takeoff. 6 months later, not only is like Tate not coming on my show, which is a smaller show than PBD, we're flying to Madrid.
Yeah.
Okay, private to Madrid for him to be on PBD's show, who, by the way, just had a multi 9-figure exit. Like, is good, right? And we're flying to go interview Andrew Tate in Madrid at this six cigar lounge that we set up.
Why Madrid?
That's where Tate wanted
he just happened to be there.
Well, no, he's specifically.
You can drive from Romania to Madrid, I guess, pretty quickly.
He flew. He flew. But
it's not very far.
We were going to go to Romania. For some reason, it didn't work out for us to go to Romania. We could have met any city, to be honest with you. I think we.
It's a fucking write-off. Of course, I would have taken it. Let's go to the North Pole.
We met in Madrid, and that's just basically what went down. But I'm telling you this story for a couple different reasons. It's that was my background, how I even got into like being interested in Tate, right? Now everyone's obviously interested in Tate. To 6 months prior, Pat's like, yeah, he'd be great on your show. To 6 months later, we're flying to go see Tate. And it was so funny. It was, I tell this story. So we get to Madrid. We're staying at the Four Seasons. And that's actually where Tate was staying. We didn't tell Tate where to stay or we just said time and place of the interview. We'll see you. So we're sitting there at the Four Seasons. And it's me, PBD, and two of our producers. There's a crew of like 4 or 5 of us. And I'm just kind of looking off into the distance of what's going on at the Four Seasons. And I see this really attractive woman just kind of standing by herself. And if all right, like your first instinct is, oh, the chick's pretty attractive, pretty hot. All right. Wonder what her deal is. All right, I know a chick isn't just traveling by herself.
Yep.
Cool. Wondering who she's with. Got it. Like you're going levels in your mind. Let me start scanning the room for who she's with. Boom, there's Andrew Tate just walking over very slowly towards her. Doesn't see me or Pat or anything like that. I'm like, makes sense. There's Tate. Boom. I say, Pat, Tate's right behind us. Sure enough, he's with this girl. Andrew, what's up? Hey, what's up, man? How you doing? Pat, boom. Hey, what's going on, bro? So this is a day before the interview. And super nice, super warm, super welcoming. He's like, we should grab dinner tonight. We should have a good time. We're like, all right, we'll let you know. Cool. Boom, 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 boom.
That's how I found him as well. The clips that you see where he comes off as very aggressive, that's not how he is. Just very, very polite, like super nice guy.
Suave, gentleman, super nice guy. And so we say, all right, man, we'll hit you later. Maybe we'll do dinner, man. So we talk amongst ourselves. We're like, well, that was cool. Just Tate right there. Well, should we do dinner with him tonight? On one hand, that's cool. We should grab dinner. But on the other hand, what would that do for the podcast tomorrow? Because we're doing a 5-hour marathon podcast.
Yeah.
Do we really want to discuss things over dinner?
Let me ask you something. Is 5 hours, like to me, is that a lot for you? Like 5 hours is like something I can do every day if I had to.
I think, most of our podcasts are 2 hours. So I think there's a sort of a baseline.
Yeah. Like Rollo will do 6 on Sundays. It's great. He just won't stop.
Well, he's a animal in himself, shout out to him. But
because when I saw it was 5, I was like, this is awesome. And I just realized a lot of people aren't going to watch this whole thing. I watched the entire thing.
No, but in actuality, it was 8 hours.
Oh, okay. You cut it down.
We stopped. We had some lunch. We ate. We had a drink, bathroom breaks, whatever. But the point is, I'm glad that we didn't have dinner
of course,
that night before because it got all the questions, everything that we really wanted to get to. We didn't, it was genuine, full transparency, nothing off the table.
Tip for anybody who wants to start a podcast: when your guests come in here and they have all these cool stories to tell them to shut the fuck up and wait till we start recording. Was something that has happened, like the best stories I've ever heard, they never got on the air because we told them beforehand. So you're absolutely right. Yeah. Totally agree. I tell them before, I'm like, hey, let's not talk about any of this until we get on the air. Yeah. And it was great. The thing is, what was his standards, the things that he looked for? I can't remember, 41 things. I can't remember, 39 things. 31 things. And he had them memorized, bro. Was he reading off a piece of paper?
I think he did have
he had a piece of paper
at that point. But at this point, I'm sure they're memorized.
I was like, man, that's crazy. It has all, because we have 6 rules in MLA that I've memorized, and that was 31. I was like, man, that's crazy. I thought I learned a lot from watching that. It was good.
It's we were talking about certain other people that have a big following and the difference, but Andrew walks the walk, he talks the talk because he's been there, done that, fighting chess. His father allegedly was something with the CIA, whatever that was, money, chicks, all that. But to me, the speed at which his brain works and how his mouth works, there's something that you can't. It's almost like a good car wreck. When he's talking, you just listen.
It's also, I think he has the Bond villain voice on accident just because he's from Luton. And then there's a smidge, a smidge of Illinois left behind, because he's from Chicago. And I feel like it's just such a unique, because it's not a super hackney, deep Newcastle accent or anything like that.
It's not annoying.
Yeah. It's this part, some words he does say with an American dialect. And a lot of words he says with a British dialect. And it's interesting when you listen because he's just this side of Bond villain, but the Bond villain that you like. Yes. You understand what I'm saying?
Fully
and
agree.
Because I have a Texas accent and I don't have the same charisma with my accent that he does.
I'll say to your credit, we all know how important status is as a man.
Yeah.
Status is the culmination of wealth and social and networking and fitness and just everything all put together. I think status is really the main objective for a man. But when Tate calls it status, it just has a different ring to it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's all about your status.
It feels like it feels like I'm in a classroom. That's exactly right. So you end up doing that. And then the thing after that, I started texting him back and forth. And initially he was going to come out here and do an interview here. And you can imagine every time I go out, I would have the girls send him a message say hi to Andrew. And the girls would get on there. And this is one of the craziest things I've ever seen is how many girls I knew I had his number that asked me to send videos to super hot girls.
Shocker alert. That girls are actually into that guy.
Crazy. Now,
girls hate him.
I never posted the videos online, but I would send them to Andrew. And so we kept a dialogue going. And then one day he hit me up and he goes, hey man, sorry, but you're going to have to come to Romania. There's just no way I can come to the States. Yeah. I don't think I'm ever coming back to the States. His exact words, I'm not coming back to the States unless Trump's elected. So we, back and forth every once in a while. And then the day he got arrested, I didn't know if it was for real. So I was like, hey man, keep your head up. Hope everything's good. Day he got out, I wrote him. He wrote me back. And the thing that's just interesting to me is not just Andrew, but what caused Andrew to happen. We had Richard Reeves on here, and his exact words were Richard Reeves as a PhD and an academician. Andrew Tate is our fault because I'm speaking as if I'm Richard Reeves. We decided to not have this discussion. And so someone else decided to start having this discussion. In academic circles, because the narrative is so incredibly woke, the concept of men falling behind is anathema. You cannot even believe that men could fall behind. Men are always in front, and the idea that men could fall behind education system, 68% of college graduates are female, that men could fall behind in the workplace. There are more female military pilots than there are male kindergarten teachers. 5% of psychologists under the age of 30 are male. 5%.
5% of what?
Of psychologists under the age of 30 are male. 5%. 95% are female. The fact that they're falling behind as far as the family is concerned, 33% of men having 0 sexual partners, 78% of divorces initiated by women. So we show all these statistics, and yet no one wanted to have this discussion. And then Andrew had the discussion. You have to ask yourself, why was this void there? There was a need that was not being met that he met. On top of that, his technique with the affiliate program was the greatest thing I've ever seen. unashamedly try to copy it. Most of the videos you watch of me are not on my channel. You're watching someone else's TikTok or someone else's there's like several dozen YouTube channels.
Broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, we're doing the same thing. And it's because what he did there, he figured out the algorithm. And that's really why he got banned, is because he figured out the algorithm. Do you want to know who's worse? How about the Prince of Saudi Arabia, who had 81 people's heads cut off for being homosexual? Yeah, for being homosexual. Cut 81.
Mohammed bin Salman?
Yeah. But
the one that murdered Khashoggi?
Khashoggi, yeah. So but we won't get him off Twitter. The Ayatollah of Iran has a Twitter.
We talk about this all the time.
I thought that was misogyny, though. Like, it's so absurd. No, it was that his message was powerful, and you were confused why it was so powerful. Because social media companies have a narrative, and somehow their billions of dollars could not withhold this narrative that he was coming forth with. Yeah. And he figured out a way through, I would call it guerrilla marketing, because he would have because he would do, I think it was 50% commissions if you sold a $50 a month subscription to, I forgot if it's War Room or
Hustlers University.
It's for Hustlers University. And these guys would make money, and they'd love to. And here's the other thing. If you took his content and you collated it into a TikTok channel or YouTube, you'd have 20, 30, 50,000 followers that quick. You could sell that channel to someone else afterwards. You see what I'm saying? When he went to jail, a bunch of his former content creators hit me up. They're like, hey, we want to start doing content for you. And I gave them an affiliate code so they could go do it. So it's really interesting how that whole situation worked, like from a business standpoint, from figuring out the algorithm, and then from him, like literally hitting the head on this void where this discussion was not happening anywhere in academic circles. It's one thing to have it on a Reddit board. It's another thing to have it at Liberty University, some hyper conservative. It's another thing for Tucker Carlson to have the conversation, but it's a different thing in total for there to be a speech and a debate at Harvard. Mm-hmm. That's different, because when you have that speech at Harvard, the bananas start flying. You know what I'm saying? The physical violence backs up. So that's what I thought was really interesting.
How familiar are you with Dr. Scott Galloway from
Love
NYU?
Him. Yeah, right. Keep messaging. Hey, Scott, listen, I know you keep saying you don't have bandwidth. Come on my show, bro. I promise you, best interview you've ever done.
But and by the way, I'm fully advocating to come on the show. I'm sure you'll do a ton of research. But he's someone that's been advocating for how men are falling behind, right? He's someone who basically talks about how men have basically taken a backseat to women in education, in sex, in friendship. There's stats right here that Scott Galloway gets credit to you, Scott Galloway. This is from the if Survey for Center of American Life.
If dating was a nation, it would be the most unequal nation as far as poverty is concerned. The unequal distribution of wealth of any nation on the planet.
It's how much attention men
the men at the top are
select men, right?
Exactly.
So this is what Scott Galloway talks about all the time. The 90s versus today. 1 in 6 men today have no friends whatsoever. And he basically talks about the difference in the 90s. In the 90s, 55% of men had 6 or more close friends. Today, it's only 27%. So we're in that 27%. Congratulations.
I have a friend.
Less than how many men have less than 3 friends? In the 90s, it was 16%, not a big number. Today, it's 32%. 1/3 of men don't have more than 2 friends, less than 3 friends. And here's the craziest number. In the 90s, how many have no close friends? 0, no close friends. 3%. Below the margin of error, basically.
For sure.
Today, 12%. 12% of men have no close friends. You talk about how men are falling behind. A professor of NYU can kind of get away with it because he's not talking about hot chicks and cheating and
he's
Bugattis.
Talking about friends. He's going around it.
He can kind of go around it. But when Tate hits it right on the head, that's like, fuck it, I want to make money and bang hot chicks and drive sports cars and kick some ass. That's people get very uncomfortable with that. But someone like as skilled and as knowledgeable as Professor Scott Galloway, he writes books about this, but it's not as in your face and as chauvinist as about it. And one of the things I love about Scott Galloway, which I think we can basically agree with, is that it's not a one gender needs to lose when the other one wins.
Right.
Right? Like men can improve and women can improve. Women don't have to lose in order for men to do better, and men don't have to lose for women to do better. And I think that's sort of the essence of what we're talking about, is how can we all improve and get better in society? And Tate, that I think a lot of people are going to disagree, but I think that's kind of his message as well.
No, it is. But the thing is, he also throws in there any empire that was run by women would quickly be conquered by men, which is true.
Right.
But when you say it like that, it's offensive to people, and they don't like to hear it.
Well, here's one of the things I learned about Tate. What I think he's so cunning and so smart, because he knows what he's doing. It's like how
he certainly knows what he's doing.
You'll prepare for an interview. If you have Dr. Scott Galloway, you'll watch and read his book and watch hours of content.
Read every single thing.
100%.
Yes.
So one of the things that Tate told me, kind of off camera, he might even said it on camera, to be honest with you. And he goes, the way that I choose my words is very important, because that's what gets the clicks and gets the eyeballs. We're living in the attention economy. So I don't think it's that controversial to say that men are stronger than women, right? Like most men could beat up an average woman. Like that's not controversial. But what is controversial is to say, well, women are weak. Yeah, I said it.
And they need a man to follow.
They need a man, exactly. And so he knows what he's doing. So
my sister is her husband's property. You remember when he said that?
Yes.
Like that was a hard one to walk back from.
Yes.
And I understood what he was saying, because he was using the Torah and the Old Testament and the Quran to talk about man and woman being one flesh during marriage. And I got that, but like I couldn't have said that. But of course I don't have 12 billion searches of my name on TikTok either. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's just like, it's this weird dichotomy where you just don't know. And I'm always wondering how far I'm pushing the line. And my whole thing is, from an integrity standpoint, am I saying things that I think I could defend, or am I saying things that I can show with some statistics that I believe this thing to be true?
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I'll say it if I believe that. And if I don't, I won't. For him, he went on Piers Morgan. He said the same thing I would have said, which is there's a couple of words I probably would have used differently in some of these things that he was saying. Right. But best communicator I've ever seen. PBD is completely right about that. I really do think it was just incredible, the whole thing that's happening there, with what he was able to accomplish in that short a period of time. And when he lost everything, when all the stuff got canceled, I was texting him. He lost his Uber. He lost his.
Oh yeah, that was the most shocking.
He lost his
thing
PayPal. He lost. Don't tell me there isn't a fucking conspiracy. When he lost his Uber at the same time he lost his Instagram. Don't tell me that these companies aren't conspiring. That is unassailable proof that they're conspiring.
Well, I fully agree with you, Michael. And I kind of had like a little joke before we interviewed Tate. Was when he got canceled, because we had the first quote unquote big interview after he got canceled in September, I want to say. I said, don't you think some of these tech companies in Silicon Valley, what are the chances that they're all just on a WhatsApp text group chat together?
Yeah.
What are the chances, right? That the CEO of Uber, of PayPal, the PayPal mafia, of Airbnb, of all the tech companies, of Google, what are the chances? Like, oh, that's crazy talk. What do you mean? And it turns out that's exactly what ended up happening, because once his Stripe account got taken down and his ability to bank and make money got taken down.
Your Postmates and your Uber get taken down with your Instagram.
And your Airbnb.
Airbnb. Don't tell me this isn't a conspiracy.
It's ridiculous.
You sound moronic if you say that. Yeah. Of course it's a conspiracy. It's ridiculous. And that was the whole thing. It was like, listen, I get why they had some issues, but like we said before, we brought up the leader of Saudi Arabia and the leader of Iran, who have said horribly, like homophobic.
Death to America.
Death to America.
Death to home.
And they still have accounts. So let's not be a hypocrite and say, and by the way, if you want to get rid of people who hate women, get rid of Instagram. Nobody hates women more than Instagram. Be an attractive woman on Instagram, dance, do anything on there, your account's taken down, and they don't even tell you why. But guess how Instagram got popular? Through those same women. Through those same women. And then they just get rid of their accounts. Nobody hates women more than Instagram. And they do this because there's this woke narrative there that it's like, no, you wear a bikini. Do you know that the only reason you wear that bikini is because a patriarchy has convinced you that you're supposed to wear that bikini, and you don't even have any fucking agency? You're such a dumb woman. I'm like, wait, the people on the left are calling you dumb women? I believe in personal freedom and agency. You should be able to wear whatever you want. I had the former Playmate on here. Well, actually, she just made Playboy. Battle Sky. She was on here. Jordan Sky. She was on here, and she was like, "If my man wants big fake titties, blue eyes, and a tiny waist, that's what I'm going to give my man." And I'm like, "There you go. That's it." But the thing is, what women were saying is, no, that means you're doing it for a man. And what she's saying is like, no, I have the agency to choose to do it for a man. Does that make sense? I do things to make my girlfriend happy because I like a happy home. I do.
When did that change on Instagram? Because
after Meta bought them. Yeah, you used to be able to post nudity on Instagram back in the day, like in the early days.
I still to this day, I mean, maybe things have changed even more so. Girls where nothing basically.
But ask any of those girls, and you'll look and you'll say Kim Smith 4. And because
Kim's their fourth account.
Yeah, because Kim Smith 1 had 2 million subs. It'll say it read in the bio. It'll say Kim Smith 1 deleted. Yeah. This is Kim Smith 4, 70,000 followers. Look in the bio. You'll see how many they'll post like their biggest one.
So where's the line there? Do you think that Instagram should allow nudity or sexual content? What's the line?
The line is what Rumble did with YouTube is what somebody else should do with Instagram. Someone should come up with like 2014 terms of service and basically say, if I don't see an areola, a vagina, or a rectum, you can post whatever you want.
But on a different
platform.
But I'm saying, what should Instagram do?
Nothing. They should succumb to the laws of supply and demand.
Did you use that word unintentionally? Succumb?
No. That's funny. I think someone should come up with a better platform that allows for more freedom, and Instagram should succumb to the laws of supply and demand. I don't think regulation is the way to do it. I think the way to do it is for somebody who's super wealthy, several $1 billion, some content creators who've lost their account. Like you saw Kim Kardashian lost her TikTok recently.
Did she really?
Yes. They should come together. They should create their own app and their own app with their own servers and use AWS and all this kind of stuff. And on doing so, the rules should be like what Rumble has. Well, maybe not Rumble. Maybe a little bit more strict than Rumble.
Are you on Rumble, by the way?
Yeah, Rumble, you can do anything. You can do anything. Rumble, bro, you can talk about that dude who ran Germany in 1939 all day long. Bro, it is crazy what you can get away with on Rumble. All right, so let's talk about this. So I'm a Dallas Mavericks fan. So have you noticed this? I'll bring this up. So a friend of mine, she dated Kristaps Porzingis, and she dated Chris Humphries. And then Carmen Diaz, what's her name? Cameron Diaz. What's the girl's name? Carmen Electra.
Yeah.
Okay, so
gorgeous.
So Porzingis played what position?
Power forward.
And what about Chris Humphries?
Power forward.
What position did Dennis Rodman play?
Power forward.
And then when which one of the Jenners was dating Blake Griffin?
That was Kendall.
What position does he play?
Well, she's dated half the league.
Okay,
so,
power forward.
Yeah.
Cool. And then Chloe was married to who?
Lamar Odom, power forward.
And who?
Yeah.
And who's?
Oh, Tristan Thompson.
Who plays what position?
Power forward.
Is this not fucking crazy? Am I the only one who?
Power forward.
Am I the only one who notices this? Like there were several more. It's like the fact that this kept happening, and then that they keep dating power forwards. It's like the centers are too ogre and tall, and the small forward, like they're not going after LeBron, right? It's just isn't it funny that they all go after guys who play the same position?
I think any old point guard, like there's allegedly rumors that Kim Kardashian and Chris Paul.
Yeah.
Chris Paul is our height. Yeah. Right. So it's not.
And Swaggy P with Iggy Azalea.
Right.
Yeah, that happened.
He's a shooting guard. Well, and Kendall was dating Devin Booker.
Austin.
And Jordan Clarkson.
What's his face? Miles Austin was with Kim Kardashian right before Chris Humphries. In fact,
wide receiver.
Yeah, wide receiver.
Cowboys.
He's probably like 6'3".
Yeah. Reggie Bush.
Running
back, 5'10".
Yeah. I'm just saying, with the basketball players, isn't it crazy that they all seem to play the same position? After the seventh time I saw that, I was like,
because if you're a chick and you don't know shit about sports,
yeah,
right? You don't know anything. You don't know who's scoring,
yeah,
who's rebounding. What's more attractive to you, the small forward or the power forward?
That must be what it was.
Give me that power forward, buddy.
All right. So you grew up friends with Chris Humphries.
Yeah.
How did that work out?
Played basketball.
Yeah. The girl who dated Kristaps Porzingis and dated, I'll tell you off air, and dated Chris Humphries also dated Danilo Gallinari. It's just like
another power forward.
I can't make this up, bro.
Another power forward.
It's like no variety. Anyway, go ahead.
We maybe have different definitions of dated these days. I don't know. We'll see what that. I don't know who the girl is. I'm not saying yes or no, but the story goes. So I meet Chris. I'm playing in these like my mom's from Minnesota. All my cousins live in Minnesota. I was pretty good at basketball, and I'm playing in these like semi-pro summer league games when I'm in college, basically. And I think I was like 20 at the time, and Chris is about 4 or 5 years younger than me. So he's 14, 15, and we're playing with college players, some NBA players. Chris Carr, who played in the NBA dunk contest, he was putting the whole thing on. And here's Humphrey shows up. He's 15 years old, and he's the best player on the court. It's not even close. At 15, against 21-year-olds, against NBA players. And we're in touch. It's nothing crazy. He's fucking high school, right? Fast forward, he makes it to the NBA. He's 19 years old, and one of my best friends, my cousin's best friend, became his agent or like his manager at the time, whatever. and we're all hanging out in LA, and nothing gets hot models to pay attention to you than a new multi-millionaire power forward for the Utah Jazz at the time. So what I told Humphrey, this was in LA, when I told Humphries is the same thing I've told rappers, athletes, Kardashians, influencers. I was like, when you're in New York, like, I got nothing for you. Like, when you're in LA, don't call me. You go to Chicago, you go to Dallas, I'm not your guy. But if you ever come to Miami, hit me up, okay? I got you. Like, whatever you need in Miami, I got you. And he hits me up, and I'm running a hotel at the time that one of my other best friends owns, and get him a room all hooked up. So he's 19. He's not even old enough to get into the goddamn club.
Yeah.
So he's going clubbing with me, and we go from being like playing ball together to being friends to being close friends to being one of my best friends. And before I even started making money when I was 26, 27, 24, 25, I used to crash on Kris's couch. He bought a place in Miami. Like, I had no money. I was a club promoter. And we just became real tight. And I'll never forget the day, and Kris was getting some fun. He was dating hot chicks, but he calls me up one day, and he goes, "Hey, I'm coming down." Like, no
warning,
no nothing. Hey, I'm coming down to Miami. My girl that I'm with, she wants to ask you some questions about like who you know and like, if you have mutual contacts.
Yeah.
And because we'll plan on going out this weekend. I'm like, all right, cool. She's like, "Hey, Adam, what's up? Like, I've heard so much about you. It's Kim, and I'm coming down with Kris, and we're gonna have fun this week." And I'm like,
what year is this?
This is 2011.
My only question was,
Yeah.
did she meet Kris Humphries while she was dating Miles Austin? That is always because Miles Austin played for the Cowboys, and then she ended up going to a Mavericks game. Is that where she met Kris Humphries?
No, she met him at a New Jersey Nets game. She went.
Oh, so she was playing for the Nets at the time.
He was playing for the Nets. So maybe it was 2010.
Okay.
Carla DeBello, do you know Carla? Mm-mm. She was best friends with Kim. She was, I think, dating Jordan Farmar at the time. It was in New Jersey. I know that.
Yeah.
The Dallas Cowboy knew was like, "Dude, it better not have been during the Miles Austin days," who was like a Pro Bowler for like 2 years, I want to say. Yeah. So no, I don't think it was during that time. But point is, she's like, I was like, she's telling me, "Hey, we're coming down to Miami, and and we're gonna go to Live and Dave Grutman," and I was like, "All right, cool, like, yeah, of course, yeah, whatever." And I was like, "Which Kim is this?" She's like, "Stop being so silly, Kim Kardashian. Kris told you," and I'm like, "What the?" I go, "Put Kris back on the phone." I go, "Dude, again, no warning, no heads up." I was like, "Who the fuck are you with right now?" He's like, "Just be cool, bro. I'll see you this weekend." Click. And I'm just like, what just happened? And then everyone thinks it was like some sham wedding or whatever. Like,
no, I believe it.
For a year, it was
the reason why I knew
everything.
The reason why I knew it wasn't a sham wedding was because Kris Humphries was going to do an appearance at Tao, I believe, and I could be wrong, but I think it was Tao. It may have been an AMG property, and the Kardashians told whoever owned the club, "We will not do any appearances with you if he appears." And then they took the flyer down. Like, that's bitterness. To me, that means it was real.
After the fact.
This is after the.
So it was 100%
So there's
real.
a flyer for his appearance, and then the divorce is announced.
Well, if you want to know my opinion on what happened, I'll tell you what happened. Mm-hmm. And Kris is one of my best friends. I'm not trying to put his business out there, but those dudes. Number one, they're at a game. Speaking of power forwards, like, she's looking at the game pamphlet. What is it called? Like
I forgot what it's called. The roster.
They're just looking at the pamphlet they give you for free when you go to a game. And if you're any hot chick and you see athletes, and especially if your last name's Kardashian and you have a propensity towards multimillionaire athletes, you're scouting.
Yeah,
recruiting.
let's just say, for those of you who don't know, Kris Humphries is a 6'10", very, very good looking guy.
Yes.
Yeah. He does not look like a typical power forward. No, he looks like a male model who happens to be 6'10".
100%.
Yeah.
And it done very good things for me, just rolling out with that guy and all that. But so her words, not mine. She saw on the pamphlet or whatever.
Yeah.
The brochure.
Yeah.
Why can't I think of the word?
The game something. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Whatever they give you in front of the beginning of the game.
No idea.
Yeah.
Okay. The thing that looks like this.
Yeah. The game
so,
nuts, whatever.
And she looks. She goes, "Oh, he's hot." Looks at his name. Kris starts with a K. That's her mom's name. It's over. Okay? She tells Jordan Farmar's friend that he was playing for New Jersey at the time, hey, does Kris want to grab dinner after the game? You're Kris Humphries. You're a relatively obscure NBA player.
I just want you to consider her asking him out.
Yeah,
like, just consider that.
No, she said to her girlfriend, tell Jordan, who was his teammate, Jordan Farmer, who ended up winning a championship for the Lakers, all that. Let's go out for dinner after the game. So you're Humphries. You're playing in New Jersey. Kim Kardashian wants to grab dinner with you after the game. What do you say?
Yeah.
Sure. All right, cool. So they hang out. Now, if you know anything about Kris, again, not putting his business out there, but for instance, your current girlfriend, Kylie, gorgeous girl. On average, how long does it take for you to say, I love you to a girl?
On
average.
I've only, maybe done it once, and it was over 7 months. Maybe longer than that.
Kris will tell you in the first 10 minutes.
So first 10 minutes, yeah.
And that's his game. I love you, baby. Like, what do we, and like, so if you're Kim, you're 30 years old at the time. We all know that women have that 30 ticking time bomb. Like, all right, I'm 30. I got to get married. I got to have kids thing. Here's some 6'9", 6'10", multimillionaire NBA player, just signed a $50 million contract with, it was New Jersey becoming Brooklyn at the time.
Yeah.
That was right in that year. And you're attracted to him. His name starts with a fucking K. It's the same name as your mom with a Kris, Kris. And he tells you he loves you. And obviously we all know how like things can escalate in a relationship. We're in love, boom, 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 boom. They're full on dating. And we're taking trips to Miami. We're going, and because this is one of my best friends and my schedule was very free at the time, we're going trips to Joe Francis's house in Mexico. I'm staying at Kim's house in the Hollywood Hills, wherever the hell it was.
Kim is famous. Kim is not famous like she is now.
No.
Yeah. Now Kim is 400 million on IG famous.
There was no IG.
There was no IG back then. Yes.
Think about that.
Kim was Kim had a sex video on a New Balance commercial. Like that's what, she was famous, but she wasn't, and she was doing club appearances because that's where I met her. She was doing club appearances. But
there was no Kylie.
Yeah.
There was no Kendall.
Yes.
Khloe was still fat. Courtney was married to Scott. Like it was. This is 10 years ago.
Yeah.
When I met Kendall and Kylie, I walked Khloe down the aisle at the wedding. Fast forward to all this. Kendall and Kylie weren't even 18 yet. They were like 15 and 16, whatever it was. Like you can't look at those girls. You can't talk to those girls. You're not trying to go to jail. I knew Kylie when she's like eating fucking mushrooms. Not mushrooms. Marshmallows, fried mushrooms, roasted mushroom. I was like, she's like sucking it down. I'm like, this girl's going to be something one of these days. But it was a real thing. It was a real thing. But I think then what happens, like in any relationship, let's just be honest for a second. In any relationship, you have your honeymoon stage, your first 3 to 6 months, and it's the best and everything's amazing. And then all of a sudden you're really dating and you're picking up laundry and you got dogs involved and you've got family.
It's crazy.
You're planning a wedding and it's like, all right, well, I don't, the wedding's limited and bless you. And we only have a certain amount of, and like things start escalating in any relationship. Now you're fighting. Now the honeymoon stage is over. And the problem is in most relationships, you can just kind of take a step backwards and break up.
But they can't.
When you've already announced that you're fucking having a wedding extravaganza and you've booked out the event and there's lights, camera, action, it's kind of hard to be on the altar and be like, yeah, I don't know if I want to do this anymore because there's millions of dollars on the line. And I think what happened was even at the wedding, there was cracks in the armor a little bit, but they were just like, let's go through with this. A lot of eyeballs, a lot of money.
Yeah.
And then they went on a honeymoon and then probably just realized, look, this is not actually meant to be. P.S. Let's not forget, Kanye's texting, saying certain things like, literally, don't marry this idiot. You're my girl, whatever the hell he was saying at the time. So, yeah, it was a crazy fucking situation.
When I watch stuff like that, because one of the things that would concern, I have some friends of mine, I'm sure you do too, that are super wealthy, like over 100 million or super famous, and they don't have a group of people around them that will tell them no, right? When I watch situations like that, I want to learn from them. My relationship with Kylie, obviously when I met her, I was like, this is the hottest girl I've ever seen in my life. But I also knew that if this was going to last a long time, we're going to have to both set boundaries and we're going to have to both agree to certain rules. And I think this is the first time, obviously she's in her early 20s, so it's definitely the first time she's ever been in a relationship like this. But because we set those rules, I always tell her, I was like, babe, I have a plan, and this is how we stay together for 20 years. If we can stick to these rules, we don't talk bad about each other behind each other's back, never embarrass each other. I need things that you can do to either bring me peace or help me with the company, and I'll be the same way with you. We never lied to each other. We never hold grudges for down the road, and you can ask me how I feel, but you can never tell me how I feel. Just basic rules like that.
But that's great that you have the wherewithal and knowledge to even know the rules of the game. Most men do not know those rules.
Well, the thing is, the other issue is most men I watch, it's really interesting, and you've probably seen it too. Whenever Kylie walks into a room with me, it disrupts everything. Very much like the ripples in the Matrix, like the movie The Matrix. Kylie will walk into a room and I watch pit bosses, I'll watch every gambler. They just stop what they're doing and they stare at her because she's just so unique looking. And
dark hair, blue eyes, pretty, big boobs, the whole deal.
Yeah, she's Native American. And so she's...
is that what it is?
So she'll do that, and it just disrupts everything around us. I know that most guys in my situation would not be able to have that discussion, but because I want a long-term relationship, that's why we need to have the discussion now, because successful people, if you look at what's the main thing that they all have in common, it is delayed gratification. So for us, the delayed gratification. The other thing for she's from Arkansas. And I always, I let her know sometimes, that whole thing where you guys get drunk as shit off moonshine and throw glass bottles and drive in circles and all that kind of stuff. I was like, I can never give you that. I need you to know this now before we get into a relationship. I'm never doing, not that she doesn't do any drugs, but I'm like, just so you know, I'm not doing drugs with your friends. We're not going to get hammered. None of that's ever going to happen. And when I wake up in the morning, I'm making money for us and the fucking pets. I got a plan, and I need you to be on board with this plan. And if you can't, then that's fine. But I just need to let you know. If I had been in this relationship when I was 25, anything she wanted, she would have completely walked over all of it. Anything she wanted.
Such a good point right there.
Literally, there's no way I could look at her and tell her no for anything. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Such a good point, Michael. Of course.
And that's the thing. I respect her enough to want this long-term relationship. And while she is still probably the hottest girl I've ever seen in my life, the thing is, I've dated supermodels before, and so it doesn't affect me the same way. Just like first time you hear a gun pop, whoa, but you're on a gun range and you just hear it pop for a while, it just becomes normal. It's the same kind of situation with that. And that's what happens, I think, with Kanye and Kim, or with Kris Humphries and Kim, it's like they don't know how to set boundaries, and they'll just figure it out down the line. You know what I'm saying? And then they can't set boundaries because they can't go anywhere. I don't know any as famous as them, but I know Bilzerian, he can't go to the store. He can't just go to the fucking store.
Of course. He's
got to have security guards with him. I'm sure PBD is getting close to that.
Yeah, it's getting there. But I think your point is, with age comes wisdom, right? And you're 44 and 45 now.
45.
And you look great, and you kept it together 100%. I'm 42. It's we get when I was 22. So you're saying the hottest girl you've ever seen with I was. In college, it's so funny how these things happen. In college, in high school, I was not a pimp. I wasn't getting a ton of chicks. I was playing football. I was playing basketball. I was focused on. I go to college at Florida State, and it's whoa. It's the first time anyone's come to Vegas, and they go to the fucking Wet Republic pool party. They're like, what is Michael Sartain taking me to? What is happening right now?
You don't even think it's real that women can look like that.
It's this is here.
Yeah.
So I go to Florida State, and obviously I'm, and all right, so I'm interested in this girl, I'm interested in this girl, and the rumor is that this gorgeous 6-foot model girl, Naomi, likes me. And Michael, I'm sure you've been there. When you'd never have been with ridiculously hot girls, and quote unquote, some girl likes you, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? You're pranking me? Are you?
Is this for real?
This isn't for real.
And then you don't want to mess it up. And if you don't have enough experience, you will mess it up.
Exactly. So what do? You basically don't do anything. Yeah. And you avoid the situation. So they're so we had a mutual friend, exactly, and they're like, hey, well, are you gonna go talk to her? She says that she thinks you're cool or cute or whatever. And I was like, dude, I know you're lying to me. You're fucking with me right now. Fast forward, we're at a party, and the one thing a hot girl never gets is no.
Right.
That's the one thing they never get. Hey, honey, I want to do this. Yeah, okay, sure, whatever you want. Hey, buy me this. Yeah, whatever you want. But so for a guy, and believe me, this was not tactical. This was me not believing that this girl liked me, and I was shy and scared to go talk to the girl. She corners me at a party at a fucking keg party at Florida State. And she's like, so you're playing hard to get, huh? And I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm playing hard to get.
You don't have enough experience at that point in your life
Yes.
to know if she just wants attention or if she actually wants to have sexual intercourse with you.
You have no clue what's going on. And so the best thing you can always do is play it cool.
Yeah.
You're just like, nah, I'm busy, I got a lot of school or whatever it is. Long story short, I ended up dating this girl all throughout college. And this shaped my entire life because everyone's like, kind of how like Kylie is now. It's like, everyone's like, dude, that's the hottest girl. To this day, everyone's like, oh yeah, Adam's with a hot girl. Did you see this guy's girlfriend in college? And what I realized is a couple things. The hottest girls are the most insecure.
Yeah.
The hottest, because everywhere they go, it's based on their looks. And when their looks aren't exactly up to par.
That's the language they speak.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
And that for you to, this whole concept of like, you've had MLD on your podcast. Have you spoken with John?
He sat across from here.
Okay.
We had a
so
yeah.
There's certain things that are undeniable, like money, muscles, game.
Sure.
I've learned about frame. But my frame in college, I was goo goo gaga, like puppy dog for the girl.
Yeah.
But I had to learn the hard way that like you have to set boundaries and be able to say no. And as hot as a girl is, kind of just like, all right, take a deep breath. There's a million fucking hot girls. There's only one Michael Sartain. Let me just kind of.
And by the way, if you have problems with that, go look up the female delusional calculator and the male delusional calculator.
Yes.
Go look at that right there so you can see there are so many fewer of you if you're a man who has your shit together than a woman who's attractive. It's like it's 700 to 1.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and ultimately I had to learn from dating this girl, like, all right, how do you interact with women? Because that gave me the confidence to be like, all right, I've already been with the hottest
Somebody
girl.
that hot, yeah.
I've already been with a 10 out of 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I remember who that girl was
What
for me. Yeah.
you remember? And then all of a sudden it's like, now I'm gonna kiss some fucking sassy 8's ass in Miami. But it's not happening. These guys are working hard out here.
Yeah.
But so the female delusional calculator, if you can realize there's so many hot women out there, but if you can become that top 10% of men, the options are galore. You could be 45, 42, whatever, and still be killing the game.
I feel like, again, before I was in a relationship, I've never had an easier time getting women to want to date me and commit to me than recently. And the reason why is because my competition is Machine Gun Kelly and Tekashi 6ix9ine. I feel like there's this push, this narrative to get men to be so incredibly open and vulnerable from the jump, which is unattractive to women. If Leonardo DiCaprio comes up to you, to a beautiful woman, he's like, hey, I just think you're beautiful. I just want to let you know you're beautiful. Her heart's going to melt. If a homeless person does it, she's going to be like, get the fuck away from me. Right. You're creeping me out.
Creepy.
You can't give value unless you have value. And this is where guys are really getting screwed up. And I've said this before, get me in some trouble, I really don't care. The reason why women tell men to just be yourself is so they can tell who the losers are quicker. That's why.
You think there's an ulterior motive?
I think it's an evolutionary adaptation. I think hypergamy, you'll note how many times, you see this all the time, the girl who says, these are the things that I want in a man, and then you look at who she sleeps with, and it's these things that she hates. Mm-hmm. Because women don't understand the difference between what makes them feel comfortable with a man, where she's gaining power, and what makes her feel attracted to man, in which case she's losing power. Her being outrageously attracted to a man, she's losing power. So when I go host a bikini competition, I have a girlfriend, she's gonna be like, I don't know if I want you to go do that, because I'm losing power. But she sees me pre-selection, there's all these women like surrounded me, she might become more attractive. I'm just using this as a hypothetical. It's not a specific example. But as a hypothetical, that's the sort of thing that might happen.
How does a girl lose power versus gain power dealing with men from a girl side?
So you as a man, you become wealthier, better looking, in better shape, and she can visually see in real life and through social media, virtually, all this other attention you get from women, right? That thing is going to cause what Rollo calls dread. There's another term for it, mate guarding. I forgot what it's called in evolutionary psychology.
I've heard mate guarding.
But Rollo calls it dread. You need some level of dread. Rollo actually mentioned this. I hope he doesn't get mad at me for saying this, but he's like, every time he does Access Vegas, he goes home and his wife just can't wait to jump on him because she sees him with all these other women.
Protective, yeah.
Correct. And so that's what was the original point? That was the original
about value between what a girl finds gains value or loses value.
For sure. Not it's gains power or loses power.
Or power.
As he gains more social media followers, gains more networking control, you're going to notice her try to say, no, let's stay home and watch Netflix. The deer is never going to teach you how to catch the deer. When you do these things, like here's Alex the accountant, here's Brock the bartender. Alex the accountant sends her flowers at work, is super sweet to her, calls her these sweet names, sends her notes, opens her door. Brock the bartender calls her in the middle of the night, hey, what are you up to? Swing by, let's hook up. No respect for her whatsoever. But you and I both know she fucks Brock. She doesn't fuck Alex. And that's the thing that women either don't want you to know or they can't accept themselves, but it's an evolutionary adaptation that is fueled by the algorithm that is called hypergamy. Hypergamy fuels that, and that's the reason why that happens. Let's talk.
How should men take that information and put it into their own life?
Immersion.
If they're Alex the accountant.
Yeah.
And they don't want to be Brock the bartender. They want to,
I didn't want to be an asshole either, but I kept seeing assholes win. Here's the trick.
You said immersion?
Immersion. So the trick is immersion. The trick for me is, so when you join the U.S., you join the infantry, they put you behind a berm and they fire live rounds over your head. They're not going to hit you, but you know if you stand up, you're going to die.
Shit.
At first, your heart rate's at, the 120s. Then you do it the second time, it's in the 90s. Then you do it the third time, and then finally, you're in the 60s. Your heart rate is like, oh, they're just shooting. You're just talking to your buddy. Hey, what's going on?
You just know, don't stand up because you'll get shot in the face.
So your autonomic nervous
system.
Real
bullets, by the way?
Yeah, real bullets. Your autonomic nervous system is firing, which causes sweaty palms, dilation of pupils, increased adrenaline, increased sweat. There's a few other things that happen in the autonomic nervous system. By the way, this is why psychopaths are psychopaths, because they don't have those reactions. So now we do the same thing with a woman, because these bullets going over my head is a survival scenario. Me walking up to a woman for the first time when there's only like 5 women I may ever have to mate with in my entire life, 50,000 years ago, Dunbar's number, about 150 people in a tribe. There's only 5. If I fuck up with this girl, I am unapologetically weeded out of existence. My genes are. So my first approach to the girl is very nerve-wracking. So palm sweat, eyes get bigger. Big one if you have a buddy who does this. Hey guys, what's going on? You're talking to your buddy John. John's like, yo, man, let's go watch some fucking football, man. Let's go watch I want to go watch Tua and the Dolphins. All right, man, let's go watch Jimmy Buckets. That's awesome. Then you see that same guy walk up to a girl. Hey guys, what are you guys doing? You guys want to go get a little drink with us?
Very feminine.
You guys good? Let's go do that. I don't want to seem like I'm threatening. I want to seem very non-threatening so that maybe I can get around you and like accidentally get some pussy. That's what happens to men. The constriction of their vocal cords is another autonomic nervous thing. So how do you cancel that? Immersion. I threw up my first 7 flights in the Air Force. I used to eat Subway just so I could throw up in the bag. I threw up the first 7 flights.
Because they have those long bags.
Yeah, those long bags. I was vomiting in those things. After a while, I stopped throwing up. Immersion. The motions, for me,
immersing yourself into the vicinity of women.
Yeah, deceleration makes my stomach go forward. It causes me to become nauseous. Just a problem that I had. Even in the Cessna, I had that problem. So you become immersed to it. That is the trick. What is the easiest way to become immersed with women? Doesn't mean you're going to have sex with all of them. What's the easiest way? There's a couple ways that are cheating, which would be strip clubs and prostitutes, but there's another way. Having female friends. Hundreds of them. All over the place. Then you get used to being around these women, not needing to attract them, but still being able to hold interesting conversations. And when you do that over a while, that is the immersion that you get that causes your autonomic nervous system to not fire, and you act like a normal dude.
There's another way too.
What is it?
Hosting a podcast that has hundreds of women on it.
Of course, that's immersion, but that is just immersion.
100%.
Yeah, Brody is your friend, right? But here's the thing, in a vacuum, not you and Brody, but someone like you and someone like Brody could be friends and then accidentally hook up also, right? Or with Posh, would they grow Posh?
Yeah, Posh, yeah.
Same thing, Posh. Someone like you could be friends with her completely. When you meet her, she has a boyfriend. They break up. She comes on the show every once in a while, and you guys accidentally hook up. Because this is another thing that a lot of guys have a problem with. Being friends with a woman and having sex with her have nothing to do with each other. Women frequently have sex with men they do not like. They're attracted to them, yes, but they have sex with men like, that guy's a fucking asshole. They have sex with him. Women frequently have sex with women. Women frequently have sex with men that they adore. He's like a brother to me. He's so incredible. I love all the things that Alex does for me. But you never had sex with him, did you? And so what we say in MOA, a couple things: treat them all the same, make them talk about themselves. And number 2, women vote with their vagina. They don't vote with their mouth. They don't vote with their feet. They vote with their vagina. What they're actually attracted to, they're going to let you know by having sex with that person.
Yeah.
And so when you listen to that, then the equation becomes so much simpler. And then you have that understanding.
What was the thing you said right before that is let them talk.
Treat them all the same, make them talk about themselves.
Yeah.
That's what I do if I met Elon Musk. That's what I would do if I met anybody. I treat them all the same. Make them talk about themselves. When I talk to Bilzerian, I treat them all the same. I treat Dan like I treat everybody else. I treat people just the same. The only difference with me is I do a little bit more research on people than most people do, and I want to have a conversation with something that you'd be interested in, like female friends or nightlife or finance or something like that.
Why does that work with women so well? Treat them all the same and let them talk about themselves.
Imagine.
I totally understand why you want to let them talk about themselves, because people like talking about themselves. Totally get that.
Imagine the top tier of women. They're going to get lots of messages in their IG. Let me see your bobs and vagine. Some Indian guy sending that to them, completely non-contextual, receiving dick pics. There's constantly this aggression that happens towards women from other men showing intent. This is another thing we say in MOA. Women do not sleep with you because of your intent. They sleep with you because of your status. And unfortunately, the pickup community since 2003 has been teaching this lie that women sleep with you because of your intent. Women know, like Kylie walks into a room and she knows every dude there is attracted to her. She knows that.
She knows that.
Kim Kardashian knew it. Like all these girls, they're fully aware. You showing your intent does nothing. In fact, you literally gave an example of a girl you didn't show any intent to, and she came after you. Women do not sleep with you because of your intent. They sleep with you because of your status or your perceived status in their eyes, right? Which is kind of a cool segue, because the thing I do want to ask you about is what happens when you don't have the immersion. What happens when you get married to the first woman you have sex with? There's studies that show when two people are virgins and they get married, there's a far higher likelihood chance of them staying together than not. But we see the situation with Steven Crowder, where he ends up sleeping with the first woman that he ends up marrying the first woman he slept with, according to him.
They took each other's virginity.
Correct. And I, to my understanding, Shapiro did the same thing, right? Ben Shapiro?
I believe so.
Yeah. The problem with that is, you and I would say unequivocally, if Ben Shapiro was here and Steven Crowder was here, which, holy shit, if they were here. But if they were, I would say, hey guys, just to let you know, the two of us understand female nature better than you do. No matter what you say, no matter what books you read, and no matter what it says in the Torah or the Old Testament, we understand women better than you do. I become a better programmer by spending time programming. I become a better three-point shooter by spending time shooting threes. And you garner an understanding of women by being around women, dating with women. Immersion. So that's what I learned today. Their total lack of immersion is the reason. I'm not saying this is going to happen to Ben Shapiro, but the situation with Steven Crowder, I feel like this whole thing is a failure. Part of the reason why is in Steven Crowder's place. Steven Crowder promotes a narrative. His narrative is pro-gun, pro-family, pro-life, pro-Christianity, pro-right-wing, right? And he does that. And he spits facts, but he's also trying to piss people off, which I actually like about him. You know, he does say, when he sits there on those college campuses, he wants them to scream.
Of course.
Right? He knows.
At the end of the day, because we did a podcast with Crowder recently, he views himself as a comedian.
Yes, I do too. I think he's great.
You know, when you're a comedian, you test boundaries, you push limits, and I think he's great at that.
He's got this just slightly punchable face too, that the girls like go crazy and they just want to hit him, right?
He knows that too.
Yeah. So that's the thing with Crowder. The problem is that narrative fell apart when his wife filed for divorce, because what was supposed to happen, Adam, is that you treat your wife with respect. You love her, you cherish her, like it said, those words in the Bible. You do those things, and then you provide for her. Obviously, she's well provided for. You give her children, and she shouldn't want to leave you. She should stay with you forever, and it didn't happen.
You follow this blueprint, and nothing bad can happen.
Correct. Again, the guy who gets rich by not using numerology is a threat to numerologists. And the guy who gets divorced while following the tenets of Christianity is now a threat to his audience. Do you see what I'm saying? And so that's why I think this thing is so big. It's almost like, I don't mean to make this a one-to-one analogy, but it's the super anti-gay, the vice, the lieutenant governor of Tennessee turning out to be openly homosexual. Did you ever read about this?
Well, not this specific story, but like Joe Rogan tells a story about, what was it? Ted Haggard, that anti-gay preacher.
Yeah.
And it turns out he was just smoking pole all day long in the back.
Now, I don't want to equate this to that, because
no, it's 0%. I'm not saying that whatsoever, but you were making an analogy there.
But the analogy is you were on this one side, and then this was a prescription that was supposed to work for us. Just like Rich Cooper, or when Donovan Sharp say, don't date babies' mamas, that's a prescription that they give, right? This is one of the things, I don't give prescription. I have one prescription. If you're a dude and your woman brings women home for you to have threesomes with and you cheat on her, fuck you. That's the only prescription I have. That's the only prescription.
And define prescription.
Prescription is like, so a description is 78% of divorces are initiated by women, and 83% of the time when a woman cheats, she falls in love with her affair partner. That's a description of evolutionary psychology. A prescription is don't marry kids with women with children. A prescription is don't date girls with tattoos. A prescription is always hold the frame. A prescription is don't let your girl have an OnlyFans. That's a prescription. Does that make sense?
It's more like anecdotal advice kind of a thing. It's
advice
not
for the future. Whereas this is a description of the past.
Gotcha.
Because you and I just generally don't judge people. I don't have a problem with these people becoming trans, but partially it's because I don't have kids. I'm thinking if I had kids, I would probably have a different view of a lot. I'd probably be a lot more.
I have a question for you. Not right now. I'll wait till the end of the podcast, whenever that is.
Okay. So anyway, with the Crowder thing, what do you think about that whole situation? He didn't sign a prenup, so you can't tell me he knows more about women than us if he didn't sign a prenup. He garnered all that wealth and decided to not sign a prenup.
Yeah.
That is foolish because the person you marry is not the same person as the person you divorce ever. And that goes for both genders. This was foolish. You understand? Like, again, there's a 53% divorce rate in this country. You know what I'm saying? When I go buy a house, there's not a 53% chance that my house is going to burn down, but I still buy house insurance. Why the fuck would I not get a prenup? He did not do that. Right. And now he's in this situation. And the other thing is that he's calling into question her mental illness. You remember this part too?
I didn't see that.
Yeah, so he's basically saying that all of these clips are taken out of context, and now he's trying to get like a Freedom of Information Act to show that she has a mental illness or something to that effect. Anyway, what do you think about the whole Crowder situation?
This is something that only because a month ago he was on PBD Podcast making his big announcement of basically that he was going to Rumble, and he used our platform to because everything the fallout that he had with the Daily Wire and on the backdrop of all of this, on the Daily Wire stuff, and the Rumble stuff, and the Mug Club, and everything he's doing, this divorce has been taking place since 2021.
Crazy.
Okay? All of this. And now he's getting into beef with Candace Owens and Jeremy Boring, who's the CEO of Daily Wire. All this stuff is happening right there. And just full disclosure, had a great time with Steven Crowder. Had an awesome dinner.
He seems super funny.
His whole team was there. Awesome guys. Had fun, cigars, drinks, cocktails, jokes. Like, just because we're talking about somebody doesn't mean we're talking negatively about somebody.
No, he's awesome. My point was he knows way more about broadcasting than I do, but I will tell you that the two men in this room know more about women than he does.
No doubt. And I think what happens is, for instance, if I married that first girl, Naomi, right? Or if you married the first girl that, the palms got sweaty, and you don't know any better. You're with a hot chick and you love each other. You're 23, 24. They took each other's virginity, allegedly. And like, you don't know any better. And for the men out there, you might be in that situation, but you always have to understand. You probably have the numbers out. You said 78% of the times the divorce are initiated by women, right? And then it goes up to like 90% when they're college educated. I've interviewed like the lead attorney. Have you ever done anything with him? Great guy. But
for who?
His name is the lead attorney.
No, I haven't.
He does stuff with Pearl. Anyway, shout out to him. But speaking from experience, I got, when I was briefly engaged, briefly married, a postnup. So people don't know. The people think that you only get a prenup. You can get a postnup where it's like, listen, I'm about to make a bunch of money. This is literally what happened to me. I'm about to make a bunch of money. We kind of had this like quick,
non-contested divorce.
Yeah. Well, no, quick marriage to kind of, I don't want to put my shit out there, but we got married very quickly for certain reasons. And I was about to make a ton of money and come into a good amount of money. And I said, before we go any further in this relationship, I'm going to need you to sign this postnup. She goes, okay, whatever you want, baby. And that protected me from whatever the future would hold. Because I said, God forbid that I start making some real money and I become partner at Valuetainment and I start this $100 billion media company and things going on. Now the chick that I'm with is now just entitled to half. And it's like, these are the difficult conversations you don't necessarily want to have as a guy. And a girl definitely is going to feel offended. But would you rather offend your girl and deal with it, or not offend your girl and have to cut her a check for $10 million or $10 billion, or in the case of Mackenzie Scott Bezos, $30 billion, and she's the richest woman on the planet. So it's like, if you're going to be a high value, high success man, like, you have to plan accordingly.
Yes.
You have to. Because women's, the rational male, let's use Rolo as an example, men tend to be more rational and women tend to be more emotional. How do I know that? Well, women can give birth and create life in their fucking body that has to have some, right, portion of emotions and hormones.
And then they're willing to die for the thing that came out of them. Yeah. And they put that thing that came out of them as a priority over anything else, which is why the species now has 8 billion people. That's
there you
correct.
go.
That's correct. Yeah.
Much love to the women out there.
Exactly.
But they go through hormones and periods, and women menstruate, and they go all through, like, when, you know, I don't think this is even that controversial. When women are having their period, they get super moody, super emotional, crazy sometimes. And they're like, all of a sudden, 7 days later, they're back to normal.
Uh-huh.
But if you just, you know, extrapolate that over time, they're going to be way more emotional in a relationship. And, you know, how often do you wake up and you had a dream and you accuse your girlfriend of cheating on you?
I know, that's happened.
Never.
She woke up.
Never. But a girl will wake up.
Kylie woke up and started hitting me one time. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought something bad happened to you.
Yes.
I'm here.
It's like I'm sleeping next to you.
Yeah.
But women are emotional creatures. Much love to them. So you can't have your entire finances and your legacy tied to their emotional whims of how they're feeling that week or that month or that year.
I also think it shapes their emotional whims because they understand what's at stake. You understand what I'm saying? The prenup will say, if you make it to 10 years and we have 2 kids, you get half. A lot of prenups will say that. But that's a common one I've seen. But if we break up at 2 years, then you don't get half. I've seen that one before, like your willingness to stay in the marriage. The reason why they're written that way is because the majority of divorces are initiated by women. There's one thing that kind of a segue because of what you just said. Breaking up over a purse. You were at 11. Shout out to 11. And you had a girl, you were at the strip club / nightclub, and a girl said, hey, why don't you take some money out and throw it in the air? I love the story.
Yeah.
I love the story because this story is setting boundaries.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, we don't like saying names on this type of show, but there was a girl that I was seeing, and kind of like if your girl had a sleeve tattoo.
Yeah.
And so hot.
Yeah.
And just so sexy, but you know it's so wrong for you long term. Like, there's certain red flags I have.
Sounds like a Bianca.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I have a friend named Bianca.
Okay, gotcha.
Tatted up sleeveless. Works at Lib. So.
You know,
works at 11.
Here for a good time, not a long time, right?
Yeah.
Type of thing. So I meet this girl and hit it off. Hey, you know, get your number. We'll exchange, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, all right. She's hot. Like, there's certain, like, red flags for me are tattoos on girls, OnlyFans girls, strippers, like, just, I'll have fun with you, but like at this point in my life, I generally am looking for like a serious girl to be with.
They for everybody.
Yeah.
Like Juicy J says.
Yeah, they for everybody.
They for everybody.
They for the game.
Yes.
You don't own these girls.
Yeah.
They belong to the game.
Are you the police?
Yeah.
Are you the police? Yeah.
So I meet this girl that, you know, belongs to the game, super attractive, super into her on a sexual level, but there's no connection there. It's just sexual. But we go out on a handful of dates, and there's definitely some red flags that are popping up, and we go out to, you know, some clubs, and, you know, so I have a bar in Miami, Bodega, right? That's my spot. Everyone come down if you're ever in Miami. And so I have to be friendly to people, especially people who are buying tables, especially women who are on bachelorette parties, especially the one girl in the white dress at her bachelorette party. So there I am with this girl in my spot, and I'm like, going to the bachelorette girl, like, hey, like, is everything cool? You having a good time? Where you from? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, you know, this is my spot. Everything, whatever you need. And the girl's like, who the fuck was that? I was like, the bachelorette? Yeah, why are you talking to her? I'm like, is this real life right now? What is happening right now? She was like, my man does not talk to other girls when he's out with me. I'm like, you're at my fucking bar. I'm talking to the bachelorette who's spending thousands of dollars. You need to chill the fuck out in very nice terms. Next thing you know, she Irish goodbyes, whatever. I'm just like, yo, good luck, whatever. But, you know, if you
She's
know,
fine, and you bump into her again.
You bump into her again, whatever.
I've been there.
Especially if she has hot friends and you have buddies and they're like, dude, do you have any hot chicks? I'm like, all right, cool. We'll go out with these girls tonight. So I'm with a couple buddies, with like a couple girls. And you're asking about the story about
the purse.
Yeah. Well, so Travis Scott was performing at 11.
Yeah.
At this particular night, and which is like, other than Live, the number one club in all of Miami. For sure. Probably number one club of the world at this point, 11. And she's like, I want to go. I love Travis Scott. All her girlfriends are like, Adam, please, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Like, at this point, like, tickets to even walk in, or $1,000, whatever it is. And this is the importance of having access. And shout out to your show.
I already knew exactly where you were going with this when you told the story. You just walked them right in.
Yeah,
and the girls didn't appreciate shit.
Exactly. Well, I said I'm gonna call in a favor, like one of the owners, one of the main guys. I never text them. It's the importance of not utilizing all your favors. Not using all your bullets. I say, all right, cool. I'm like, girls, good news. Like, we're gonna go around the back VIP. We get in, we walk in. They're like, oh my god. And so we're there, we're having a great time. We have a little section, we're all good. And she says, why don't we go get a lap dance together?
Bro, it's just they turn into these sharks. And like you can see it in their eyes because their eyys turn dead. The stripper thing, because I used to manage a strip club. And it's like you can see when they're being real with you and then when they're turning into these fucking sharks that are just about getting money. And like her whole internal programming on how to communicate with men has been reduced to get money out of him.
Yes.
If she doesn't know, it's not even that she even sees you as a sucker. She just doesn't know any other way to communicate.
She
with
likes
men,
me.
Sure.
Like, it's not like she's like, I'm some, the most I've ever bought her is some dinner. Like, I'm not buying her anything, like nothing. So she's like, let's go get a stripper together. This is what she wants to do. And I go, all right. She goes, well, why don't you go to ATM, pull out $1,000 and let's go have a good time. And now most men, just word to the wise,
would have said yes.
Most men who are with I've already had sex with her, like I've already been with her, some hot chick that you're super into sexually, not like romantically, so to speak, says, let's go into grab whatever girl you want, pull out $1,000, let's go have the best time of our lives. Most guys are going to be like, all right, where's the nearest ATM? But I say, all right, like, I'm not that, like, my whole thing is like paying for strippers. That's just not my thing, whatever. So I say, well, why don't we do this? Why don't you get 500 and I get 500 and let's go get crazy together? I would never. I'm like, well, why do you expect me to just go pump out $1,000 and just fund a great time? Keep in mind, I was the biggest hero you've ever met in your life 2 hours ago when I walked us through and saved us $5,000 from paying at Travis Scott.
Yeah.
Oh, but that was like earlier. Now it's like they just, when hot chicks, they get whatever they want. And I set boundaries. I was like, no, like, I'm not doing this. I'm not going to the ATM. And it's just like, it's not happening. Oh, you're such a this, you're such a that. I'm like, all right, cool. Let's get the fuck out of here. So we ended up leaving. We got home. Like you always talk about, like, the goal is to like get home by 2 o'clock in the morning, not 5 o'clock in the morning.
The after party is the failure. Like, I love 11. It's great. But if you're with a girl who likes you and you went to 11 to do coke, not that anyone at 11 would ever do coke.
Ever.
Shout out to DJ Irie. Shout out. Not
That's my guy.
Not that
Love Irie.
Not that it would ever happen. But, or at Dre's After Hours. That would never happen there.
No.
But
if they would,
I would rather win in the fourth quarter by scoring a bucket with the time running out than have to go to overtime. And that's what the after hours is. It's overtime, and that's always a problem that I've had is that guys they're backwards. Their goal is now the overtime. No, you're addicted to alcohol and coke. That's why you're going to this after party.
Fully agree.
Like, and now as we go progressively longer through the night, fewer women are there and more men are there, and they're competing even harder to get these very few women that are there. And the ones you end up getting at the end are so incredibly slutty. Like, what was the point of you doing this in the first place?
I mean, I'm
not a fan of the after hour.
Yes.
Love 11 because they play good music and I see a bunch of my friends.
I will say, like, you know, one of the things that Pat and I always talk about is our goal is not perfection. Like, I've been to the after parties. I've done all this. Like, our goal is improvement and getting better, but not perfection. So I've been to these after parties and all did that. So needless to say, that night, just to kind of put the ribbon on this story, that night, end up going back to her place because she lives right there and do our thing. It's all good. And
I want to point this out. He didn't bring the money out, and he still did his thing.
Yes,
just
like
to point that out.
Exactly.
Like to point that out. Go ahead.
Yeah, I knew that the money. Like,
fucking pointless.
Yeah, I've
agree.
already had you. I've been with you.
Yeah, it's not like that. It's not like, I know for some guys, like, well, that's her only value.
Yes.
It's like one of these things where I know it's actually the opposite. Had you brought the money out, there's a chance you wouldn't have had sex with her that night.
Yes.
And guys do not grasp that. You're actually, because remember, comfort and attraction, when you bring the money out, you're building comfort, she has more control. When you set your boundary and you don't bring the money out, you have more control. Yes. That's why she disagreed. And you did the thing that had more control, and you ended up having sex with her at the end. This is clear, unassailable proof of what I'm talking about. Anyway, go ahead.
And then, well, I would just say, we had a conversation that night. She's like, so why don't you like want to really date me? I'm like, you are a money-grubbing OnlyFans. You're great, but like, I don't see myself dating you. And, you know, we had very aggressive intercourse that evening. And I was like, you're a bad girl, what that whole thing.
But she asked you about buying a purse and you wanted to go
that's a different girl.
Okay.
That was that was the ex-wife. But you know, Lil Wayne says, you know, I try to give you my heart and all you want is a purse. But that girl ended up snoring that night. She fell asleep. And that was the final straw. I'm like, I just can't deal with a snore.
But with your ex-wife, you broke up because you asked her to go halfsies on a purse. And you're like, what is the point of me buying this purse?
I've learned, you know, what is my lesson, I guess, this story. A girl has to have skin in the game.
Yeah.
Has to have skin in the game.
You know, if my girlfriend came to me, maybe she hears this, I'm telling myself. If she said, hey, Michael, I want $3,000 to start a brokerage account at TD Ameritrade, I'd be like, right now, of course, no question.
Sure.
If you said, Michael, I want $3,000 because I want to take a course on Coursera, and then I also want to buy like 10 whatever links on Audible so I can educate myself, I'm all for it. If she's like, I want a purse, I'm like, I don't understand why you're stunning. Why do you need a purse? Like, how does that help this situation? You know what I'm saying? And you'd probably appreciate it more if you bought the purse. But I'm more interested in you being like a whole, an entire person, a whole person who's educated and charismatic and can communicate. I'm more interested in that than you buying a fucking purse.
Here's the problem with that. I totally appreciate that.
Yeah.
But when a girl goes out and all her hot friends have a nice purse and she has a Kate Spade and they all have a Louis Vuitton or Balenciaga or whatever, they're always going to have that comparison thing, right? Yeah. Always. So what I did do, just to be candid, the girl I was dating at the time, I did buy her a purse. It was $2,500. I'm like, I can't believe I'm spending this, but if this will make you happy, I'll do this. But here's what happens, gentlemen. 6 months later, she wants a new purse because it's purse season. And I said, how much is this new purse now? Well, now it's $3,500 rather than $2,500. I go, you tell me you want another fucking purse for $3,000? She's like, you just made a fucking $150,000 this month, whatever, like whatever, great month, great year, whatever it was. I'm like, yeah, but understand that who I am, the reason that I am who I am is I don't just blow money on purses or clothes or random cars or whatever. Like, I save money. I put it in investments. I put it in smart money. I put it in REITs. I put in stuff that grows my money, not subtracts my money. So I'll make you a deal. Since you're all about this purse, let's go halvesies on the purse. No, I don't want to go. I said, what do you mean? I get no benefit from this purse. Zero. It does nothing for me. I'm going to date you whether you had a fucking knapsack or a $4,000 purse. Means nothing to me. But this means the world to you. So I'm at least willing to meet you halfway. It's pretty nice of me, right? Keep in mind, you live with me. You pay no rent. Like, I bought you a car. Like, you're my girl. But, like, this is getting ridiculous. And, you know, sometimes this is why you get a postnup. When you start making a lot of money.
Yeah, it's just the relationship ends because of the purse.
The relationship literally ends. That was the purse that broke the camel's back.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I just thought that was a great story. Hey, last thing I want to talk to you about is Gerald Davis. Really, I watched some videos about this guy. And,
wow, that's so random that you're going, okay, that's great.
This guy, the reason why is because one of the things that I've tried to impart on my guys is a lack of judgment. Like, not lack of judgment, but like not judging people.
Yeah.
Understanding that everyone's just trying to do their best. Even the delusional, overweight mom of 4 who has 4 babies' daddies, who thinks that she deserves a man who makes $500,000 a year. She's just trying to do her best for her lineage and her genetics. She's still delusional. Don't get it twisted. Mm-hmm. I just don't need to hate her. You talk about Gerald Davis, and he's an African-American man who would go to KKK members and then talk to them and to the point where they would leave the KKK.
Yeah.
Again, the action of non-judgment. Can you talk about that?
Oh, dude, this is one of the best interviews I've ever done. If you're not familiar with Gerald Davis, check this guy out. Because talk about having stoicism and having respect for other people, no matter who they are. Talk about not having hatred for people. Like, everything that is good about society is embodied in this guy. And I had just started with Valuetainment, so this would have been, summer of 2020 when I did this interview, I want to say. And if you know anything about Valuetainment, Pat does the interviews.
Yeah.
Right? It's all Pat. 0% anybody else. He never has guest fill-ins. It's all him. Now on PBD Podcast, it's him, it's me, it's other, Jedediah, it's Vinny, it's Tom. Like, we have a cast of things, but it's mostly Pat, myself, as who it's been. But on Valuetainment, it's just Pat. So Pat says, dude, my schedule is insane. I have an interview with this guy, Gerald Davis. I'm going to have to reschedule. And I said, you have an interview with who? He goes, Gerald Davis. Have you ever heard of him? I go, I know everything about that guy. He goes, I've never heard of him. The booker booked him. He goes, I'm traveling. He's like, why don't you do the interview? I go, get out of here, bro. He's like, yeah, go for it. I trust you. I know you'll do a great job. Trusted me. Sometimes they say that your availability is your best ability.
Yeah.
I just made myself available. I moved to Dallas. I'm like, I'm here for you, whatever, Pat. And it's supposed to be an hour-long interview with Gerald Davis. And the running joke is that we talk about doing 5 hours. Like, it was a 3-hour marathon, which is laughable over there. But it was an amazing interview. And basically who Gerald Davis is he's an African-American musician that plays predominantly in the South. And I mean, he plays everywhere, but he's in Alabama, he's in Biloxi, he's in Mississippi, he's in the South, he's in New Orleans, he's doing jazz. And he'll be in the band. He plays the keyboard, the piano. And in the South, they've had a lot of good products. Their number one probably export has been racism. And the things that he would hear would be obnoxious. And he would never lose his cool. He would, people liked his music. And he would always just go, whoever it was, hey, you fucking N-word this. He's like, can I buy you a beer and talk to you? And the guy's like, what, if you want to buy me a beer? What do you mean? And he buys him a beer and he just asks questions. So why do you think that black people this? What were your parents? Why did they tell you? What was your upbringing? And he just empathized and he treated people with respect, even racists with respect. And what would happen is he would never try to convince them. It's kind of like what we do here. It's like, you shouldn't do this and you can't think this. He was like, well, so you think that black people are not as smart as white people. Why do you think that? Well, I did blah, 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 blah. It's like, well, I did pretty good on I made some money. I did good on my SATs, whatever it was, whatever his stories were. Is like, I just bought you a beer. Do you think I'm a bad guy? Well, no, you're one of the exceptions. He's like, well, there's a lot of us. Whatever he would ask questions. And he said that all I did was create a spark. All I did was create a spark that they had to go put in the work on their end to ask questions and get to the bottom line is. And long story short, I interviewed him 3 years ago, but it was hundreds of KKK members that had this epiphany, had this spark, and basically called him up and gave him their cloak and hat, whatever it was. And it got to the point where the Grand Wizard of the KKK went to jail, and he had Gerald Davis, a black man, walk his daughter down the aisle at her wedding because he said it was his best friend he ever had. And you're talking about a guy just from A to Z. You're called the worst names imaginable. We all know what that is. To now you're walking the Grand Wizard of the KKK's daughter down the aisle because he's in jail. And it's just such a transformic story. Like, it's just a guy like that. It's like almost unbelievable that he exists, but he does, and it's incredible. But it made me truly be like, okay, I can talk to the most extreme people on the right and just be completely unbiased. I can talk to the most ridiculous people on the left and treat them with respect. And I think, if Gerald Davis can do that with the KKK, why can't Democrats talk to Republicans? Why can't blacks talk to whites? Why can't men talk to women? I think there's a deeper story there. And I'm actually glad you brought that up because I haven't thought about that interview in years.
Yeah, I think that's the example that we should set. You'll notice that, again, I'm not criticizing those other shows, but the show I do with Rollo is not nearly as acrimonious as those. You'll also notice when I come on your show and you do the same thing, we're not out here to get you. We're not. And so because when you get someone like that, that's when they turn away. They become more defensive. The ego's job is not to make you happy. It's to create an identity for you and to protect that identity. So when you attack that identity, of course, they're going to climb up. I also think that those KKK members in the 80s and 90s are now the YouTube commenters. They're now the 4chan guys. They're now the guys. That's who they are.
Yeah.
Man, I love having like rational discussions about trickle-down economics versus Keynesian economics and how much GDP should go through the federal government, et cetera. And then it just turns to Illuminati and reptiles living under Antarctica. And how stupid are you, Michael? Obviously, they put nanochips in this vaccine. And I'm just like, man, I don't know what to do now because you didn't use logic or reason to get into this position, and I can't use logic or reason to get you out of it, right? And the internet, it gives you more of a voice, but it also gives some crazy people a voice too. The only thing that I can say for sure is that people like you and me can make money, even with the haters. We can just still make a lot of money. We can still be successful.
Yeah.
And the people who agree with us, their voices are so much more reasonable, and they just don't leave you. When's the last time you left a YouTube comment for someone you didn't know?
Just don't.
Again, rational people just don't leave. I appreciate the constructive criticism, by the way. Those of you who don't make personal attacks, I'm totally for that. It's just like,
I agree.
Rational people don't sit there and just leave a bunch of YouTube comments. And I think those people used to be KKK members, hidden. The mask is now their avatar that they hide behind. And I think that's where that whole thing comes.
It's you want to know and I don't really, I'll read the comments. I don't respond to comments. Sometimes I will. Sometimes it's just like, you know, I'll listen to what you have to say, but it's not going to change who I am, if that makes sense. But we could do a 5-hour podcast. We could do a 2-hour podcast. We could talk about men, women, the role, society, trans, everything, Biden, Trump, everything. And someone goes, ew, Adam's gross. He doesn't even wear socks. Like that's a comment that someone will make because they've never heard of short socks before.
Yeah.
And that's what will happen after a 5-hour podcast. Their big takeaway was, ew, you didn't wear socks.
Yeah.
Or, ew, Michael, one of the smartest, most intelligent, fucking nerdiest, coolest guys I know. Oh, he's probably a pimp. It's like, that's what you took from all this?
Yeah.
It's so weird. Are we wrapping up right now?
Yeah. Hey, man.
So I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
I know I'm on your podcast and you've been doing the questioning. So this is me like learning from the great Michael Sartain. So we talk about high value men,
okay,
men of status, you know, hot women galore. You know, I have different people, and everything's about who's in your ear, right? Some of the crazies, who's in there is crazy, and some of the great people, you know, that's where. So, you know, I have 2 different types of people in my ear. I have, let's just say, the PBD camp, the successful, married, great role models, family men, you know, and everyone that kind of does business with them. It's like, Adam, it's time to settle down, get married, have kids. Like, that's the right thing to do. You're in your early 40s now. I mean, he's been encouraging this since I was in my late 30s, but like, you know, so, and that's great, right? So that's one example, extreme, if you will. And then there's the South Beach nightlife, Michael Sartain, Vegas, all my buddies that are out there, multimillionaires, tons of chicks, crushing it. So, you know, that's who's in my ear. And I'm a very moderate person, right? And I'm like, okay, I like that. What else is like that? I'd love to have a amazing, awesome wife situation, but I don't want to be a miserable, you know, guy who abides by the happy wife, happy life thing. I kind of am more of the happy king, happy kingdom. So, you know, obviously I get, you know, I'm out there, I'm dating different girls, whatever. When I see someone like you that is at the top of your game right now, gorgeous girl, you know, really MOA is really starting to take off. You were sharing some of those numbers with me. Everything you're doing with Access Vegas is really taking off. Michael Sartain, but like you're really reaching the pinnacle, and I think it'll only get better. But like, where do you see yourself in the next 3 to 5 years? Like, do you want to get married? Do you want to keep doing your threesome thing? Do you want to have kids? Do you want to have more cats? Like, where does Michael see himself when he's 50?
I think yes to all of it, but all the things you said. But the main thing is going to be MOA to high 8 figures, 9 figures. That's the priority. Like, I just need the people who come into entrepreneurship and they have this dream about their pink taco stand, or they want to sell, you know, furniture that's made fluorescent, or whatever their weird thing is. It's way easier to do that when you have 10 mil in the bank.
Yeah.
Okay. It's way easier to follow your dream when you have 10 million in the bank. And Wayne Huizenga, the former owner of the Miami Dolphins.
Blockbuster and Miami Dolphins and Waste Management.
And Waste Management. But the reason why he didn't wake up one morning and be like, you know what, you know what I've always had a passion for? Waste.
Trash.
I want to pick up trash and feces. No, he solved someone else's problem.
100%.
So to me, the priority is how many people in my program can I solve their problem? That includes my employees. I want to make my employees wealthy. I want to make my partners wealthy. And I want to make my clients wealthy. I also want to make my clients have incredible levels of status. So that to me is the priority. My girlfriend is young enough to where we've got a bit of time, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't. And I had Lieutenant Colonel. He was a civilian in my unit. He got his first kid at 59 years old. Like, it's just different for us.
59. Think about that.
It's different for us.
Do you want to wait that long?
No, I don't want to wait that long. But there's some, at some point I'd like to teach someone how to throw a football for sure and how to play Madden. But it's not, the thing is, it's not when, it's how does the priority last. And the thing for me is, if we had that much economic freedom, then I think the relationship would be a lot easier for both of us. Yeah. If it is, hopefully it is Kylie, but if it's not Kylie, then someone else, whoever, the relationship would be easier if we had that part settled. Yeah. The other thing is, I'm a minimalist like you, and I'm never going to be showy about how much money I make. I'm going to drive, maybe Tesla will probably be the most expensive car I ever drive. Yeah. I wear an Apple Watch and I wear $30 ASOS shirts from fucking England. That's it. That's all I wear. So to me, it's like a set of priorities. But here's the thing. When you grow up and you talk to women when they're little kids, they're like, you know what I want to be? I want to be a bride. I want to be Cinderella. I want to be a bride and get princess. When you talk to guys, they're like, I want to be a firefighter. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a police officer. Do you want to be a groom at your wedding and just like give up a third of your yearly salary and a ring and then get down on a knee and then just like supplicate to some woman? No. Interesting that you don't want that. That dream is more for women. And so that's the reason why for me, I'm not saying I won't ever get married, but there's a possibility. What I'm saying is I could not get married and still be happy. Yeah. But whatever happens in the future is like the power of now. I'm only focused on like, what can I do today to make the Men of Action mentoring group better? That's the only thing that matters to me. Well said, man. So I have, because this is such a big thing for me, right? Because, my whole dream was, all right, I want to say I'm a millionaire. Okay. And I did that when I was 35 and I was like, all right, great. And then I just realized like, I'm not a showy guy. Yeah. I've been in South Beach. I've partied everywhere. I've done the Kardashian. Like I've been there, done that. Yeah. If I make another $1 million, let's say, in the next few years, it's not going to change my life at all. At all. Okay. So I guess my question to you is like, all right, so if you make a couple $1 million in the next few years, very possible, what's going to change in your life? I may buy a bigger unit at Pano. That may be it. So you have a nicer house. Yeah, no, it's like I live in a 2-bedroom. I may get a 3-bedroom and just buy it outright. That's the only thing I would do different. So your life's not going to change. Still going to drive used cars. I'm still going to I'm still going to host the biggest bikini competition in the world when I'm 50. Sorry if that bothers you. Like that's how I'm wired. And I'm still going to have a coaching program, and I'm still going to be part of my coaching program. A lot of guys, they'll step back and they'll let the other coaches take over. I don't see myself ever doing. I'm like PBD. I'm always going to be the host. So that's what I most likely see in the future. But the thing is, I just don't put any urgency on anything other than today. Okay. 5 feet around me, 5 seconds ahead of me. That's it. That's the only thing that. Well, speaking of the future. Okay. We'll be back out here, PBD and I, in August. Okay. For the massive event that we put on last year. Shaq was there, Nelly was there, Nicky Jam, Tyson, all that. What? This is for PHP. Where is it? It's always at MGM. Perfect. MGM. So then you guys can easily walk out to the bikini competition I'm hosting for $100,000 in August. Okay, this is in August. So what my deal for you is, I'll probably be a part of the bikini contest. Sure. But then we'll try to arrange something with you and PBD while he's out here. I'd love it. And we'll make that happen. And I have so many questions about the 101st I want to ask him. It's so awesome, man. All right. Yeah. That's the deal. Hey, guys, thank you so much for watching us. I know this one was a marathon, but I hope you thought it was worth it. I was really happy that we got to do this. He happened to be in town right now. I happen to be in town right now, so we got this thing knocked out. Guys, please like, share, and subscribe. I really hope that you enjoyed this. Leave comments, give me constructive criticism. I really do appreciate it. Thank all you guys for all the kind comments that I've gotten on Instagram recently. And man, I just can't even. When I go to Miami or I go to London or wherever and people recognize me, I'm like, how is this possible? Like, it's just crazy to me. This whole thing is happening because I'm getting to talk about things I want to talk about. Yeah. Right. Well, and I think it's compound interest, and Pat says this. He's like, I just knew that I needed to do something with Adam because I just recognize his talent. Yeah. I think it's very obvious that you have this just very unique talent. And if you keep doing this, which I'm sure you will,
the sky's the limit. So I'm subscribed. I'm a fan. You know
I
that.
appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. I want to see if I can get like Bilzerian on your show. That would be awesome.
All right, deal.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you all next week. You